It all begins with our protagonist, Hinata, who stops on his way to school in front of a shop that's televising a volleyball match. There he sees a short player nicknamed Small Giant that faces and surpasses main team's players. This encourages him, and 3 years later he takes part with his school in a volleyball tournament. While Hinata is just happy to be there, the opponent team arrives, Akitagawa Daiichi. They're tall and intimidating, and lots of students went to cheer for them. This makes Hinata nervous, forcing him to run to the bathroom. When Hinata finally leaves the bathroom, some Kitagawa players are mocking his school, Yukagaoka, because they have only few players and they don't seem pretty taught. Hinata wants to argue, but soon appears Kageyama, known as the king of the court, who scares the freshman away. He then asks Hinata why is he there. He simply responds he wants to win since they already made it as far as to be in a real court, yet Kageyama says he's the one that'll win and leaves. The match is about to start and Azumi runs to look for Hinata. They arrive at the court, and Kageyama is upset at his teammates for not catching up with his rhythm, earning a scolding from his trainer. The match begins and Hinata's team is losing, but Hinata never stops cheering up his teammates, never gives up. His desire to win is intact. As the match continues, the protagonist remembers the path until reaching that point. Being the only member of the masculine volleyball team, how he had to join the feminine team, training non-stop, looking for a friend that would help him, but mostly training only against a wall. He remembers how hard it was to convince his friends to join him to participate in the tournament. Back to the present, he finally has the chance to spike a ball. He runs and jumps, surprising everybody with how fast and agile he is. Yet, a Kitagawa player blocks him. However, none of them gets discouraged. This way, the first set ends 7-21, proving how strong Hinata is, but also that he's in a grave disadvantage. A ball is flying far from them, but Hinata anyway runs after it with all his might, not being able to reach it in the end. His teammates suggest they maybe should retire since they clearly can't win. Hinata smiles and says they haven't lost yet, and therefore they can continue playing. A complicated ball is about to land on Kitagawa's court, and one of the players doesn't even run to get it, receiving for that a very pissed offly call out from Kageyama, giving everybody the feeling that he's playing alone. Azumi hits poorly a ball, sending it in the opposite direction, setting a very difficult ball for Hinata to reach. He anyway runs at an incredible speed, and jumps so high he reaches it, and even though Kageyama takes that attack seriously and tries to block it, he fails. Sadly, the ball is out and the match is over, having Yukagaoka as the loser. They all leave the building and Hinata encounters Kageyama and promises him that he'll become better and stronger and will definitely defeat him. Time goes by and Hinata continues training hard every day until he graduates and goes to Karasuno High School. He hurries to the volleyball club to find a terrible new awaiting there. Tobio Kageyama attends the same school. At first, he tries to believe that it's someone else, but Kageyama's bad face is unmistakable, so he goes to ask him directly why is he there. The reason is simple. The best volleyball team in the Miyagi Prefecture rejected him. That surprises the protagonist, since Kageyama is supposed to be the king of the court, although he no longer likes to be called that. The third-year players arrive to welcome them, Sawamura Daichi, the current captain and opposite hitter, Sugawara Kashi, setter, and Tanaka Ryunosuke, outside hitter. They all love at Kageyama because of his height and his skills. They also pay attention to Hinata, as they went to see his match against Kitagawa, and got surprised by his ability to move and jump. While introducing themselves, Kageyama starts arguing with Hinata, telling him that he doesn't know how to play well, and because of that, Hinata challenges him to a volleyball duel. During the fight, the vice principal arrives to see how the team is doing at the same time that the two rivals take positions. The match starts, and Kageyama serves a ball with professional technique, and it travels so fast that Hinata has to dodge it, realizing what a difference the last year made. Even so, he gets up for another round, receiving the ball, but this one flies in a random direction, hitting the vice principal and taking his wig, falling in the team captain's head, Daichi. This annoys him, to the point that he asks Daichi to accompany him. Shortly after, he arrives to say no reprisal will be taken as long as they don't say a word about what they saw. Then he goes on to tell Hinata and Kageyama that a few years ago they were the strongest, but not anymore. They are called the fallen rivals, or the crows that cannot fly. But even so, Daichi believes that they can reach that level again and play on the same court as the little giant. But in order to achieve this, Kageyama and Hinata will have to learn to get along and act like teammates, as they are not rivals anymore. He takes them out of the building and tells them they can't play at the club until they learn how to work as a team. The duo tries begging to be let back in, but can't keep themselves from fighting. Kageyama knocks Hinata out of the way and says that he will get along with him. Daichi opens the door a tiny bit and asks him if he's sure. Unnerved, Kageyama ends up telling the truth. If he had to cooperate with Hinata in a match, he would rather receive spike and toss all by himself. Daichi laughs at his honesty and points out how in volleyball, one player can't touch the ball twice. It occurs to Kageyama that they can challenge their senpais to play and show what they are made of, while remembering their defeat in Kitagawa. In turn, Hinata tells him how different and good he felt during his first match against him, wanting to feel it again. A beautiful girl named Kyoko goes inside the building, leaving them speechless. Shortly after, the two rivals enter to request a duel against their senpais. They agree, but they won't be facing them. Aided by Tanaka, they'll face two other applicants that will play on the same team, on the condition that if they lose, Kageyama won't play as a setter, because they can't win with someone self-centered. The freshmen leave, but Shuba and Tanaka are worried that Daichi is being a little rough. In turn, Kageyama explains to the protagonist his reason for wanting to be a setter. Although it's not the fanciest position, it's the funniest to play, since he's the one who overcomes the most difficult walls in the team. Tanaka manages to yell from inside the gym that they'll start training at 7 a.m. That is how. Next day, they arrive at 5 a.m. with Tanaka. Half asleep, Tanaka remembers what Daichi said the day before as to why was he that rough. He knows they're troublesome right now, but if they could work together, they'd bring out each other's strengths and Karasuno would evolve explosively. While practicing, the boys fight as usual, but Tanaka asks them to please keep everything a secret, since even he is afraid of Daichi when he gets angry. However, that's when Shuga arrives, excited to practice with them, and dedicates to help Hinata. The bad thing is that the latter only concentrates on Kageyama, impressed by his movements, asking him to set the ball for him, to which he refuses, as he won't set for somebody he doesn't consider vital for winning the match into his eyes. Hinata is not vital at that moment in considering his skills. Leaving practice, Hinata meets with Shuga to continue practicing. Here, Sugawara reveals he's the official setter of Karasuno, and asks about his reasons for going to that school. Hinata tells him about his time with the girls' volleyball team, and how much his friends helped him. However, when facing Kageyama, he felt very pressured. He also tells him that he wants to beat him in order to reach higher, not losing again. All while Kageyama hears them from behind a vending machine. Shortly after, it's time for volleyball practice, where the protagonist is going to see how they warm up, since he has no other option. Kageyama arrives to take him to a place where they can practice. At the same time, the other first-year students arrive. Tsukishima Ki and Yamaguchi Tagashi, aspiring to play in Karasuno's volleyball team, leaving everyone impressed. Meanwhile, the protagonist and Kageyama train tirelessly, as both agree that they have no choice but to win. Hinata thinks about why is Kageyama bothered by being called King, if it's such a cool name. Back with the protagonist and Kageyama, while practicing at night, their rivals arrive to see them. There, one of them, Tsukishiro, is surprised to see the king of the court, which annoys Kageyama a lot, but Ki doesn't stop provoking him, calling him that continuously. He even mentions what happened in Kitagawa, where it seems that Kageyama's teammates couldn't stand his terrible attitude anymore. Kageyama remains unable to reply. Although he doesn't understand what is happening, Hinata jumps to take the ball from Ki, surprising him and letting him know that they will win no matter what. This prompts Ki and Tadashi to leave, with Ki annoyed at how passionate for no reason they are. The protagonist and Kageyama continue training, getting stronger and stronger due to Kageyama's annoyance. The next day, the protagonist continues training, trying to receive the ball before it falls. Thanks to his training, Hinata receives them better than ever, compensating for his clumsiness and inexperience with his agility and mindset. Kageyama begins to recognize his partner's strength, unintentionally throwing a long-range ball at him. To his surprise, Hinata reaches it, so to respect his efforts and recognize his ability, he sets a ball for him to spike. Hinata, despite being tired, arrives with all his speed to spike it, and there, for the first time, Kageyama recognizes that he is necessary to win and promises that they will both win their match. It's the big day, and they both meet with their rivals, all ready to win the match. Kageyama is dreaming about his days at Kitagawa. He's giving orders to everyone until he sets a ball, but there's nobody there to receive it. Back in the present, the game is about to begin. Daichi will play as his rival, while Ki keeps talking to annoyed Tanaka and Kageyama. But it doesn't work exactly as he expects, as it motivates the boys even more to play, having Tanaka as a great attacker who scores points for them. Even though Hinata is receiving the balls from Kageyama to spike and score point once again, just like in his first match, he faces into a wall that he cannot cross. No matter how hard he tries, Ki is much taller. Because of this, Kageyama plans to shoot from the distance to score, which Daichi avoids since he specializes in defensive skills. Ki takes this opportunity to tell Hinata the truth behind the King nickname. He always gave orders to his Kitagawa classmates like a dictator. It was during one of his matches that he gave too many orders to his teammates and ended up setting it for someone to finish off the ball, but there was no one to do it, making him understand that from then on, they would never follow him. Because of this, he was sent to the bench. Kageyama then speaks up, stating that tossing only to find no one there frightens him. Hinata interrupts and reminds Kageyama that happened in junior high. He feels that Kageyama now tosses just fine, surprising the setter. Tsukishima serves to Tanaka, who sends the ball to Kageyama. The setter doesn't think Hinata can beat Tsukishima one-on-one, so he decides to give the ball to Tanaka. However, Hinata quickly gets behind the setter, exclaiming that he's here now. Even though his spike went out, Hinata isn't discouraged. He tells Kageyama that he'll take any toss, hit any ball, and jump anywhere, so Kageyama has to toss to him. Tanaka approaches the two excitedly, asking them if they know how to do quicks due to their previous attack. Hinata doesn't know what those are since he just hits whatever he wants. Kageyama replies that a quick is impossible for them anyway since they're not coordinated. Hinata gets insulted and yells at him only to garner another taunt from Tsukishima. The blocker tells him that just being reckless won't help since some people just aren't cut out for some things, spiking for instance. Hinata agrees with him, saying that during junior high, he would always get blocked. His jumping power couldn't fight against the blocker's height, but the small giant was different. Despite his small stature, he easily blasted through blockers twice his size. Hinata wants to be like that, so he doesn't care if he's cut out for being a spiker or not. With this body, he'll aim to win as much as he can. Kageyama looks at him, reminded of his own feelings during junior high. Tsukishima rebukes Hinata, but Kageyama steps up to his defense, exclaiming that clearing the path for the spiker is the setter's job. Shocked, Kageyama announces that he will adhere to Hinata's style. He tells the latter to move at his quickest speed and jump at his highest height. Hinata agrees and the match resumes. Taking into account his surroundings, Kageyama tosses the ball to Hinata at the perfect moment and Hinata scores before anyone can react. As Hinata lands, Daichi points out in shock that Hinata had his eyes closed, surprising everyone. Hinata replies that he closed his eyes because Kageyama told him to not watch the ball. The latter's perplexed at Hinata's complete trust in his tosses, but realizes that he can now utilize all of Hinata's skills to his advantage. The next few quicks fail, but this time Kageyama's blaming himself instead of his teammate and admitting that despite the failures, he's actually having fun. Hinata feels the same way, noting to himself that the feeling of the ball hitting his hand is really the best. Kageyama throws a ball for Hinata to spike, but Ki is in the way. Too late, he yells Yamabuchi to cover the other side. At the last second, Hinata switches gears and runs towards the opposite direction. He thinks to himself that he has to stay ahead even if it's only a second faster. As long as he can outrun his opponents, he will be able to win. As he spikes, he thinks to himself that this is the highest point he can reach. He was never able to see the other side of the wall by himself, but now he has Kageyama. The match continues and both of them get more and more precise in their attacks, forcing Ki and the others to get serious. Even Tanaka is only able to score thanks to them, managing to win the first set. The game continues with Kai frustrated to see how much they are ahead of them since the combination between Kageyama and Hinata is simply too good for them to face, finally winning the match. This leaves Tanaka speechless, as neither he nor his friends expected the duo to be so good. This is because both compensated and complemented the other, getting the most out of their plays. They go with Ki to shake hands as a good sporting attitude, but he refuses, starting to annoy Hinata, until he finally manages to do it. Daichi arrives to cheer Ki up a bit, and it is at that moment that he sees the protagonist and Kageyama present their club applications, and then asks Kyoko to give them their Karasuno jackets, showing that they are now official members of the team. When the duo goes back to practicing their quick attacks, Professor Tekiya arrives, who will accompany them from now on despite having no experience in volleyball. He has not arrived empty-handed. He has news. He managed to arrange a practice match with Oba Josai, one of the best volleyball teams of the prefecture, under the condition that Kageyama is the setter. Shubin, the team's official setter, agrees as he wants to see how good the combination of Kageyama and the protagonist can be against one of the best teams. Leaving the gym, Kageyama goes to Shuba, promising that next time he will earn his place as setter fairly, as he doesn't want his teammates to distrust him again. At that moment, the others arrive, finding out that the team they will play against is Kageyama's old team. Worrying that it could affect him, that he only feels even more motivated to win, willing to give his all. Hinata is also motivated, finally feeling that he is part of an official volleyball team. However, they still have an issue to deal with: the game positions. To do it, they gather all the players of the team, reviewing the positions. The setter, who acts as a central tower and handles the balls to give spikers an opportunity to attack. The spikers are the ones who deal with the offense, attacking the opponent's core. And finally, the central blocker, who deals with the defense and scores through quick attacks. The strange thing is that they place Hinata here, which is a position where height influences a lot, and although he can jump, those who are taller will reach the ball before him. But Daichi doesn't mind because it's just a practice game. Besides, worst case scenario, Hinata only needs to touch the ball to give others a chance. However, Hinata now has a bigger problem, since due to Kageyama pushing him more than he should have now and can't stay calm. In the club's room, he's too nervous to even get dressed, even stealing Tanaka's pants by accident. Daichi points out it's all Kageyama's doing, but he fails to realize it's his fault, not understanding what's happening. This whole situation escalates during night and Hinata can't sleep. Next day, on their way to the match, he feels so bad that he ends up on Tanaka, hinting to everyone that it's a lot worse than they thought. The team arrives at the Oba Josai school, with Hinata still feeling bad and Tanaka not doing much to calm him down. We happen to see Kindechi, a former classmate of Kageyama, talking with one of his friends about what it was like to be with Kageyama before. It is at that moment that they meet Karasuno's team, where both Tanaka and Ki provoke and annoy them. When Kindechi sees Kageyama, starts calling him an egocentric king, expecting him to explode like he used to, but he keeps his cool. Once they get to the court, Hinata feels scared due to the large number of players, in addition to how big they are, having to go to the bathroom. There he meets Kindeki once again, who says Kageyama's lifts are horrible because no one can follow them, and on top of that, he gets rid of everything that is not necessary to win. Tanaka arrives to provoke him, eager to show how much Kageyama has changed over the last year. However, when Kindeki says that Kageyama gets rid of what is unnecessary, the protagonist gets even worse. The match begins and Hinata can't help but be nervous, and even Kyoko doesn't help at calming him down. This causes him to make one mistake after another, giving Karasuno a serious disadvantage, causing Oba to be unimpressed by Karasuno's skills. Although everyone tries to keep Hinata calm, in the end it's his turn to serve, which still worries him, remembering that if he makes a mistake, Kageyama will take him out of the game, as he is not necessary to win, so he tries to serve with all his might. The bad thing is that when doing so, he accidentally points at Kageyama's head, hitting him very hard. Because of this, Kageyama gets very upset at Hinata, who is scared to. Kageyama then, despite being furious about the hitting, makes him see that everything's okay, and that he should stop worrying that much. The first set ends with Hinata still feeling terrible for having ruined it, but then Tanaka appears, telling him to stop worrying about playing like others. After all, they are a team, and they are his allies, so he can trust them to make up for his mistakes, finally managing to calm Hinata down. The second set begins with a now calmer protagonist being able to make the quick attack with Kageyama, although he misses on the first attempt. Kindeki expects Kageyama to scold him for this, but he apologizes instead. Then they try another quick attack, and this time they succeed, getting all of Oba Josei's players to set their eyes on Hinata and ignore Tanaka, scoring another point with which they place themselves ahead. Despite this, Oba Josei continues to play, confident that they can win. However, the Kageyama-Hinata combination surpasses them. The first one even admits to Daichi that he is happy to have companions that he can play with without having to worry about doing everything. On the other hand, Oba's team meets with their coach, who tells them that Hinata is not looking at the ball, but that he fully trusts that it will arrive, and that is what causes them so many problems, in addition to his athletic ability. This is why they regret not being able to have Kageyama, even though he was so self-centered. The team changes positions, and Daichi now has to take care of Ki and Kageyama, who fight while blocking. Despite this, they make a wall Oba can't surpass. This way, Karasuno wins the second set, but they can't relax as a player named Oikawa joins the game. Upon seeing Oikawa, Kageyama feels instantly intimidated, since he is the one who taught Hoi to play volleyball. So Hinata assumes that if Kageyama is king, then Oikawa must be the great king, superior to his friend. They confirm this upon seeing him play, witnessing his mastery of the ball as he throws it straight to Ki and scores. He manages this in a blink, since the little time they have played is enough for him to realize that more Ki or Hinata are good receivers, so he aims at them in order to score. Meanwhile, Hinata notices Ki getting more frustrated by the minute, so he tries to lift his spirits. He gives him the same motivational speech that he gave Tanaka earlier, though it isn't as effective. Trying to fix their defense, Daichi decides to go to the middle himself, so he can better block Oikawa's offensive and manages to keep the ball in the air. Kinbeki rushes to the ball, but Hinata arrives first. This gives Karasuno the chance to attack, so Hinata and Kageyama coordinate their star move once more, and as Hinata looks directly into Oikawa's eyes, they surprise him with a blow so devastating that even himself can't stop it, handing over the victory to Karasuno. Once the match is over, the team goes to Takeda, who gives them encouraging words, stating how amazing it is that the team dynamics can change so greatly, making emphasis on Hinata and Kageyama's incredible sync. In the end, his words are a bit too poetic and boring. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Kindeki remembers when he and the rest of his team decided to leave Kageyama behind because of his unbearable arrogance. In this precise moment, Kageyama enters with the intention of apologizing, but Kindeki tells him not to and promises he will beat him in the next match. Kageyama then promises he will win again as well, but not alone, which takes Kindeki by surprise. While exiting the gym, Daichi worries because even if they won, they still lack something as a team to beat Oikawa, who just happens to be waiting for them. He praises Hinata's spikes, but states that, as a whole, the team still has a weak defense, and that if they don't work on that, it won't be long before they are defeated. Daichi knows this, of course, and that the team has a long way to go. Still, he isn't worried because he knows the guardian deity of Karasuno will soon return. Back at their school, the boys are cleaning up the gym, while Daichi chats with Takeda about the team. Takeda reveals that he has a new coach in mind since they are going to need a pro to really give the team competitive advantage. After cleaning, Hinata and the rest head back home, not without stopping at their favorite store for a meal. On their way home, they talk about the match, and Kageyama reveals that he knows about a legendary coach known as Yukai is said to come back from retirement to help them out. This is the same coach that once led Karasuno to nationals. Kageyama also states that even if they have skill, they still need a good libero to improve their defense and an ace spiker who can take 3 blocks by himself, but that Hinata can't fill this role since he is destined to be decoy. Still, they don't worry, since they hear the strange guardian deity of Karasuno will return soon, which piques Hinata's interest. Although, according to Tanaka and the rest, this is not really so good, since this mysterious person was suspended and banned from the club activities for a month. The next day, while Hinata and Kageyama train, an unknown boy appears and perfectly receives Kageyama's ball, sending it exactly where the setter should be. But above all this skill show-off, what surprises Hinata the most is that this boy is shorter than him. At this moment, Daichi sees Asahi and scolds him for standing still in front of the main gate, telling him that everyone is ready to go against Nekoma, which picks Asahi's attention, who is still being scolded by his team captain, who tells him that if he likes volleyball, then he doesn't need any other excuse to play. Meanwhile, at Yukai's store, Takeda arrives to keep trying to convince him to coach the team, to which Yukai finally reveals why he doesn't want to do so. It fills him with nostalgia to go to the gym, reminding him of the times he used to play there. Takeda then tells him about the upcoming match against Nekoma, which triggers more memories for Yukai. At first he doesn't yield, but in the end he agrees to coach the team. At the same time, Tanaka sees how hard has Noe been practicing to the point of having in his arms. Right then and there, Takeda arrives alongside Yukai, presenting him as the grandson of the former coach, surprising everyone when they realize he's actually the owner of their favorite store. Immediately after introducing himself, Yukai makes them play a practice match against the Karasuno Neighborhood Association team, who seem like a bunch of old people who used to play alongside Yukai back in the day, but they are a few players short. Just in time, Asahi walks through the door forced by Yukai, so the match can begin. Still, the Neighborhood Association is missing a setter, so Shuba joins them. Given that, although he would be relieved to have someone as good as Kageyama on his side, he wishes to play with Asahi again, promising his friend he will do everything in his power to win. The match begins with pretty well-balanced teams. The association team is quite good at receiving balls, since they are all volleyball veterans. Suddenly, Hinata delivers one of his star spikes, captivating everyone's attention, including Asahi, who remembers playing with his own friends. It is here in that memory that we see him struggling to score, given that no matter how many times he tries, all his shots are blocked out, which makes him lose his confidence in himself little by little, bringing Karasuno to a defeat. Back from that game, Asahi was upset that no one blamed him for losing, especially Noya, who didn't really believe it was his fault, but was actually pissed off that he had given up in such a selfish way. It was then that Asahi stoked attending the club. Even then, Noya wanted him to play again, but Asahi refused. He didn't want to fail again as a team star. Back to the present, he keeps struggling with self-doubt but wants to keep going anyway. He wants to feel this sensation again, the sense of scoring a point. Upon hearing this, Noya decides to help him by keeping the ball moving, and as soon as he gets the chance, Asahi throws himself into the offensive, but is instantly blocked. Just when the ball is about to reach the ground, Noya turns up to receive it, giving Shuba a chance to regain control. At first, he doubts about giving the ball back to Asahi, since he doesn't seem very confident about his capabilities. Still, he calls out his friend with all his strength and throws the ball at him. This is how Asahi finally remembers that he is not alone, that his friend's got his back, and thus manages to score with a great spike. The star is finally back. After this great comeback, Shuba and Noya congratulate Asahi. Tough Nobe isn't really satisfied, as he believes his friend was too soft, given that Asasho had been slacking for a while now these last time. Simultaneously, Yukai makes Takeda know that no matter how good Noya is, holding the ball for long is really complicated, so he won't be able to save every last throw, but as long as they all know that they have teammates looking out for them, anything can change. The match continues, and this time is Hinata and Kageyama's turn to shine, performing their star move, which earns them a point without even looking at the ball. This surprises everyone, especially Yukai, who thinks of these boys as real freaks due to their great ability to coordinate their attacks. Following this train of thought, he labels Kageyama a genius and Suba as someone reliable due to his constant efforts and skill as a setter, convincing Yukai to fall completely for the new team. He is also really intrigued by Hinata's agility and jump capability. Then, Takeda takes this opportunity to tell Yukai of Hinata's dream of becoming a legend like the little giant, which makes him eager to play against Asahi. Regardless, when the time comes to receive one of Asahi's balls, Hinata is incapable of stopping it, no matter how far he jumps, leaving him stunned at Asahi's skill, making him remember the times he would watch the small giant. This distracts him way too much, to the point to thinking that if he maybe had his opponent's strength and height, he could play so much better. This leaves him off guard as he takes a ball straight to his face. Kageyama yells at him for being distracted with such thoughts, which makes Hinata upset since he doesn't understand his feelings. At this point, a professor arrives to tell everyone that it's time to close up the gym. After Takeda convinces him to let the match continue, Kageyama walks to the rival team and reveals he will pass the ball to Hinata in his next attack, asking them to try to stop him. Hinata is clueless to why he would do this, since he is not that good against offensive plays, to which Kageyama replies that he can't be a star on his own, but as long as he is there with him, Hinata is unstoppable. As the rival team starts their offensive, our protagonist dodges the blockers with his insane speed, since he has no other option. This makes him realize that even if he doesn't have the strength of height to attack as Asahi does, he still has his speed to leave everyone in the dust, and that he can take advantage of this ability by using Kageyama. This way, Hinata finally feels comfortable in his position within the team. This leaves Yukai intrigued since he can't believe the level of coordination these two have. Now the neighborhood association is motivated to play more seriously, using a special attack in which they stop the ball from spinning, making it fall and bounce inconsistently, making its reception hard. As if this wasn't enough, even as Hinata manages to do a good job as decoy and distract the enemy team so that Tanaka spikes, Noya is really fast and stops the attack. In spite of his play resulting in failure for our team, Canada remains mesmerized with Hinata's strength, making everyone notice him. After the game, easily won by the neighborhood association, Hinata meets up with Asahi to cheer him up, but in the end, it's Asahi who ends up lifting Hinata's spirits, as he believes that the best player is the one the rivals fear the most, which in this case would be no other than our main character. Once they all finish cleaning up, they get together to say goodbye, having the Karasuno team finally assembled and ready to compete. The next morning, Hinata leaves his house, excited to start training with the recently formed team. He arrives at the gym, where they practice not only receptions, but also spikes, where he shines the most. Once the night arrives, everyone goes to the place they will all be staying at, leaving Hinata really pumped up, for this is his first training camp. In the meantime, Tanaka and Noya are more interested in being around Kyoko, but doesn't plan to stick with the gang for too long, so they try to enjoy her as much as they can during dinner. After eating, it's time to hit the showers, where Tanaka gets to see Hinata all frightened, thinking he's seen a strange little kid in there with them. As it turns out, it is only Noya, who would seem to have lost a couple inches after showering. Out of the blue, Asahi appears, scaring the out of the boys after the shower. The next day, the group goes hiking while Yukai and Takeda stay to talk about Hinata and Kageyama and how they push themselves in their trainings. Regardless, Yukai brings up one divisive topic. He isn't sure who to leave on the team as setter Shuga or Kageyama. On one hand, Shuga is more experienced and the rest of the team trusts him, but on the other hand, Kageyama has unparalleled skill to make up for that experience. In addition to that, the fact that Shuba is on his third year doesn't help, since it would seem to make Yukai more emotionally involved him, which makes it harder for him to decide who to let in the official team. Meanwhile, Hinata continues to hike with the rest of the team, but without realizing, he speeds up and ends up getting lost, bumping into a boy who he starts talking to. The boy's name is Kema, who happens to also play volleyball, but unlike Hinata, he isn't very interested in the subject, since he doesn't like to get tired. On top of that, as he tells Hinata, his team had been decaying lately, but are now getting stronger, which gives Hinata a strange sensation. In the end, Shuba arrives searching for him, noticing how much he pushes himself during training, this being because Hinata doesn't want to be seen as a compliment to Kageyama, so he must work harder, and Shuba promises to do so with him. At the same time, we see the Nakoma High team training, and we realize that Kema is the setter and brain behind the whole team. After training, Yukai meets with Shuba, who knows he is having trouble deciding between him and Kageyama, reason why he tells the coach to replace him without hesitation and leave him in the bench as backup. Because of this, Yukai, even without being fully prepared to act as coach, promises to help them win. This is how the next day they start planning their lineup, while Noya tells Asahi not to worry about other third years, except for Shuba, since the strongest are the ones in the playfield. A while after, at the bedrooms, Enoshita and the rest of the backup players go have a chat with Hinata, explaining how they all quit because they weren't able to keep up with Yukai's rigorous training. But this time, they don't want to quit, so they are decided to give it all for the team. Later at the gym, the new team uniforms arrive, and as if it was meant by destiny, Hinata receives the same member as the little giant, making him extremely happy. Meanwhile, Yukai is worried about the rival team, since they were known for being really flexible in the past. And despite not having talented players, Karasuno had a hard time scoring against them. At night in Nakoma's facility, Kema admits being really excited about the game, something unusual in him, and at the same time, our protagonist accepts that he can't play well without Kageyama for the time being. We see an old match between Karasuno and Nakoma and learn of their long-lasting rivalry. Hinata goes to Kema, being clear about how surprised he feels to know that he is actually with Nakoma. This isn't the only surprise tough, since almost every member of Nakoma's team would seem like a copy of each player at Karasuno. Their coach, on top of everything, looks eager to finally have his revenge, stating that he is not willing to lose without giving a fight. Right before the match starts, Kema tells Hinata that he isn't the one making miracles in his team, it's actually a joint effort. The match starts, and right away, Nakoma is surprised by Kageyama and Hinata's fast spike and realize they are a force to be feared. But this is not the only thing they have to look out for, given that Noya is rotating positions constantly to ensure the control of the ball, and Asahi is a tough opponent due to his strength. This makes Nakoma ask for timeout and start discussing their new strategy. Quickly, Kema, the group's genius, starts analyzing Kageyama and Hinata, deducting that while Kageyama guides him, Hinata delivers the final blow, so in order to avoid that attack, they have to get rid of him first. The match resumes, but this time they do everything in their power to deceive and block Hinata's spikes. hitting him with a surprise attack that leaves him completely off guard. Kageyama then tries to teach a new smash as Kemma notices how clever Ki really is, so he finds a way to deceive him with a feint, throwing the ball in the opposite direction. But there's more to Kemma than his analytic abilities. We get a glimpse at Kemma's past when he didn't like to be around other people, but still was worrying about what others thought of him. He only played volleyball with his neighbor, Kuro, who convinced him to enter the school team, believing he would be a great addition to Nekoma with his observing skills. Back to the game, Nekoma keeps watching carefully over their rivals as Yukai understands the difference between both teams. In Karasuno, Kageyama and his abilities support the rest of the team, while in Nekoma, it is the team that supports Kemma, making them connect better passes. With Kemma's new knowledge, they figure out how to stop Hinata's quick strikes, even during the second set, but Yukai still won't pull him out of the playfield, stating that he wants Hinata to learn how to adapt, and since they are not in a real match, he should take the opportunity to improve his skills as long as he isn't demotivated. At first, both Kemma and Nekoma's coach believe that surely Hinata should be discouraged by now after failing repeatedly, but that's not the case since now, and unlike his very first match, he's more excited than ever before, with his mind set to surpass this new wall in front of him, asking Kageyama to keep making passes at him. This way, they try their signature move, but to everyone's surprise, this time Hinata has his eyes wide open, trying to imitate Kageyama's direct spike from before. Tuffy fails. This makes Yukai realize a new idea and suggests that Kageyama throws slower balls at Hinata, giving him more time to control the ball mid-air. This is hard for our protagonist since he's never tried something like this before. Meanwhile, Takeda and Yukai talk about the time the little giant was in Karasuno, and that despite his height, he would manage to master the ball while jumping even against 3 blockers, and Yukai remembers his grandfather's words before retiring. Hinata launches himself in the air once again, ready to launch his attack, but this time he manages to deviate it to his side, and all till he misses. He's willing to try again until he masters this new move. The protagonist then continues trying to score points through the new attack with Kageyama, but it's too difficult and Takeda notices. However, the coaches of both teams are aware of something. Although Hinata is not able to score, what he needs is to develop his skills in order to make the most of his potential. When that happens, he will no longer depend so much on Kageyama, and he will not be like an Oni with his club, but rather they will be too honest on the field. The match continues and Tanaka manages to get past his block, leaving Hinata upset that he was the only one unable to get past his. For this, Daichi advises him to have a broader perspective, and he does this when he can see that his rival is following the ball, so he begins to follow him, managing to touch and block the ball. This is achieved not only by Hinata and his rival, but by everyone on both teams, as they influence each other to improve. At this point, Kuro, the middle blocker of Nekoma, steps forward, and Kageyama suggests Hinata to do his usual quickie, as he has a bad feeling. By doing so, they get point. Yukai goes on to explain that this was a good decision, as Kuro would have an easy time with a normal quick. However, Nekoma seizes the initiative again with a quick, and after that, Kuro starts deceptively spiking his way through Karasuno's defenses, messing up the blocker's rhythm and gaining the lead. This leaves Karasuno at a disadvantage because in terms of defense they are not that good, so their only chance to win is to attack without stopping and score more points. Thus, they begin a ferocious offensive against Nekoma, hitting as many points as they lose, slowly approaching Nekoma, remaining just 1 point behind. They do this because if they come in deuce, they might have a chance to turn the game around. Since Hinata's spike is no good, Kageyama gives the ball to Asahi and Asahi has a chance to spike it. But Nekoma saves the ball again, giving Kageyama and Hinata a chance to make their shot, but they are blocked since after all it's not the team with the best spike that wins, but the one that saves the ball the best, and that is Nekoma. That way, they get the victory. Yet the boys don't want to stop, and since it's just a practice match, they keep playing until they can't move anymore. Later, Nekoma's trainer gathers them to tell them about his friendship with Yukai, Karasuno's former trainer, Small Giant's trainer, and how he retired. However, he also lets them know that Karasuno is the first good opponent in a long time, as even though Nekoma has a better connection than them, Karasuno has some very talented individuals on their own, and if they connect well, they will be unstoppable. For this reason, they promise to see each other again in the national tournament. Shortly after, Tanaka meets with his doppelganger from Nekoma, who asks him for Kyoko's number because he doesn't dare to speak to her. For this reason, they end up becoming friends, and the boy introduces himself as Yamamoto. On the other hand, Hinata meets Inuoka, with whom he becomes a very good friend like everyone else on the team, recognizing each other for their abilities. And even one of the Nekoma team recognizes Noria's dangerous prowess. Outside, the players say their goodbyes. While Tanaka and Taketora are crying dramatically, Daichi and Kuru are shaking hands with fake smiles, both trying to outstrength each other and each promising they will win the next time their teams face each other. Hinata approaches Kemma and reminds him of what he said earlier about how he doesn't really like volleyball. He asks the second year how it felt today, and Kemma replies that it feels the same. Surprised, Hinata announces that next time he'll defeat Kenma and make him say that he feels frustrated about losing and his outlook on volleyball will change. Kenma smiles and agrees, and the teams then part ways. After Nakoma leaves, Kageyama says to Hinata that if today was an official match, they would have ended up losing the entire tournament. Overhearing them, Yukai reminds them of the inter-high and exclaims that when they get back, they're going to go over everything and train. With that said, Karasuno begins to head home. We see Tokonami, the next team of the inter-high, which will play against Karasuno. Finding out about this and remembering his nickname, the boys think that they won't have much to worry about. While they think about it, the protagonist and his friends continue to train with all their might, trying to improve their reception. During the break, one of them is looking at magazines, and one of the star candidates of the Shiratorizawa school, where Kageyama could not enter, appears. Ushijima. Then, Yukai begins to tell them that there are 4 teams that they should worry about. Wakuteni Minami, that has better defense and coordination. Date Kojun, known for having the best blockers and is also responsible for Asahi's and his overwhelming defeat. Oba Josei, and of course, Shiratorizawa with its star Ushijima. At that moment, Takeda arrives with the organization of the inter-high. Assuming they win, Karasuno will face Date again, but what's troublesome is that Oba Josei in their block, especially for Daichi as he begins to remember the time he was with his friend Aikijiri and how they both promised to see each other again as rivals when actually they are worried about playing with each other. Back to the present, Daichi meets Mikimiya, the captain of the feminine volleyball team, who's gloomy as she believes they'll lose their first match since they haven't been practicing enough. He begins to scold her, making her remember her past confidence, encouraging Mikimiya to continue playing. All the members are remembering old losses and rivals. Kageyama remembers Oikawa willing to beat him as a setter. Asahi says he'll practice and be proud of being Karasuno's ace. Sugawara goes to Hinata to tell him about signals he came up with, and later announces he'll spike any toss. Meanwhile, during practice, Yukai gives new attack tactics to the boys, who continue to try their best to follow, surping Takeda on how many options they've got. However, Yukai isn't going to overwhelm them before a match like this. The quick attacks of the protagonist and Shuba have been improving, and so has Kageyama, who constantly asks Asahi for advice on how to improve. At the end of practice, Daichi treats everyone to some pork buns. Shuba tries to invite Kyoko to eat with them, but she turns him down. After going to the store, Yamaguchi is missing. He goes to see Shimada and asks him to teach him the jump float serve, as he doesn't want to be the only first year who has to stay on the bench. Time goes by in the blink of an eye, and the last day before the first match arrives, and for this, Kyoko prepared something special for them, a Karasuno banner, and if that wasn't enough, she encourages them and asks them to do their best, making everyone who knows her cry with joy, ready to win their first game. The next morning, the first to get up is Hinata, meeting Kageyama, who'll be challenges to a race to the club. Once there, they agree that Kageyama has won 31 times, lost 30, and drawn once, but for Hinata he won 32 times as he still remembers his defeat in his first match, and his promise that he will defeat him. Kageyama hasn't forgotten either, especially not now when they will take the first step towards that goal and become stronger, heading to the inter-high. The 3 players from 3rd year meet, and Asahi plans to boost their morale a bit by reminding them that it's their last tournament, but Shuga and Daichi don't want to hear it, as it's too melodramatic, so instead concentrate alone in the inter-high. Shortly after, everyone arrives at the tournament site, where they find that some guys are looking at the order of the matches, making fun of Karasuno since they have been declining for a while. Just in time arrives the team to intimidate them. Not only that, but their black uniform makes them stand out quite a bit, and Asahi helps quite a lot as he is recognized as due to his wild appearance. But Asahi is not the only one being noticed. Kyoko for her beauty, Nishinoya for his libero abilities, and Kageyama for his status as a genius setter. Arriving at the place where the teams meet and at the field, the protagonist is amazed at everything there is. It is at that moment that Date Koju appears. One of them, On, points to Asahi, since he has the habit of marking his targets, recognizing the stars of the team. Although Asahi did his best to appear strong, inside he was scared to Daichi, on the other hand, finds Aikijiri, with whom he begins to talk, and although Aikijiri knows that his team is not very strong, he promises that they will beat them. Elsewhere, Mikimiya remembers Daichi's words, with which she motivates the others, ready to go out and win. Back with the protagonist, he begins to feel overwhelmed as usual, worrying Kageyama that the same thing will happen again. Asahi advises Hinata, telling him to imagine his worst experience in order to calm his nerves. Hinata remembers how upset Kageyama was with him, instantly relaxing from the shock. Shortly after, it's time to go to the court. At the same time, at the entrance, Oba Josei is arriving, drawing a lot of attention as Wakawa is behaving like a Casanova, so one of them goes to look for him. Upon entering, they quickly see Karasuno, but it's not the same team as before. With 2 new players and a coach, Oba Josei's coach wonders how much have they changed. Meanwhile, Asahi is keeping an eye on Date, but Noya snaps him out of his observation, reminding him that in order to face them again, they must first focus on the match they have now. It begins with everyone giving their respective welcomes and preparations. Just before the game, they all meet with Takeda, who encourages them, saying that they can exceed all expectations, because this time, they are much stronger than before. They are the soldiers of old. Once they start playing, the ball goes straight to Kageyama, thinking about who he can pass it to first to boost the team's morale, settling on Tanaka, who quickly scores the first point. The next one is Asahi, who manages to pass the blocking of his rivals, leaving everyone surprised. But the game isn't over yet, and Hinata is anxious for it to be his turn. It's that way that Kageyama launches his star shot, with which everyone can see how the protagonist rises into the air, scoring a point in such an incredible way that everyone turns to see him. Karasuno has returned. The boys' offense doesn't stop, and in fact, they keep getting stronger. This is noticed by Oba Josai, that has noticed how their rivals have managed to improve a lot, especially the protagonist and Kageyama having perfected their quick attacks. Not only that, but now with Noea, Asahi, and Yukai, they've become much stronger. Even so, they continue making mistakes because, well, they cannot learn how to receive overnight. However, this is enough to give them a great advantage. Meanwhile, Aikijiri remembers Daichi and how during a match they lost, but unlike his friend, he didn't feel bad, which made him envious of how much did Daichi care. At halftime, while everyone is worried because they can't get past Karasuno, Aikijiri inadvertently says Daichi's words, wanting to boost their morale. The second half begins and Karasuno continues to dominate the match, and we even see Daichi face Aikijiri and beat him. This puts him off a bit, but he quickly sees that his teammates really want to win, remembering his words of encouragement, willing to go with everything they have even if it's just scoring a single point. The same happens with Mikimiya and her team, where one of the girls apologizes for losing so many balls, but Mikimiya lets her know that even so, the game is not over, and both she and Aikijiri are willing to give their all in their games. However, Aikijiri is surprised to see that Karasuno is taking them seriously, despite being such easy rivals. Finally, the game ends with a clear victory for Karasuno. Hinata is thrilled like never before, having tasted victory for the first time. However, Date Koju has also won their game, so they are next to face them. In spite of this, Oikawa doesn't feel very worried, since he is confident that they will win, no matter who their rivals are. On the other hand, we see how Mikimiya is consoling her team after losing the match, and then retires since she only keeps her composure for being the captain. In private, she collapses from frustration. At the same time, Aikiri is wondering about his defeat, remembering all the times he practiced and was interested in volleyball. In the end, just like Mikimiya, he's just happy he was able to play. That is why he quickly goes to Daichi and the others, where he asks him to please win for them too, to which both he and his team promise that it will be so. This way, they both say goodbye, while Aikijiri remains thankful for having been able to play against them. Shortly after, while stretching, Hinata can hear how people were impressed with his skills in the game. This excites and makes everyone on the team happy, because the more Hinata stands out, the more he will blind the defense of the other teams. Since their match begins in a while, everyone goes their own way to wait. Hinata and Kageyama are left talking about their school's defeat against Date, when Shugo arrives to ask them to please open a path to Asahi so he can help them win. Match time arrives and everyone gathers on the court. All the spectators think that Karasuno is destined to lose since Asahi couldn't get past Date's defense before. It is then that Yukai begins to think of a way to cheer them up, but that's when Noe comes out to promise them that he will protect them as a libero, raising everyone's morale with his charisma, and with Noe's help, they all go to the game, more motivated than ever to win. Finally, the match begins. Everyone knows that in order to win, the main issue is to control the first serve that Date will do well. That is why, once they manage to save the ball, they immediately go with their combination between Kageyama and Hinata, but this is quickly blocked, although it is of little use since he already knows how to control his shots to avoid blocks. However, this worries Yukai, since it is showed that Date is better in defense than it seemed. The number 7, Aon, began to move differently than other rivals they had faced so far, giving the hint that they won't get easily fooled. That's why Kageyama tries to shoot towards Date's libero, but since he's still not good at this shot, it doesn't work out as well. The same happens with Asahi, who tries a play from behind, being blocked again. Despite this, they continue to play and Date manages to connect a point until the referee notices that he touched the net, so Karasuno gets saved for the time being. As the game progresses, although Karasuno keeps scoring, Date's coach isn't worried because they are barely managing to score points for them. Moreover, they plan to start scoring when their rivals think they have the game under control and thus tearing them down emotionally and eventually making Karasuno lose their will to play. And that's why the Iron Wall, as they're called, works so well. However, Kageyama and the protagonist are not nervous at all, as they have a plan that they put together with Yukai. At that time, they were discussing why had they lost in a coma. It was due to Kema, who was able to read the boys' movements. However, if Kanata is fast enough, he can bypass such a defense. It is with this idea that both launch once again the attack, overcoming Date's reading and defense, scoring one more point. This takes the coach by surprise, who begins to notice Hinata. Ki then enters the court, asking Kageyama to pass the ball to him. Oba's coach recognizes the great potential and strength of Karasuno, especially Hinata, although he still has things to polish, and for that reason he's taken out on the court. The team then makes a normal pass, making Date think that what happened before was just luck, so they switch to Own and then continue the game, where Karasuno always has an advantage in points, although not very big. Yet what's important is the rotation, since at the same time that Own returns to the field, so does Hinata. At first, Date thinks that the shot from before was just luck, so they are surprised when they see that the protagonist manages to make a shot so quickly for the second time, leaving them very worried, forcing them to notice him. However, this was just what Yukai wanted, because the more they pay attention to Hinata, the less they will pay attention to the rest of the team. Thus, Hinata begins to confuse them with his speed by alternating the rhythm of his shots, passing Date's defense more and more. Nevertheless, they still believe they have a chance to overcome it, and they see this when Own manages to block a shot from Hinata. Quickly, he launches himself once more to attack, where Own quickly blocks him, but this was only a deception, since the ball was going towards Asahi, who can finally see the other side of the wall that he thought was impassable, managing to get past Owen's defense. With this, Karasuno has all of its weapons aligned, ready to shoot, and the moment of truth, it's closer. Karasuno continues its ferocious attack against Date, managing to win the set. However, Oba's coach knows that they will not see plays like this again. Yukai is also aware, since Owen will no longer fall so easily for Hinata's plays, so to avoid him being marked, they are going to move the protagonist 2 places, so that he can't be marked. Asahi knows that they can't always depend on the main character, so he's willing to do his part as the star of the group, being supported by Hinata. In turn, Ki recognizes before Asahi that while standing out is Hinata's job, he is in charge of getting them out of trouble from behind, being the opposite of the protagonist. An important task, especially when Own has Asahi targeted. The second set begins, and Date is now much more active in its blocks, managing not only to avoid some points, but also to score until they are even with Karasuno. Despite this, Hinata's quick attacks achieve to keep them ahead, but it's becoming more and more predictable for Own. So it all depends on how they overcome the block, since if Date wins this set, it will leave Karasuno in a difficult position. Thus, Asahi lets Ki know that he agrees with what he said before about being the ones to get others out of trouble, convinced that by doing so, they will lead them to victory. Therefore, he tries his shot, ready to break through the iron wall, but it's not as easy as it seems. Hinata continues scoring points with his quick attacks, but Date's constant blocking makes it difficult for them to stay ahead, as they keep up with them very closely. In the end, they are left with a thin advantage, but this does not last long since Date's blocking doesn't depend only on Owen, but on his entire team, getting them to score another point and tie the marker. Thanks to the protagonist, now they only have 1 point left to win the match, so after he made a mistake was sent to the bench, they decide to entrust everything to Asahi, the star of the team. However, Date quickly scores a point, getting Karasuno too close to a deuce. Just before the ball hits the ground, Noye saves it over and over again, giving Asahi opportunity to attack again, getting outmatched each time until Kageyama remembers that Asahi's specialty is when he throws it high. And that way, finally, they manage to overcome the iron wall, winning the game. We then move on to Yukai, who explains that Asahi has finally not only regained his self-confidence, but has also gained Kageyama's confidence as a setter. So from now on, his games will be easier. As the boys prepare to leave, Shuda feels a little bad that he wasn't able to do much during the match, which Daichi is glad to hear, as it shows he still has the will to fight. Just before everyone leaves, they see Oikawa playing with his rivals, promising that the ones who will win and go to the nationals are them. The team watches Oba Josei's game and astonish themselves at Oikawa's abilities, as he turns out to be a great setter. Given that the setter is like an orchestral conductor, the beat of the game changes according to his actions, and with his great skill, he is able to take advantage of each member of his team's potential, achieving them a victory. This leaves Noya and Hinata really excited, eager to play against Oikawa as soon as possible. Kageyama, on the other hand, seems worried. On their way back, the whole team is about to pass out, completely exhausted due to playing 2 matches. But this is a good thing, for each victory will increase the team morale and allow them to reach greater heights. Back in school, a professor arrives to inform them they are on TV, but before getting a glimpse on themselves in the screen, they learn of Shirota Raizawa's crushing victory against another team with a devastating 25-6. Once it's time to shine on TV, they get annoyed that not only they never focus on them, the TV segment only showcases Date and Oba, and Oikawa says in an interview he will destroy Karasuno. Later, they go to a meeting with Yukai, where the latter quickly puts up a strategy to face Oikawa, and since he is a really tough opponent, he reminds the team that even if he may seem hard to beat at first, so was Date Kaoyu's team, and they managed to defeat them anyway. This lifts up everyone's spirits. Regardless, after leaving, Kageyama is more pissed off than usual as he is still thinking about Oikawa's interview, where he said he would beat Kajitama as a setter. Hinata sees this and tries to make him forget about it. On the other hand, we see that Oikawa is not as confident as it would seem, for he has a disc with a recorded match between Karasuno and Date in his bag, ready to watch it that same night. At the same time, Yukai inspects some videos of Elba Jose's game, trying to figure something out. In the meantime, Oikawa watches closely his future opponent's match. The next day, everyone arrives and we see some of Oikawa's fans cheer for him. At the same time, Tadashi's coach admits that he still hasn't mastered his effect shot, but that he might have a stroke of luck during the game. Both teams start warming up as Oikawa teases his teammates a bit, while Karasuno gives it all in their training. Just before the match begins, Oikawa tells Kageyama not to hold back, since he's excited to beat the team's genius setter. Hinata enters the conversation and promises they will win. Yukai notices that even if they didn't confront the other team in peak condition, the fact that they defeated them once in the past is enough to make the team feel confident to do it again now. Once they start playing, Kageyama reach Oikawa's level, but the latter takes them all by surprise with a dull touch attack at the very beginning of the game, mocking them, promising that he will do it again. The team gets annoyed, but Daichi gets to calm them all down and tells them they already knew the match would be easy. Hoba keeps their offensive up, but this time, Oikawa shows off his skills as setter, leaving them in a noticeable disadvantage, being that he is the only one controlling the flow of the game. Still, as soon as Karasuno strikes back, they manage not only to get Oikawa's attention, but also to give Kageyama a chance to recreate their double Talca attack, returning the mockery from earlier and showing things are serious from now on. As soon as Kageyama tries to pull off a serve from behind, as Oikawa did, he quickly fails, making a fool of himself. This gives Aba the chance to regain the flow of the game, making Oikawa send the ball straight to Noya, but curving its trajectory. Still, Noya gets to catch it in the nick of time. Yukai realizes this particular attack was meant to make Noya fail, destroying the team's morale in the process. Kendeki, seeing that he won't stop making mistakes, apologizes to Oikawa, but the latter calms him down as he knows he can reach his full potential, even if he isn't as fast as Kageyama. The game continues and Kendachi surpasses Hinata's ability to jump, taking everyone by surprise. On top of that, Oikawa has been watching Hinata closely this whole time and has now discovered his signals. Turns out that when he yells "here" or "to me," he's actually indicating Kageyama and the kind of move they will do next in their strategy. To make things even worse, Kageyama has realized that Oikawa knows about their signals, and that he also knows that if the rest of the team notices, they will all panic and start playing worse. They come back to the game after a short timeout and start sending the ball to the setter behind, making it harder for Karasuno to defend themselves. But as long as they can tell where the ball is going, they can manage. Quickly, the blockers keep pressuring the net, making Kageyama feel worse by the minute, to the point where Oikawa is able to steal a ball from him, thanks to the pain he has infused in his opponent. Yukai, seeing that they are clearly in trouble, calls everyone out to plan a new strategy. This time, instead of just attacking, they will leave the task of receiving to Tanaka, so they are able to spike, and at the same time he reminds Kageyama not to play this game as something personal, since he is confronting not only Oikawa one-on-one, but the whole Alba Josei team. This way, the match resumes with Tanaka doing everything he can to avoid Oba's shots, failing one time after the other, starting to get At the sight of this, Hinata tries to think of something to say him, but it's not necessary. Tanaka cheers himself up, ready to keep playing, decided to achieve victory. He keeps receiving, supported by his teammates to stop the ball, advancing towards the net, ready to spike back, given that this ability to keep calm in a moment of crisis is one of the qualities of a star. Tanaka finally scores, vanquishing Oba's defenses. This gives Karasuno the drive they need to get back in the game full force, except for Kageyama, who is more and more nervous by Oikawa's presence. For the latter now is what really happens. He knows why he is nicknamed King, being the most talented and hungry for victory. But he knows these things also to be weaknesses, given that it makes Kageyama want to do everything by himself. This is why he acts as if he were playing alone, unlike Oikawa, who merely knows that the role of setter is one that supports the rest of the team. For this reason, he is capable to defeat Kageyama when the time comes to catch the ball. Oikawa is no prodigy, but he is able to get the best out of each team member, which makes him a better setter in the end. This distresses Kageyama greatly, and just as everything seems lost, Shuba appears, indicating he will switch places with the king. As soon as Shuba enters the court to switch places with Kageyama, Hinata notices instantly his partner is not feeling well. So he reminds Kageyama that no one can beat him before he does, so he isn't allowed to lose against anyone else, to which Kageyama replies that they haven't lost yet. Meanwhile, Shuba goes to Ki to set up their next move. Given that Shuba doesn't have a good defense, he switches places with Ki, thus managing to block the next ball. Next, we see our protagonist launching himself in the offensive to avoid a spike from Oba, thanks to Shuba's ability to recognize different attacks. This is because he's been observing carefully each play and has gained a unique understanding of the rival's strategy. From the bench, Kageyama watches closely. Hinata receives a pass, while Oikawa thinks he won't be able to perform his signature quick without Kageyama. He's wrong tough as Hinata scores easily regardless. The team continues to score quickly, but Alba Josei is just too good for them, especially due to Oikawa's amazing serves that take them to reach 24 points, only 1 point left to win the match. As Hinata isn't really good at stopping the ball, Oikawa launches it towards him, where that seemed to score, but the ball falls out of the court, making them lose the set. Alba remains confused, for they weren't expecting Karasuno to keep up with them, all thanks to Shuba, who had been supporting the team all along. Despite being much less talented than Kageyama, he is very observant, making him a good setter. Plus, Shuba admits to Kageyama that he feels kinda nervous about the game, but that he also feels he's got his back covered by him. So both of them must give it all in order to win. It's time for the second set, and the whole team knows that in order to reverse the fate of the game, they first have to address Oikawa's serving spree, so they start with a different rotation. As always, Hinata and Kageyama fight with each other until they are calmed down by their partners, knowing that each time Hinata is in trouble, he changes his plays. That's why they tell him that they have strong spikers, so if they go full force, they should be able to pass through the enemy's blockings. Back to the game, the team knows that they will lose instantly if they doubt with Oikawa's serves, so Daichi puts up a good defense, giving Tanaka and the rest a chance to spike back, achieving to destroy Oba's blockade and scoring a point that breaks Oikawa's serving spree. This elevates the team morale greatly, including Kageyama. The latter remains watching, thinking of everything that's been said, remembering that first desire to enter the court at any price, and just like Shuba, play alongside his friends and win. That's why he asks the coach to let him in again. After some failed plays from Shuba and the rest, Kageyama steps back into the playfield, promising Shuba they'll make it, given that he knows, as does Yukai, that in order to win they need the definitive decoy, meaning Hinata, and for that matter, they also need Kageyama. Kageyama is back in the game. Kageyama picks up momentum and quickly serves a ball so fast that gets both teams to tie, followed by a high five with Tanaka to celebrate. On top of that, his plays with Hinata continue, scoring more points for the team, but this time without signaling each other, which confuses Oba even more. But the strangest thing is that for the first time ever, Kageyama isn't playing on his own, he is supporting the rest of his team. Recess comes fast, and at this point, Oikawa and the rest realize that even if Kageyama is being more friendly with the rest of his team, he still isn't 100% able to coordinate with Ki, so from now on, they will target him as the weak point. Meanwhile, Kageyama does whatever he can to talk to Ki, but nothing good comes out of it. This is when the latter tells him that he has his own way of doing things, and that he doesn't need new moves to succeed. This isn't the case though, since Ki doesn't seem to be able to adapt to Kageyama's passes. To sort this out, Kageyama decides he is the one that has to adapt to support his teammates' playstyle. This makes Shuba happy, as he realizes they are slowly getting along. Kai quickly achieves a feint, throwing the rival team off guard. Still, they manage to recover slowly and start winding back points and reach Karasuno. They reach a breaking point where our protagonist team is only 1 point short of winning the set, when Oikawa's turn to serve arrives. We now see a flashback of Oikawa's pass, a match against a blocker named Wakatoshi Oshijima, where despite being a decent setter, his team lost in an almost shameful fashion, leaving him really frustrated, waiting for a chance to redeem himself. It was then that he met Kageyama, a star setter on the rise, who started slowly eclipsing him, to the point where he would be regularly sent to the bench. This created resentment towards Kageyama. This bitterness reached a point where he even compared Kageyama to Oshijima, and tried to hit him. Luckily, his friend Aiwa stoked him in time and reminded him that he was not alone in the playfield, that all of his friends were there to support him, and that's why they would win next time. This lifted Oikawa's spirits and made him feel better, turning him in one of the best players of that time and making him promise that he would beat Kageyama next time they met. Back in the present, it's Oikawa and his team's time to serve. Luckily, Noya manages to defend just in time, sending the ball back to Oba's side. Just before Ki jumps, Kageyama grabs his shirt to signal him to sink their move, blocking successfully and winning the set. Oikawa realizes now that Kageyama trusts not only his own abilities, but also the ones of his teammates. This makes him angry, but also excited to move on to the next set as soon as possible. Hinata also knows that if they lose this set, every hope their rivals might have set on them would be for nothing, so they must win at any cost. They now face Oikawa and his masterful plays, giving their best both in offense and defense. Still, Alba has figured out Itana has changed the signals, so they try to be more careful in order to avoid his fast spikes, delivering a well-fought defense from Oba Josai. Still, Karasuno won't give up and start to play from the sides as commanded by Yukai. Takeda has full confidence in the fact that everyone is giving their best, especially Hinata, who is eager to score with his signature move. Oba's coach suggests they get rid of it, which they will do in the second half of the set, where Hinata gets ready once more to attack from the side, ready to spike, but just before he is able to, he is blocked by Oba's defense. This is possible due to them discovering that despite being fast, Hinata's body follows the ball, making his moves predictable, so they don't even need to block him from the net, they can receive his shots in the back of the court. This dismantles Karasuno's strategy and allows Oba to take point on the score, getting closer to 20. The bloodshed continues, and seeing they are not doing well, Yukai uses his last timeout to try planning something but can't come up with anything useful, letting the team play, hoping they will find a way. Meanwhile, it's Hinata's turn to go to the back of the lineup, which makes Oikawa happy. In the middle of the game, Tadashi seems to ask to change places with Hinata. Nobody understands why, but surely Yukai has a plan that will change the team's attitude. Although they all seem calm in order not to upset Tadashi, Thie are as nervous as him, who is about to serve from behind, tense and scared. Regardless, Tadashi tries to calm down and serves his floating shot, a move he's been practicing for a long time. Painfully, he fails, scoring a point for Oba. This discourages Tadashi, but when told not to worry, that he'll get another chance, he is suddenly calm. Plus, without realizing it, he has just motivated the whole team to keep going. Karasuno gets back at it, but they are all now beginning to feel tired, which makes it difficult for them to score. Not only that, they also have to be really careful with Oba Josai's constant attacks. At the same time, Kageyama feels that no matter how hard he tries, he can't get close to Oikawa. The match continues and the score comes close to an end. As Oikawa is about to reach the ball, Kageyama manages to snatch it out of his hand and along Hinata, managed to reach Oikawa's level, scoring the last point they needed. The game gets pushed into a deuce, which means the first team to score 2 points wins, so it's all or nothing. That's why, after the recess, Hinata tries once more to give it all with his fast move, but his Constoti blocked out. Plus, all of his efforts start taking a toll, making him feel tired and not being able to jump as high. Still, they get a point due to a minor oversight on Oba's behalf. Oba manages to recover from this though, matching up the score, plus it's Oikawa's turn to serve now, and he's completely decided to win, throwing a powerful ball straight to Noya, who dodges successfully, sending the ball out of the court, showing that even Oikawa is nervous, although not the only one given that Karasuno scores again. The game continues and none of the teams are ready to give up, reaching the 30 points. At that, Edwa approaches Oikawa and tells him to focus and not to think about Shijima, but in the rivals right in front of him. With this in mind, Oikawa finally calms down, sending the same attack he's been practicing since he was a child, giving Kunimi, one of Kajitama's former teammates, the chance to score. Kunimi was really lazy when it came down to play in the past and never seemed to take the game seriously, but this is really a strategy to preserve energy and use it as a last resource. This pisses off Kageyama given that he had never seen Kunimi smile that way during a game, until the rest of the team remind him he is not alone. Some even believe he is actually scared of the great king Oikawa. But this time, Kageyama is no longer a lonely king. Kageyama and the rest give their all to control the ball, avoiding Oba from scoring further points. It is now Oikawa's turn to serve again, and he knows he will lose to his former friend's rapid evolution, so he launches a strong ball, giving our boys a chance at their freak quick. But on doing so, Hinata is blocked, scoring the winning point on Oba's behalf. This leaves everyone discouraged, especially Hinata and Kageyama. Afterwards, we see Oikawa knew this was his last possible play, given that Kageyama was starting to trust the rest of his team, leaving no other option. When saluting the audience, the team feels frustrated, but in the stands, the people supporting them keep cheering because of the great match and effort. Meanwhile, Oikawa acknowledges Kageyama's evolution and believes that his trust in his teammates will soon become a problem. As they step out, Kageyama refreshes himself with some water, and Hinata arrives to hear him apologize for passing the ball to him, which makes Hinata angry, telling him to take back his words. At that moment, Takeda arrives to lift them up, saying that despite having lost, the important thing is that they get back up and show that they have the will to keep going. Yukai then takes the whole team to a restaurant where he pays for the food for them to recover after so much effort, filling their bellies while they cry in frustration. Yukai wishes them nothing but good luck so they can become stronger. Some time passes and the boys get back to their normal life at school, still regretting having lost, some more effective than others. Meanwhile, we see Oikawa have his so long-awaited revenge against Ushijima. Hinata and the team are still frustrated and can't get over their past defeat, but at the same time, Tanaka and the rest start discussing about the spring tournament. Daichi, on his side, gets together with his friends from third year, stating he thinks it's better for them to step down and make way for the new players, who have a very promising future. Shuba and Asahi refuse as they intend to keep playing and encourage Daichi to stay as well, which he finally agrees to do. Later, we see Hinata practicing while Kageyama observes him, just as frustrated. We also see Tadashi still upset, believing he is the cause of his team losing. Regardless, he remembers the time he spoke to his old master, who told him about his own time at Karasuno and how much he enjoyed the sensation of scoring a well-executed point, and with this motivation, put up with the old Yukai's training. Thanks to this, Tadashi feels a lot better and goes hang out with Ki. In the meantime, Takeda speaks to one of the professors about the future of the third years, asking him to talk to them about focusing on their studies and their future, since he's worried about them. Next, we see Yukai speaking to one of his friends about the match between Oba Josai and Shirota Ozawa, where once more, the latter was annihilated by Oshijima's brute force and his team, After all, the last one to drop the ball is the loser. We now see Hinata joining Kageyama at the gym, working on their receptions. At the same time, Takeda talks to the third years about their future and tells them to decide carefully, given that the path they choose will influence whatever happens to them in the next 5 to 10 years. We go back to Hinata, who is still frustrated just thinking about how the winners of the tournament get to play in the nationals. He starts ranting alongside Kageyama as they run and throw passes at each other until they are exhausted. In the end, Kageyama promises he won't apologize anymore and that they will win next time. Suddenly, Hiyoko appears and tells them that she and the players from third year will remain in the team. Yukai then arrives to inform about Oba's defeat by the hand of Shirota Furuzawa, rendering them speechless. They still have a long way to go and new heights to reach. Daichi then stands up to cheer everyone up, saying that from now on, they will be working towards the spring tournament, where they once played long ago and so did the little giant. This will also be the last time the third years will get their chance to play in the team, so they will give it all in order to win. With this new goal, they start practicing and both Kageyama and Hinata promise to win together, given that Hinata now knows the view from the other side of the playfield and doesn't want to stop seeing it. Sometime later, we see Hinata remembering his terrible defeat against Oba, but still wanting to see what's beyond the wall, and very well knows he can't do it alone, he can only do it with his friends by his side. We see all of Karasuno facing each other in a practice match. White against red. Everybody is giving their best, but Kageyama and Hinata are the best thanks to their unique combination, yet not even them can face Ki's feints. Besides, in the red team there's Tadashi, who's still improving his serve. Noya is also supporting his team with his fast and precise receptions. While looking at them, Yukai understands they're lacking experience as they haven't had enough practice matches. At the same conclusion arrives Takedo, and he talks to different schools, Nekoma among them, and all of them have practice matches very often. Just to hear it, the guys get super excited to get a new chance to face Nekoma, being Hinata the one hyping the most because this time he will break that unbreakable wall. After that announcement, Takeda leaves. At school, Kyoko asks Hinata about somebody who isn't in any club. At the same time, the guys investigate in magazines, finding out that Oikawa has a photo of him, and that Ushijima is in the international tournament, despite being younger than 9 years old. This establishes the goal for everybody, and they go running, motivated by Daichi. Meanwhile, Takeda is reviewing the boys' scores, worried that they won't be able to pass, and although he tries to convince himself that they can make it, the truth is that he has no hope. Back with the team, they are doing an uphill race on the mountain, where Kageyama and Hinata are the ones in the lead, wanting to outdo each other like usual. The bad thing is that they inadvertently end up running to the wrong place, realizing that they were close to Shirota Furuzawa, and it's at that moment they meet Ushijima, who tells them if they want to go investigate or keep up with him. It doesn't bother him because they won't get weaker for that. This is how they accompany him on his trot, where they can see that he runs very fast. Arriving at his school, Hinata is amazed by all the things they have, not just volleyball, but also horses, racetracks, and huge grounds, but in the end, when they go to the field, they find that they are playing with college students. Ushijima arrives, and he begins to tell them that Oikawa is a good player, but the rest of Oba Josai is not good, and does not contribute to the team. For that reason, Hinata rages, staring at him. At that moment, a ball comes out towards them, and just before Ushijima reaches it, Hinata snatches it out of his hands, showing him that it's not as bad as it seems, and the same goes for Kageyama, who along with his friend, promised to get past Oikawa and catch up with him at the Nationals. This leaves Ushijima very excited, who has recognized them as truly dangerous players. Back at the gym, Takeda informs them about the matches they will be having, but also reminds them that the final exams are coming up, and if they don't pass, they will have extra classes, and they won't be able to attend the practices. Upon hearing this, Tanaka and Noya quickly try to flee, not wanting to study, but the truth is that they have no alternative. Everyone, including Kageyama and Hinata, must study and work hard to go to Tokyo, since the vice principal will prioritize they taking extra classes if they fail. The bad thing is that Hinata has never gotten more than 6 in his exams, which gives everyone a bad feeling. Despite this, Daichi motivates them as always because he wants everyone to go to Tokyo. Later, while the boys are about to leave, the third years threaten them so that they can fall asleep in class and try to maintain as much focus as possible. Hinata and Kageyama go with Ki and Tadashi, asking them for help to study, to which they accept after pestering them a bit. The next day, Hinata meets Kyoko, who lets him know that she must work hard as everyone expects a lot from Karasuno's best bait. It's like this that he and Kageyama go with the boys to study, but they're horribly so it's hard for them, especially Kageyama, who can't memorize English words. It isn't until Daichi reminds him of the game's cues that he makes him see if he can memorize them, forcing him to do so. Meanwhile, Hinata watches the others struggle and is determined not to lose to them in the studio. Shortly after, we go to see Noya and Tanaka reunited in his house, where Enoshita is helping them study, while we meet his sister, Seiko, who bothers them a bit while they study. Returning to school, the teachers have noticed the change in the boys, making Takeda very happy. In turn, Kyoko finds a possible replacement for the manager position for when she graduates. The girl seeing the team introduces herself as Yachi, a rookie manager who's very nervous just to see them, but she was only there to say hello, since she is not yet the official manager. When leaving, Yachi is very nervous about spending so much time with Kyoko, thinking that she could get in trouble with her fans if they find out, and seeing Yukai only scares her more. Sometime later, Hinata and Kageyama go to Ki to ask for help in English, but he and Tadashi are busy, so the latter recommends Yachi since she has good grades. This is how they go with her ask for her help, introducing themselves and getting down to business, understanding even better than with Ki. There she notices how hard Hinata works to be able to go to Tokyo, something obvious, since he will be able to play against the best if he manages to go. In the middle of their conversation, he tells Yachi about all of his opponents including Mikoma, Elba Josei, and Kaju Date, leaving her confused because she doesn't know anything about them. But he also tells her that he loves playing against people stronger than him. It is then that she calls him a small giant, which deeply moves Hinata because he has been compared to his hero. After the study, Hinata thanks Yachi for helping them so much, also showing that they have become good friends. Arriving at the gym, Yachi watches the boys match up close, surprised at the intensity with which they play, but just then, a ball flies towards her, and just before reaching it, Hinata comes out to protect her. Shortly after, Takeda arrives with them, telling them that the next day they will have a game with the Aljunishi school, and Yukai reminds them of their defeat against Elba Josei, asking them to hold on to that feeling of not wanting to lose again. Failing grades, OVA, it all starts in Hinata's classroom, where the tension is palpable as students anxiously await their test scores. Takeda and Yukai discuss what to do about the money, since they are having some problems because other students are going to use the bus, and while they are talking, the boys go to see Yachi, trying to make her feel better about being a manager, because they realize how nervous she is about it. Later at home, she talks to her mother about the subject, and she tells her that as everybody will be doing their best, so should she. Although that's somewhat insensitive, her mother said it purposely, so she won't give up so easily in the future. The day after arrives, and Kyoko notices she's worried of not liking being a manager or simply not being good at it. So she makes her understand that it's not bad to feel that way, and that she just has to make sure she does her best. And with this in mind, they go to the field, where they begin to get everything ready for the game. Meanwhile, she meets Hinata and asks him why does he work so hard if it's just a practice match, to which both him and Kageyama agree that they don't need a reason to work hard or to not want to lose. For them, it's something as natural as being hungry. Aljunishi arrives and they quickly greet each other, with Yachi impressed to see the players. Although Kyoko assures her that when they play they look great, and this is confirmed the moment they go to court. The match kicks off and Yachi watches them intently, impressed to see how intense they are and how high their level of skills is, quickly earning points. The game progresses and Aljunishi begins to focus more on the important players, but they lose sight of Hinata, who flies out as always, giving his best shot. Despite this, he is somewhat dissatisfied and convinced that he can go much higher. For this reason, he doesn't give Aljunishi a break until they finally win the set. After the game, him and Yachi talk excitedly after seeing their plays. At night, we see how Yachi stays thinking about what her mother told her, beginning to convince herself that she wants to be a manager, starting to work on it. Later, Kageyama and Hinata go with her to study, thanking her for helping them, but Hinata accidentally blurts out in front of her mother that they are going to Tokyo. As the boys leave, Hinata realizes that she forgot his book at Yachi's house, so he goes to look for it. Yachi asks Hinata if she can ask a few questions, and he discovers her insecurity about wanting to be a manager, and Yachi admits she feels something is holding her back. Hinata realizes it must be something related to her mother, so he grabs her hand to run and catch the train her mother was supposed to take. At the station, Yachi yells at the top of her lungs that she wants and will be Karasuno's manager, before leaving with Hinata, leaving her mother in tears, proud of how strong her daughter has become. At night, he finds her working on something and decides to help her give it a few touches. It is in the afternoon of the next day that we find out that Yachi wanted to make a poster, taking Hinata in full flight as his model, and it has turned out great, to the point where there have been people who have decided to donate to them for their trip to Tokyo. After this, everyone welcomes Yachi, and now only the exam results remain. Fortunately, Noya and Tanaka managed to pass, unlike Kageyama and Hinata, because they ended up failing the English test, also frustrating Yachi, since they had done everything right before. So everybody goes to Tokyo, except for Hinata and Kageyama, meeting with Mikoma, also showing off the new manager. Meanwhile, the boys are doing the only makeup examen they have, as Tanaka assured them that once they were done, he would call a savior to take them. This way, they strive to finish the exam quickly, and then go out and find Seiko, who quickly takes them to the others, although it seems more like a Fast and Furious movie. Returning with Karasuno, they meet the new member of Mikoma, Lev. At the same time, Hinata is still nervous about getting to the court on time, and talks to Seiko about why he started playing volleyball. He tells her about the time he saw the small giant. Seiko tells him she got to know him while she was a student, but back then, More than watching his matches, she saw him and learned that he was extremely intense and wild, because absolutely everything in him screamed that he was the star full of pride and will to win, reminding him of Ushijima. Meanwhile, on the court, the boys watch and try to get through their match against one of the teams, having some problems as their condition is not as good as theirs. We start to meet the other team, including Ubogawe, which specializes in serving Shinzen, which has a great combination of players, Fukurodani that has a rising star, Bokudo, and of course Nakoma, which is very flexible and skillfully connects their plays. Yukai knows that in order to face them, the physical condition of the boys must be on par with that of the others. As the other teams watch, they realize that they are pretty mediocre. But at that moment, the two Karasuno stars arrive ready to play. The practice match begins with the Wonder Duo, where they quickly take the lead thanks to their combination, Kageyama's control, and Hinata's speed, managing to win against Shinzen, being unable to do more than touch Hinata's attack. Upon finishing, he realizes that his special attack gets blocked more strongly every time, and it won't always work. It is then that he sees Lev perform his smash as if it was a whiplash. Later, Kema tells him about him, how he trained him to and how, although it may not seem like it, he thinks highly of him, as his height and innate abilities are no small thing, and even Kema recognizes them. When leaving the room, Hinata is thoughtful about Lev, meeting him and greeting him, where they both start chatting about who has the highest jump, and of course, the protagonist tries to prove that it's him. But even with this, Lev is very confident because he is the star of the team, since having certain position doesn't make you a star, but scoring the most points does. This leaves Hinata thinking about whether this is true. The next day, Karasuno continues practicing, and meanwhile, Nekomata begins to analyze what they will do, knowing that they have come to this place to improve. Meanwhile, Hinata continues to watch Lev, still thinking about being the star of the team. Back with Nekomata, he knows that Karasuno has become more stable than before, but he doesn't know if what they are looking for is to become stronger or to evolve. It's time to play against Nekoma once again, knowing Karasuno hasn't won once against them. But things are different now. They will use their aces in their best condition. So Yukai orders them to go all out. At the start, as soon as Hinata and Kageyama try to make their move, Lev easily blocks it, and not once, but twice, using Nekoma's predictions to guide him, feeling so confident that he even challenges Hinata to beat him. This leaves Hinata somewhat stunned, but it's not like it was something that affects him. In fact, it's the other way around, since he only gets much more excited when he has strong rivals, thinking that he must improve if he wants to win. However, this inadvertently leaves him completely entranced, to the point where he tries to snatch the ball from Masashi mid-air. Nekomata realizes this, understanding that little by little, Hinata is evolving, and although he knows that this can be a blessing or a curse, the only one who manages to be a star is the one who greedily claims that position for himself. Hinata demonstrates it by telling Kageyama that from now on he will no longer close his eyes when attacking, showing that he will no longer blindly accept the balls that are only for him, and like Asahi, he will fight to catch it in the air to improve. But Kageyama rejects this, thinking it won't work. However, Asahi, for his part, thinks that Hinata continues to grow without stopping, to the point where he could swallow him and devour him as a star. When the team gathers around for a briefing, Takeda bluntly claims them to be the weakest of the present teams. This does not sit well with the players at first, but then Takeda questions if they see the other teams just as rivals or sources for them to learn from. This seems to change the team's mind when Takeda points out that they have room to grow. Once off the court, Hinata talks with Shuba and Kageyama about their strategy, wanting to try a normal attack instead of a quick one. Although Hinata might be capable of this, Kageyama knows that if the slightest mistake is done, everything fails, so he is not willing to help. Yukai also knows that they can't upgrade their quick attack in such a short time, but Hinata tells them that just like Tanaka, he can see their movement in slow motion. It is for this reason that Hinata feels that he can really improve. Looking into his eyes, Yukai realizes the great determination he has to achieve his goal. So to solve this, he decides to remove him from the game since he needs to cool his head down a bit, and if he doesn't, he's going to make another mistake like with Asahi. As they leave the field, Takeda informs them that they will have some time without rest, so it's better that they take the opportunity to relax. However, at night, Hinata asks Kageyama and Yachi for help so he can practice his new shots, but these don't work out as Hinata misses every attempt, and of course, Kageyama thinks it's a lost cause. This annoys Hinata a lot, who starts fighting with Kageyama, and Kageyama continues trying to make him understand that it's useless for him to improve, but Hinata is convinced that he can fight on his own. Tanaka arrives to separate them, and once outside, Yachi accompanies Hinata, who's obviously too affected by the fight, feeling sad both for not being able to improve and for feeling that he just had a fight with his first friend on the court. However, the third years know that they shouldn't worry, because just like when they arrived, they just have to wait until they reconcile. On the other hand, Yukai is thinking about what Hinata told him about that ability to see the pass of a prodigy setter, because if that is true, he and Kageyama would be better than the small giant. It is at that moment that Hinata arrives to ask Yukai for help. It is then that he takes him in a car to an old house, where they meet Yukai's grandfather, Karasuno's former coach. There, Hinata asks him directly about how he can improve his solo attack, and his determination as well as his height remind him of the small giant. It is then that the grandfather realizes that Hinata is the one who manages the attack. No matter what his setter is, he's the one who directs it. On the other hand, Kageyama has gone to a place full of children, finding Oikawa, who is accompanying his nephew. Here, he tries to ask him to please listen to him, but Oikawa plays hard to get, not wanting to help him, so Kageyama insists until he finally decides to listen. Here, he explains his situation with Hinata and how he wants to improve his attack by not closing his eyes. Oikawa quickly realizes that Kageyama is the problem by going back to acting like a dictator, also letting him know that it is not him who is leading the attack, but Hinata. Returning to Hinata, he explains his attack to Yukai's grandfather, and Yukai understands it instantly, both how it works and the key to make it work, and his ability to improve it. However, it's easier to demonstrate, so he sends him to play with him and his boys. In the game, Yukai sets the pace for the children, and as the pace increases, Hinata finds it increasingly difficult to block. This is due to the rhythm, something that greatly influences a game, but more so of an attack of this type, since it is the spiker who directs. Depending on when it starts to move, the attack changes radically, which is why the one who directs it is not the setter, but the spiker, something that until now, Hinata did unconsciously. At this, Yukai comes up with an idea, so he quickly leaves to find Kageyama so they can train. The latter was thinking about Oikawa's words, unable to understand what he meant. At that moment, Yukai arrives to suggest that he use a shot that stops. Back with Hinata, Yukai tells him that in order to improve, he has to learn to control the ball better. Even for a fraction of a second, he should take advantage to control it as if it was his body, putting him in train with the children. In turn, Yukai explains the theory of rhythm to Kageyama, also letting him know that one way to make the most of Hinata's power is to launch a shorter shot, where the highest point is where Hinata hits, and that with this they achieve greater strength in the smash. Sometime later, the boys meet again to train, and although Hinata and Kageyama know that they can improve, they still don't talk to each other. Not only that, but some of the team have also started practicing on their own, like Asagi, who's trying to serve from behind. To this is added Noya, who wants to practice his passes like Oba's. Kageyama tries to make shorter passes as a setter, while Tadashi practices his spin serves. This way, everyone tries their best to improve, and while this is happening, Hinata manages to go at his own pace and manages to finally hit the ball in the air regardless of the setter, being congratulated by Yukai, with whom he talks a bit about Nakoma and his good relationship with the coach. The day to go to Tokyo arrives, where they'll be able to train again with the other teams, and everyone is more excited than ever, especially Hinata. The next morning, the team gets ready to leave. Everyone is really excited, except for Ki. Upon their arrival, Hinata meets with Kenma, and they hang out and catch up, as does Lev, who greets Hinata in a friendly manner. Shortly after, they arrive at the gym and the matches start right away. Hinata tries to catch Kageyama's pass, but his move is different than always. This surprises not only Hinata, but also the rest of the team, as well as Kageyama himself, who realizes his friend has also changed, and that neither of them are the same. It's not only them though, as Asahi and Noya also try their new serve and defense moves, failing in the process. Nekomata, unlike the rest, realizes they are not having a bad luck spree, but quickly evolving at least most of them, except for Ki. As punishment for failing so often, the team is sent to race on a nearby hill, where Kageyama and Hinata compete as usual. They then observe the rest of the teams and their training, acquiring some new information from Yukai about Yubogawa's attack. At night, everyone is tired, but still training on their own, except for Ki, who believes this to be a waste of time, so he goes to sleep. Meanwhile, Kageyama and Hinata meet with Yachi at practice and learn to better coordinate their moves. Meanwhile, Ki meets with a group from a rival team who ask him for help to block. He agrees unwillingly, and soon discovers he is actually not that good as a middle blocker, given that, even being able to read and detect attacks, his arms are too fragile. He justifies himself thinking that Hinata is more talented than he is, and that he can't do anything about that. It is here that the boys realize that Ki not only feels inferior to Hinata, he believes he is incapable of surpassing him, and that's why he doesn't even try. The next day, everyone keeps up their routine, giving it all, everyone but, you guessed it, Ki, who just watches from afar. While at that, Kuro tells the rest of the guys about last night, and Tanaka remembers Ki saying something about a sister of his, about how when the little giant was at Karasuno, there was also someone by the name Tsukishima in the team, indicating he might have a brother. We then see Ki asking Asahi if he feels bad about not being as talented as Hinata, to what Asahi responds that sometimes he fears he will be surpassed, but he takes that to try to improve on himself. Next, we see the team at a match struggling to get better, yet the other teams continue to defeat them. At a given moment, Hinata has the chance to attack, but decides not to, as he senses Asahi's drive to score, letting the latter spike, proving he's a star. After this, the race on the hill continues and Ki stays behind out of exhaustion. Then it's time for free practice. Here, Bakuto asks him to practice together again, but Ki refuses, which pisses Hinata as he thinks this of a great opportunity to learn. Tadashi then asks Hinata to make Ki feel better, as he has done with everyone else in the past, but Hinata doesn't know how to achieve this, since he doesn't even know if Ki actually enjoys volleyball. So he asks Tadashi what would he say to his friend. This leaves Tadashi thinking, remembering the past, how he was always for his face or for crying. It was around that time that he had met Ki, who helped him by mistake, making him look really cool. Back in the present, Tadashi finally decides to go speak to his friend and help him the same way Ki did all those years ago. We now see Ki bailing out of free practices once again, while he remembers his past with his brother who he idolized, especially when he watched him play volleyball. He also remembers how said brother joined the Karasuno High team, where the old Yukai's trainings were really demanding and everyone in the team gave it all to get as far as possible. In his spare time, Ki would even help his brother practice, motivating him to enter the team as well someday. Sometime after at the club, Ki and Tadashi meet once more. In that moment, upon seeing Ki, Tadashi asks him help to join the volleyball club, since it seems really cool and even better given the fact that Ki's brother is on the official team. This way, they become great friends and start playing together. Eventually, they agree to go see one of Ki's brother's games, but another classmate, who also has a brother on the team, says that there is no one by that name in the roster, which Ki doesn't believe. They attend the match afterwards and Ki finds out his brother is, in fact, not in the team, thinking of his brother as a liar. Ever since then, he has felt bad about volleyball. Back in the present day, Tadashi goes to Ki and tells him that he's always seen him as someone cool, but now seems pathetic for not trying, so if he doesn't want Hinata to eclipse him, he has to try harder. Ki keeps resisting as he believes that no matter how bad he wants it, they will never reach the #1 spot. Tadashi disagrees and gets mad at Ki because he knows the only thing he really needs to succeed is his own pride. Tadashi then leaves Ki, who is astonished that his friend scolded him. In the meantime, Daichi and Shuba speak about Ki, aware that there is an issue there, but Daichi thinks they shouldn't interfere since Ki hasn't still unlocked his full potential and must do so on his own. They agreed to only interfere in case Ki decides to leave the team. Ki then arrives alongside Kuro and Fukurodani's ace Bakuto, who he asks why he plays, since it is something they can't put on their resume and isn't useful outside of the club. This makes Bakuto ask back at Ki if he really enjoys playing. Bakuto then explains what it is that he enjoys about playing, the sensation he feels after practicing a play for a long time and achieving to use it successfully in a real match. That excitement is all that matters to him, nothing else, not the future nor the past, only the game. That's why he believes that when Ki manages to give it all, he will be truly captivated by volleyball. Meanwhile, Tadashi reunites with Hinata and the rest and asks him if he thinks of Ki as a rival. Hinata states that he does, given that they share the same role, and he envies some qualities that Ki has and he himself doesn't, but that is no excuse to give up. In that moment, he actually also makes a point saying that their rivalry is like day and night, given their styles are very different. The next day, during the matches, we see Karasuno struggling to block until Ki suggests something, and when the play clicks, everyone is impressed, as they notice Ki has not only evolved, but is also differentiating his style from the rest like day and night. Time goes on, and Yachi starts seeing how everyone is improving rapidly, as the gap in the scores between Karasuno and the other team is getting smaller by the day, making them believe that they can improve even more. The downside is that Hinata and Kageyama's attack still isn't improving, and as if that was not enough, they are still not speaking to each other. At a practice match, Kageyama and Hinata try their move once more, yet Hinata keeps failing, until he finally realizes Kageyama is restraining himself. The rest of the team notices this as well, given that although he knows he must do a short throw, Kageyama unconsciously tries to make Hinata hit the ball with simple passes, taking him for granted. As he is called out about this by Hinata, Kageyama decides to go practice on his own, which makes Hinata even angrier. He then decides to go to practice on his own as well. In order to do this, Hinata goes to Ki and the others, arriving alongside Lev to practice. This makes the perfect opportunity for a 3-on-3 match, as they now have the right amount of players. However, they have unbalanced teams, the best blockers on one side and the best spikers on the other. Regardless, the match begins with Hinata and Ki trying to do everything in their power to improve. But while at that, some girls arrive and tell them that the cafeteria is about to close, so they decide to stop practicing for the day, not before Kuro promises that they will resume their match. The next day, Karasuno's luck remains the same, with the team losing all of its matches, but at the same time, the other teams begin to realize that Karasuno keeps improving little by little. Later that night, the boys keep practicing, including Kageyama, who can't hit the bottles no matter what he does. Upon seeing him, Yukai suggests him not treat the bottles as targets, but to think of them as spikers instead. Hinata, on the other hand, keeps training with Kuro and the rest, where the latter explains that he gives them advice in order to have his revenge one more time, since it is something he really looks forward to, so he needs them to keep winning. The game continues, and while at that, Bakudo makes a rebound, meaning that when he sees that he is being blocked, he makes the ball bounce at the hands of the rival blockers, creating an opportunity to counterattack. This leaves Hinata very excited, since he realizes he can use this new move as a weapon. Rapidly, the 3 blockers from the rival team come out to cover Hinata, but he doesn't give up and quickly puts his new trick into practice, although it deviates quite a lot. Upon seeing this, Bakudo gets really excited, determined to teach Hinata this new secret weapon. Meanwhile, Kageyama putes Yukai's new method to use and manages to hit one of the bottles. The sun rises to welcome the last day of training as Hinata wakes up on and gets ready to practice his new attack. Still, the Nakoma trainers have been brewing something in secret, and Daichi overhears what it is. On the other hand, Karasuno keeps up with his rounds of punishments after yet another loss, although Hinata has become incredibly good at sliding on the floor. To boost the team morale, Daichi reveals that at the end of the day, the coaches are going to invite them to a barbecue. Next, we see Hinata, who tells Yachi he wants to try out his new shot with Kageyama, and since he doesn't want to wait, he goes to ask him directly, but Kageyama refuses. In the middle of their conversation, Yachi realizes that Kageyama really respects Hinata, since he doesn't want to try that shot because although Hinata is confident in his own abilities, Kageyama hesitated for a moment when it came to trying out their new move. This makes Hinata look like the real king instead of Kageyama. In the end, Yukai arrives to remind them of everything they've been learning during their training and motivates them to use these newly acquired knowledge in their next match. Shortly after, we see the coaches having a drink together, where both Yukai and Takeda agree with the fact that each of the boys has been improving on his own, and they compare them to cogs in a machine. For the time being, they are not able to coordinate well, but they know that when they do, the team will no longer be the same. Even Nekomata himself, who is there with them, acknowledges this. It's now time for the last game, where Karasuno will go against Fukurodani. At first, they manage to defend and score quite close to them, but it's difficult for Karasuno because the rival team has a good setter. Also, Bakudo is quite the good spiker. And on top of all this, his natural charisma makes it hard for Karasuno to see him as an enemy, and instead of being intimidating, he boosts the morale of all players. In the rotation, Hinata's turn to go to the front arrives, and he quickly hops into the air while being blocked, but to everyone's surprise, he does the feint that Bakudo taught him earlier, feeling like never before seeing the rest of the players below him for the very first time. At the same time, Kageyama remains really calm, as in the calm before the storm. We see this as he thinks about how well he is feeling, calmer than ever, being able to feel absolutely everything around him. Hinata rushes forward as well, ready to deliver a killer spike. Kageyama doesn't want to, he feels insecure about passing the ball to him, but a signal from Hinata is all he needs to throw the ball at him, and by doing so, they finally get the spike they have been practicing for so long, surprising everyone in the process. Bakudo wants to mimic their move, but his team's setter knows this to be impossible, given that this combination is way too unique and refined for them to recreate. Hinata and Kageyama do the same attack once more, showing that they have finally mastered it, which makes them both very happy, just as Yachi, who's glad to see the two friends are back after such hard training. Next, Kenemet excitedly thinks about how Hinata always comes up with something new. Still, he couldn't possibly be his partner because he would end up getting frustrated if he saw him constantly improve and surpass him. Kuro then realizes that even if he doesn't want to, Kenemet feels more motivated to play volleyball just by watching our protagonist. At the same time, Yukai talks to Takeda, explaining the difference between this move and the previous one. With less momentum, Hinata has more options in the air. However, as the match continues, Kageyama quickly loses his concentration, which gives Noya and Asahi a chance to show that they too have improved during their training. They are not the only ones though. Tanaka and the rest perform a synchronized attack, where the latter manages to spike, getting excited to the point of crying. Meanwhile, Takeda is amazed to see that little by little, more and more cogs of the machine are coming together, and the team is becoming stronger. Seeing the same thing, Shuba decides that he wants to try something out. The team continues to face Fukurodani, managing to even the score by successfully performing all the plays they couldn't get correctly on the first day. Upon meeting during a timeout, Yukai and Takeda acknowledge their progress, encouraging the team to keep polishing their coordination in this game. We then see how Bakudo begins to miss his shots, which makes him very upset. His setter knows that he has but 3 options when Bakudo is like this. He can either pass him the ball so he scores a point, improving his mood. Other option is passing the ball to him, but having Bakudo fail, which would make him even more upset. The final option is to not pass him the ball at all. He ends up deciding to pass him the ball. The moment Karasuno outscores them, Bakudo goes into a depressed state and asks his teammates not to make passes at him anymore. Karasuno takes advantage of this as they attack relentlessly, trying to win for the first time the whole training. Fukurodani keeps playing and Bakudo can't do anything but watch, amazed at the fact that no one is passing him the ball. Even if this seems to give Karasuno the advantage, the truth is that Bakudo is not really the one to watch out for. This takes a high toll on Karasuno, as they inadvertently start paying too much attention to him, and Fukurodani takes advantage of the situation to score points, revealing that the real problem is not Bokuto, it is the rest of the team. This way, Fukurodani begins to turn the game around, putting Karasuno against the ropes, and just when it seems that they'll enter a deuce, his teammates pass Bokuto the ball again, giving him the last shot, raising his spirits again. Here, both Yukai and Takeda realize that even though Bokuto is a star, his team uses him as an axis with which to guide their strategy based on how his mood is. On the other hand, Karasuno gets some encouraging words on Takeda's behalf, congratulating them for developing new abilities and stating that now they must work to polish them and make their color black, just as the crows they are. Just before leaving, the boys get one last round of punishment, where Shupa makes them practice spikes. At the same time, Kageyama and Hinata talk about how now they can face other teams. The time has come for the barbecue, where Nekomata and the other coaches congratulate the boys for having trained so hard, and say that now is the time to eat and celebrate, as the camp has come to an end. They all throw themselves towards the delicious meat as Noya and his friends protect Kyoko. Yet the one the others are most concerned about is Yachi, who's feeling nervous being surrounded by so many people. Seeing how bad she feels for having eaten a burnt piece of meat, the Yubugoa boys begin to surround her in order to help, although it seems as if they really want to take her away with them. Meanwhile, Bokuto and Hinata chat about the best players in Japan, mentioning Ushijima himself, Kiryu from Kyushu and Sakusa from Kanto. These are the three best players in all of Japan, and both Lev and Hinata are eager to surpass them. But of course, none of the other teams are going to make this an easy task for them. On his own, Takeda meets with Nekomata to thank him for letting them be a part of the training camp. But the Nico coach is more focused on how much the players have changed, aware that in a few months the teams will be unrecognizable. The training is finally over and Hinata can't help but to get excited at the thought of him catching up to those above him. Once back at Karasuno grounds, the team receives the schedule of the next games they will play, which makes Yachi nervous since it's her first time. For the third years, though, will be their last. As the boys practice, Takeda and Yukai check out some of the teams in a magazine, noticing one player in particular. At the same time, Kei arrives at his brother's house, where they start chatting about the time when he was a child. His brother then tells him that since that incident, he started playing again, and now he knows how it feels to win and truly enjoyed volleyball, just as Bokuto once told him, encouraging Ki to keep playing. On the other hand, Hinata and Kageyama practice with Yukai, finally mastering the shot they wanted to achieve so bad. Karasuno are not the only ones trying hard though, as all the other schools are looking forward to the tournament. Even Ushijima wants to come face to face against Hinata. Finally, after a long wait, the first day of the spring tournament has arrived. In the waiting room, before the matches begin, some boys observe the Karasuno team, highlighting several of them as they look fierce, skillful, and very strong. They even recognize Hinata. However, the latter and others begin to feel nervous, so he runs towards the bathroom in despair as usual. Here, he meets a player from OU Minami who behaves very aggressively towards Hinata when he states they will win. He is feeling completely confident in their capabilities, which the guy ignores given he believes that Shirodorizawa will obliterate everyone else. It's time for the matches to start, and since Ogi's team believes that Karasuno isn't a big deal, they start throwing spikes left and right to intimidate them. Then, just before they start playing, Takeda encourages them to put into practice the plays they developed during training. Meanwhile, in the grandstand, Yukai has arrived to watch the game. The match begins, and it's Asahi's turn to serve, but instead of going easy, he effortlessly performs an attack that scores them a point as soon as they start, raising everyone's spirits. As the game progresses, the boys manage to score more and more points, quickly taking the lead. Even Ki begins to read the rivals and block better. And not only that, Daichi and everyone else have also begun to stop hesitating so much about their plays. This is because they got used to playing against teams of a higher level than themselves. While this happens, Tawada, the boy from the bathroom a while ago, begins to remember the past, the time when his captain would always be supportive of him, no matter what, which made him play without giving up. It wasn't until he saw the same captain cry due to losing a match that he decided to give always his all. And now in the present, as he witnesses how Hinata performs his signature spike, he understands that he really wants to beat Ushijima. It's time for a break, and Ogi's coach tries to convince his team to keep doing their best, but everyone has already given up hope. It is then that their old captain appears, and knowing that they are worried about appearances, he lets them know that they must go on, saying they will look bad if they stop trying to win. This motivates Tawada to keep going in order to get to a showdown against Shirodorizawa. At the same time, Yukai watches Karasuno in awe, surprised that the third years are really good, and assumes that this is because before they were probably unconsciously used to losing, and that is why they did not trust their own abilities. But now things are different, and those who did not give up had a chance to improve. The game continues, and Karasuno takes the lead with only 1 point remaining to achieve victory. When the ball rises in the air, Tawada feels the same as in his past, but this time he throws himself with everything. He has to catch it and continue playing, motivating his teammates to help him. However, Hinata's amazing spike ends up giving Karasuno the victory. Soon after, Ogi meets up with their former captain, who tells them that frustration is normal for losing side, but it is no excuse to give up and stop playing. Upon hearing this, the entire team bows down and thanks their captain. Meanwhile, Karasuno watches Kakugawa, their next rival, making several of them nervous because the team's star player, Hakuzawa, is 2 meters tall, fact that Hinata quite a lot, until Kageyama tells him to calm him down. As Yukai watches this, he knows his team is at a certain disadvantage, given that stature is always a good weapon, and Karasuno isn't quite as developed as a team yet. Still, Yukai is intrigued to see how will the boys manage. Hakuzawa starts practicing, and just seeing him finish off makes the whole team nervous, but they overcome their fear. They are there to win and will leave with a victory. The match starts, Hinata and the others try to block or attack, but Hakuzawa is too tall, managing to stop, block, or return all the balls. Yukai knows that it's a real problem, since even if Hinata faces him, he won't be able to win, or at least not head-on. At the same time, Kageyama has found that the ball now fits better in his hands. Kakugawa continues to play, but they keep passing it to Hakuzawa, who is the only one scoring points and passing blocks. No matter what they do, Karasuno can't block or get past the defense, so they call a timeout. While Kakugawa believes they're safe from any attack, Karasuno's men are trying to see how to pass Hakuzawa, but Noya has noticed something vital. This is why they go out to play again and start a new attack with Hinata. According to Noya, Hakuzawa can't throw the ball where he wants. Since he is equal to Lev, he has nothing more than his height as he started playing recently. So the best option is to stop throwing straight attacks, and doing so, they manage to overcome Hakuzawa's barrier, and what's even more impressive, Kageyama feels great today, so he decides to try the new finisher with Hinata. Everyone is surprised by such a fast attack, especially Hakuzawa, because someone who measures only 1.62 is surpassing him. Due to this, his team sends him to the back to protect him from the smashes, but Karasuno still cannot let his guard down. However, this also means that they don't have to worry about being blocked, as in the air game, they have the advantage. The boys continue playing, launching more and more attacks with which they end up winning the set. Yukai points out that Hinata is not only playing with the different rhythms that he knows, but also he is using the negative rhythm. That is, that when the setter is about to throw the ball, Hinata already approached and jumped, managing to be the first to reach the ball and attack. This tactic can only be done by Kageyama and Hinata, as the two of them are the only ones who can coordinate so well. In the second set, Hakuzawa knows that the only thing he can do is continue taking advantage of his height, since he is a rookie, and despite this he continues to play and becomes stronger, shooting and stealing the ball whenever he can, but Karasuno is not far behind. They're only 1 point away from victory. The match goes on, and Karasuno finds a way to block Hakuzawa's shot by using a soft block, causing the ball to bounce. He doesn't give up and throws himself at Hinata to block his attack, but Hinata then remembers Bokudo's teachings, throwing a rebound, with which he manages to win the set. This gives Karasuno victory, and as they celebrate, Yukai realizes that their rivals will only get worse next year. Sometime later, while the boys are leaving, Hinata returns to get his lunch, finding that some boys are bothering Kyoko, so he jumps up and does everything possible to push them away, but by doing so, they recognize him as their rival, and one of them is to have fun with them, walking out of the gym while arrogantly looking at Karasuno. After the boys return, we see Ki reunited with his brother Akitoru, who asks how it went, surprised to learn that they beat a 2-meter giant. But seeing that his brother is still very pessimistic, he invites him to play with his team. The next day, Kageyama tries to go undercover at school to spy on his rivals, as he feels too nervous having to wait for the time to play, so he goes as natural as possible. In turn, Hinata talks with Ki about whether he could stop Ushijima, yet he doesn't think he can do it, since he is one of the best. Upon hearing this, Hinata says that he will try to stop Ushijima himself, but Ki gets upset, and for that reason he agrees to go with Akitoru to train. Kageyama then arrives at the gym, where he tells Hinata and the others about what he saw. Turns out he went to watch Oikawa play and met new teammates from a college team, but this didn't stop him from getting the best of them as if they were close friends, understanding what Ushijima wanted to tell them. Seeing this, Kageyama was terrified but also very excited, really wanting to play and beat him not alone, but as a team with his friends. In turn, Ki is playing with his brother's team, where one of them makes fun of how weak he is, since he can't stop his blocks, upsetting him. We then go to see Oba Josei, where Kyotani Kentaro arrives, also nicknamed Crazy Dog, because in middle school he was someone extremely aggressive, but his ability was much higher than his year. Eventually, because of this attitude, he stopped going, but now he's back, and even he feels that he should be careful when he talks to Oikawa. The next day, at Karasuno's court, Ki goes to his coach to ask him how to improve his blocking while being so weak. This is why they arrange a training session with practice matches, meeting with Fukurodani, and agreeing to practice blocks with Bokudo and the others. This because Yukai gave him the advice that in order to block, it is best to learn not only to read the ball and the opponent's intention, but also to control the rhythm, but he cannot show it to them. The other boys begin to practice, showing a clear improvement in their skills because now they can earn more points than before, and even Tadashi has begun to improve his serve with effect. Eventually, in the last few days, Hinata comes to Kema, looking at him in such a determined way that he is surprised and ends up missing the block. This leaves Kema wanting for the first time to play seriously with Hinata, but not a practice match, but one where it only ends when you lose, hinting that the garbage dump fight between Nakoma and Karasuno will take place. On the other hand, Kei continues to practice with his brother's team, where he has improved a lot in reading his opponents and also in the rhythm to block. The day of the qualifiers arrives, and there the boys meet Jozenji, the team that Hinata had found earlier, who are very confident, but Kageyama and Hinata are no different and want to play right there. Meanwhile, Hinata goes to the bathroom, knowing that here he always finds dangerous opponents, and this is confirmed when he meets Oikawa, Iwa, and Ushijima, who begin to fight a bit over who will win, all of them being super confident about going to the nationals. Finally, after this, Karasuno and the other teams are ready to play, especially their rival, Jozenji. Finally, before the playoffs, Takeda gives the team a pep talk till they go to court motivated and willing to give everything as usual. Immediately when the game starts, they score a point, but Karasuno is surprised because it doesn't feel like they are playing against a normal team. Jozenji is very simple and unpredictable, because that is its weapon and it serves them well, managing to connect a couple of points without the boys being able to do anything to defend. However, it's not just Jozenji who has unpredictable players. Hinata and Noya demonstrate this by stopping a ball in midair and then retaking the lead with the overwhelming speed of Hinata and Kageyama, hinting that they won't be easy opponents either. Aln and his friend arrive to see the show. As the game progresses, Karasuno gains a small lead, though Jozenji follows close behind as they are used to play 2x2. But that's not all. This is possible, since the third years know that it's precisely because they enjoy playing. At one point, Kageyama tries to block a smash and succeeds, but that block was with his face, leaving him with a on his nose, so they are forced to take him out until he gets better. They also take out Hinata, who knows like Alm that it is for the other players to try new things, since he is not the only one who has been improving and training. So even though he wants to play, he goes out and watches his senpais. They continue to play, but the Jozenji captain continues celebrating as if he had scored 3 points. With Karasuno being so close to winning the set, they decide to go all in with a combo attack, earning them another point. Seeing that, Jozenji tries to use the same attack, but they miss, and they end up scoring a point against themselves, losing the set. After seeing this, Yukai is somewhat worried about how reckless his rivals are. At the break, their coach scolds them because they gave the set to Karasuno, but the boys don't mind, since this could be the last time they play. This is understood when we see a fragment of the team's past, where one of them knew that at some point it would stop being fun, so Terashima, the leader, would make them have fun. Then we see how they come out to play the second set. Jozenji keeps trying to score, and Kageyama and Hinata come out to play with them again, determined to show what they're made of, although in the end, they end up missing the shot until Daichi saves them. It's then when he begins to coordinate his team, teaching why he deserves to be a captain, improving his game and taking the lead. This causes Terashima to remember one of its friends becoming annoyed. In the end, the boys get the lead again. So Jozenji calls timeout, but the boys don't know what to do, so Terashima tries to cheer them up. It's then that Misaki, their manager, tells them that doing that is wrong. Right now, they don't need motivation only, they need to play well, and that's why he encourages them to behave more seriously, and Terashima agrees. It's this way that once the timeout is over, we see how Jozenji is more ready to play than ever. Once the match resumes, we see how Jozenji and his players, after hearing Misaki, are playing much better. They still have a long way to go to be good, but they continue to play, and they manage to score a lot. That's why Hinata tries to perform his best attack, but they end up blocking it, which annoys Hinata as he doesn't like being left aside. To cheer him up, Daichi approaches and reminds him that he hasn't used his new attack yet. Thus, Hinata once again coordinates with Kageyama, receiving a pass, but this time he doesn't make a spike, instead does a feint, scoring the next to last point they need to win. Finding themselves in such difficult position, Jozenji launches once again a combined attack, but this time it looks very different. This time, Terashima manages to touch the ball, but to his bad luck, he misses and gives the point to Karasuno, losing the match, which upsets Terashima as he can't keep playing. Misaki receives praisals from the coach for having brought out the best of his team, and after meeting with him, he expresses that despite his defeat, he loves his style. In turn, Aon, after seeing Hinata, realizes that his attack is evolving, so he promises that when they play, her will stop it. But Hinata also promises that her will pass it once more, showing us the little friendship they have. After this, the team goes out to see their rivals the next day, Wakutani. They get to witness the family of a team member cheering on them from the stands. Later at the gym, Karasuno gathers and Yukai lets them know that their next opponents are just as good as Nakoma, but this doesn't scare them as they are determined to win anyway. The next day, they see the family from earlier again cheering for Wakutani, and although everyone is calm, Yukai worries that this team might be bad for them. After seeing how Yachi and the others gather in the stands, the match begins. At first, Karasuno doesn't have much of a problem with Wakutani as Hinata's spikes quickly put them in the lead. The bad thing is that this does not surprise those of Wakutani who adopt a defensive position. It's then that Yukai reveals that his fear is due to the fact that they are a team that instead of attacking, goes at their own pace and think things through, similar to Nakoma and Alba Josai, which makes them natural enemies of Karasuno. Daichi realizes this and tells Hinata he has been investigated, which enhances his fighting spirit, while saying that Daichi Aldo says Hinata is outstaging the rest of the team, which is heard by Tanaka, who is completely unpleased. Outside of the court, Takeda silently praises Daichi for motivating Tanaka and Hinata in a way they change their behavior as it seems to unease Nakashima Takeru. However, having seen Takeru's technique, Yukai determines he's the closest to the small giant in the entire prefecture. In addition, his spikes are different from Hinata's since he uses angles, and that greatly changes the range in which the blocker can act, something that Kei notices and dislikes. The team, though, is still not bothered by it because even though they are marking Hinata so much, they still have more options, so Yukai has nothing to tell them as they still have the star of the team, which only Own and his Iron Wall could stop. However, Nakashima does not give up and lifts the morale of his team once more. It's then everyone realizes that if the last game was fun, this is about captains. The match continues and the ball rises strongly in the air, where Karasuno tries to do everything possible so that it doesn't touch the ground, finally getting it to Wakutani's side and count them a point. However, to Karasuno's bad luck, it seems that Daichi has been. While Jozenji is talking about how important Daichi is for the team, we see him injured on the ground. When he gets up, he seems to be fine, but the crash against Tanaka left him with a broken tooth, so he is sent to the infirmary, as it's the fastest way for him to return to the game. Just before leaving, he tasks Asahi with guiding the team because if they lose, this will be the last time the captain will play with them. However, they are not going to be left without a leader. For that, they bring Enoshita, who, although wants to think that it is the same as training, knows that it's very different because it doesn't feel good at all. Playing after Daichi, but all of his friends are counting on him, so he does his best, making Tanaka feel better, because the important thing is that he didn't get hurt. Seeing him, Seiko implies that she is not afraid, as she knows that Enoshia is the boss of the second years because he is the best when it comes to raising the spirits of others, and he also controls the spikers and the craziest ones of the team, so he is a good option to replace Daichi. As soon as the game resumes, they immediately lose a point due to Enoshita since he is not at Daichi's level, but now he has no excuse to run away, so he encourages Karasuno with all his might. Then we go to see a fragment from the past where Yukai told them to think about who would succeed Daichi, choosing Enoshita. Back in the present, the game continues, with Wakutani dominating the match, beginning to catch up with Karasuno. That is why they call Tadashi to make his serve with effect, but he is very nervous, so to reduce his stress a bit, Enoshita tells him that he is also feeling bad, the same as Ki, who he lets him know that he's even more nervous. Tadashi, however, feels very nervous serving the ball very low, but in the end, he manages to do it well enough to score a point. Then Tadashi throws another serve, but he's afraid that they will end up overtaking them, so he decides to go defensive, which leaves Karasuno in a bad position, especially when it's Tadashi's turn to defend and he can't move out of fear. It's then that Enoshita saves him, and they get a point. At the end of the set, Yukai goes to Tadashi to scold him because he didn't like that he was so cowardly, and this leaves him thinking, as everyone knows, and he knows better than anyone, that if he wants to keep fighting, he should stop running away. Then, Yukai informs them that due to his injury, Daichi will stay in the infirmary. This shows during the second set as Daichi's absence begins to affect them mentally, finding themselves overwhelmed by Wakutani. On the other hand, Date and Oba Josai are about to have their showdown, with Oikawa trying to provoke them while thinking about which of them will face Karasuno, if at all, remembering that the ones who lose are the ones who drop the ball. Then we go to see how Karasuno has lost the set, which leaves Enoshita very depressed until his teammates cheer him up. While this is happening, they talk and tell Hinata that Nakashima's moves are the same as the small giants but warn him not to imitate them since he doesn't have that skill level. Despite this, he tries to do one of the attack techniques, but it goes wrong and they end up giving up a point. Regardless, they can continue using the weapons they already have to play, getting to the same level as Wakutani. However, something that takes Nakashima by surprise is that Hinata has incredible agility and maneuverability, as he manages to save the ball faster than anyone else. Enoshita is not at Daichi's level, which frustrates him and costs the team points, but Tanaka tells him he shouldn't feel bad about this, since it's obvious that he's not Daichi, and he won't be able to replace him that fast. This encourages him to suggest a strategy. When they deflect the ball, he will go after it, throwing it to them to finish off. They immediately put this plan into motion and Enoshita successfully pulls it off, giving his friends a chance to score. It's like this that the ball goes to Hinata, who quickly realizes that he is blocked, so to avoid it, he starts again with a bounce, leaving everyone surprised. With this strategy, the team manages to score a point. This also surprises Nakashima, as he was unaware that Karasuno had such a dangerous player. In turn, Enoshita is now more encouraged because having suggested and achieved that move, he now feels more confident about being the leader of Karasuno. This too begins to affect Tadashi. During the game, Nakashima tries to do his best to show who is the small giant in the match, but even without Daichi, Karasuno is a really tough opponent as they manage to outplay them by 5 points. Even so, Nakashima doesn't get to knowing that he must continue if he wants to win. It's Asahi's turn to serve, but he does it wrong and they lose a point. Although he's not the only one, Wakutani does the same, leaving them 1 point away from winning the set. Then, while Karasuno has the ball, Hinata is undecided whether to act or not, but decides to go for a spike, getting scared at the end, losing control of the ball, thus winning the set and the game. However, Hinata is still frustrated as he was unable to beat Nakashima in a head-to-head. Later, we see Daichi is better. He had returned a long time ago, but he knew that if he left then, he could ruin the rhythm of the team. Hearing this, Enoshita leaves, excited that he was finally able to give it his all and didn't run away like the last time. Meanwhile, Nakashima realizes that Hinata managed to see his attack and tried to stop it, but despite having beaten him in the confrontation, he feels upset at not being able to play against him again. In turn, Tadashi was left thinking about the match, so he leaves to do something. While that happens, the boys go to the stands to watch the Date versus Oba match and find out who their rivals will be. Upon arrival, they are met by some of Date's students, who introduce them to their new secret weapon, and Karasuno is in awe when he sees Date's new pass. This is Koba Nagawa, the big bone setter. However, this one is new, so he doesn't control the ball very well, so most of his passes and sets are very high or wide, making it difficult for the team to move and control the ball. Oikawa takes advantage of this, but since they also have problems due to the passes, the difference in points is narrowing. That's why he tries to go for a smash, running into On's iron wall. Just when he is about to launch a diagonal shot, Koga appears to stop him, thus demonstrating that they have a new wall, this time stronger, through which not even Oikawa can pass. However, Koba keeps trying to make aggressive plays, which is not very good at, but this makes everyone realize that when he gets used to it and improves, he will be a tough opponent. Oikawa and his team continue throwing balls and shots. That's when we meet Sakyonami, the one in charge of supporting Koga, receiving the balls that go towards him in order to give him a chance to control. Then for the first time, we see his true potential. By using his height together with On's, he reaches a soft touch to leave the ball right where he will smash. Then Fudakuchi gets another smash, and that way they get closer to Oba, and since they have rotated with On and Koga, they now have the final iron wall ready. As the ball rises once more into the air, Koba remembers Fudakuchi's advice, spiking the ball and getting closer to Oba. However, this does not please Iwa, who asks him to let him finish them off himself. This way, the next attempt, it is Iwa who comes out to finish off the ball, but the new iron wall is waiting for him. However, Iwa knows that the weakest is Koga, so he throws his shot right through his arms, managing to win the set and the game. Now Karasuno knows who its next opponents will be. When leaving, Koga is very upset for having failed like this, so he promises before everyone that next time he will catch any ball and he will not disappoint the iron wall. Despite this, Aon lets him know that some players are not the tallest or strongest, promising at the same time that he will stop Hinata next time when he gets his chance. Kageyama remembers the last time he and Oikawa faced each other, feeling as tense as the others, because that time they faced Oba Josei giving their everything and still lost. Tadashi goes to Yachi to try to calm her down, telling her about the time he played with them and missed his serve, so now he doesn't want to make the same mistake again, but it ends up making her nervous too. Meanwhile, Kageyama and Hinata talk about Oikawa, and as Kageyama, he acknowledges that he can't get the full force out of other team spikers like him, but Hinata cheers him up, reminding him that those teams are Karasuno. Then game time arrives and all of Karasuno comes out, determined and more sure than ever that this time they will win the rematch. In the middle of their warm-up, Oikawa and Kageyama have one of their usual fights, making the team tense. But the worst is about to happen as some boys from Oba try to flirt with Yachi and almost hit her with a ball, if it wasn't for Kyoko who stopped it. They go to the court where Oikawa teases Daichi a bit, and Daichi only admits how much he suffered during training. To decide who will receive first, a coin is tossed, and it ends up on Karasuno's side. As Oba Josei prepares, Hinata tells Kageyama that this time they are going to win. While in the stands, Seiko and the others gather, pondering that if Karasuno wins this and another game, they'll go to the Nationals. For his part, Oikawa meets with his team, and since he knows they have some tough opponents, they must be serious from the beginning, which his friends know, trusting in his serves. On the other hand, Karasuno is receiving a pep talk from Takeda, in which he motivates them to use the weapons they developed in training with this day in mind. Then, Yukai sends them to the court. Oikawa is the first to serve, hitting a ball fast and strong as a cannon, which has all Oba's sure to score, but before they can celebrate, Daichi gets in the way, giving the guys an opportunity to make a move with Noya and Asashi. with which they achieve the first point of the match. This boosts everyone's morale, and it's Key's turn to show his new weapons when he scores another point thanks to his blocking prowess. Very far from that, Hinata is frustrated at not being able to touch the ball. However, he doesn't wait much. Nevertheless, when Hinata spikes misses, deeply upsetting him. To calm his nerves, Kageyama kicks him. Although abrupt, this brings Hinata back to his senses. Focusing again, trying the quick attack once more, and this time he manages to break through Oba's defense. The match goes on, and Hinata repeats the attack, showing Oba that wasn't a coincidence. This allows Karasuno to take the lead, so Oba Josei sets up a strategy. One of the blockers goes after Hinata, forcing him to smash in only one direction, which they had predicted he would, thus scoring a point. This annoys Yukai, realizing that Oba's players always come up with some new way to outplay Hinata and the other members, but they still play on, managing to block and earn another point thanks to Hinata. Eventually, it's time for Oikawa to serve again, and he hits a pitch so hard it looks like a spike, terrifying all of Karasuno. But to the Crows' good luck, the ball falls outside, earning a point and leaving them close to winning the set. The most surprised is Kageyama, since he did not know that Oikawa could break through so easily. However, the bad part comes when Kyotani appears, whom Karasuno had never faced, and at the moment he makes a shot. Not only does he do it in a brutal way, he also interrupts the attack flow of Karasuno. Takeda notices this, also realizing that that was something they hadn't faced until now. Good news are that it goes off the court, so it's a point for Karasuno, getting them the set. After scolding Kyotani a bit, Oba and Karasuno return to the game, where Kyotani is quickly warned not to make any more risky moves, but once he gets a chance, he throws himself at the ball like a mad dog, performing a shot from a corner of the court. He does this, since although it's riskier, it more easily overcomes the block, and the fact that his smashes are so makes it difficult for Karasuno to defend. This way, Oba Josei manages to come back with several points of advantage until, due to an oversight, they give one to Karasuno. Kyotani then lunges for the ball one more time, and seeing him, Hinata jumps up to face him, which Kyotani knew, so he passes the ball to Kindaiki to smash for him. Kyotani is annoyed because he was used as a lure, but Oikawa knows that the more they do it, the more useful it'll be. They let Kyotani deal with the finishing moves, but since he is too and always uses his full strength, the attacks miss many times, placing Oba in a difficult position. Even so, Oikawa knows that this is a double-edged sword, as his attacks when they hit are very difficult to block, and he shows this by launching another spike that breaks through the blocking with sheer brute force. After this, it's Hinata's turn to serve, but he's not very good at it, so at the moment the ball is in the air, they make a simultaneous attack where Hinata takes the opportunity to go for the ball, ending up blocked by Oikawa, who taunts Kageyama. Kageyama is sent to the bench because they are planning a strategic change with Suga. Unlike their first match, where they had to do it by force, being cornered, now they'll do it to win. Before being able to put Suga on the field, Oikawa serves more focused than ever, making a serve as strong as before, with which both teams come back to reality. Yet, Oikawa misses the serve, and when Kyotani tries to finish off, but gets blocked by Tanaka. Then Suga enters to serve, trying to score, but fails, so Hinata comes out to score a point, managing to close the gap between Karasuno and Oba. At a certain point, they all agree to make a simultaneous attack, and it's Kageyama who gets the shot, of which even Hinata is jealous. This tactic was possible thanks to the strategy of adding another setter to the game, plus the rotation, which had a lot of influence since Ki couldn't block so well being so far behind. After some attempts to score by Karasuno, all of Oba continues passing the ball to Kyotani, who's scoring better and better. Yet Karasuno seems unbothered, and suddenly Shuba changes again with Ki. The match goes on, with Kyotani scoring with so much precision, even Hinata ends up making a mistake by not focusing on his task as bait. It's then when Yukai understands, Oba's idea of using Kyotani was risky. The truth is, they knew it was worth it. The crazy dog takes time to reach his full potential, but once he does, he's unstoppable, which means that if they don't do something, Oma will win. That's why after a timeout, Tadashi is called to the court. Before Tadashi enters the court, he had gone to Yukai, regretting having ran away in his last game, asking him for another chance to serve. He goes to the court with all his friends supporting him, sure that this time he will make it. As he waits for the whistle, Tadashi recalls when Shimada is teacher, which explaining the 8-second time limit to serve after the whistle is blown. Back in the game, Tadashi takes a breath, prepares himself, and launches his serve with effect. It seemed it would end up outside, but it lands inside the court, scoring an ace and getting everybody in Karasuno celebrating, including some Sigyo fans. Everyone congratulates Tadashi, but what moves him the most is that Ki was certain he was going to do it well, since he was the one training his serve the hardest. This is how Tadashi leads the start of the counterattack, launching another of his serves with effect towards Kyotani, getting another point. Tadashi tries his floating serve again, but it's blocked and he gets a shot, so he receives it with his body, which his friends take advantage of to score again. Seeing that they are taking the lead, Oba's coach calls a timeout to forcibly cut the pace. Once this is over, we see how Tadashi trains with his teacher, who taught him the floating serve. telling him to aim as close to the net as possible. Tadashi knows that this serve is his only weapon, but that is precisely why he has perfected it, putting all this pride and the flow of the game into that shot, since that's the task of a server. And with this in mind, Tadashi manages to tie the marker. His teacher knows that now that Tadashi is attacking, he no longer feels nervous, nor does he wonder if he will be able to score. Now he's only thinking about where he's going to send the ball. Still, he isn't entirely satisfied since the ball doesn't rotate enough in the air and it's easy for Oba to defend. Nevertheless, their teammates manage to get a point, gaining the lead. Of course, Oba is not far behind and starts a strong offensive against Karasuno, forcing them into a deuce. In spite Tadashi not being as effective, they take him out of the game. He sits on the bench certain that next time he'll achieve 10 points. Both Karasuno and Oba keep scoring, resulting in a tie. Kendechi begins to worry until his friend reassures him, forcing him to focus on nothing but the game. Meanwhile, it's Asahi's turn to serve, but Oba blocks it and they tie once more. Uekawa's turn to serve arrives and he knows that his serve is so strong that not even Date's wall can compare. He proves it by serving a ball not even Noya can stop. Uekawa returns to serve again, but this time Karasuno manages to stop it, although it's of little use since Oba ends up scoring, winning the set. This puts Tadashi down a bit as only half of his serves were good, but his friends cheer him up for that very reason, rejoicing at his good play. On the other hand, Uekawa and his teammates know that the match won't end easily, as they remember all their confrontations so far. The third set is about to start and Oba knows it's time to give it all, for that will be their last battle. Both teams meet on their own to cheer up and plan the next game. On their side, the Oba boys know that Hinata will surely score, but that they must keep going anyway. That's what they have Uekawa and Kyotani for, after all. Meanwhile, on Karasuno's part, they know that even if they have lost to Oba before, this time they must, and will win. The match resumes with its final set, where Oba and its players go at it ferociously using their best tools. Still, both coaches know that the moment one of them misses, that delicate balance will be broken. Kyotani keeps spiking fiercely, putting Karasuno at a disadvantage. Still, the latter manage to keep up to Oba on the scoreboard. It is then that Kyotani spikes once more, but Tanaka and Ki get up and successfully block him, managing to score a point. This is due to Karasuno forcing Kyotani to make a straightforward attack through Tanaka's constant provocations and also Ki's coordination, who came up with the tactic. This causes Kyotani to start getting upset, giving Karasuno the chance to catch up little by little until they get the advantage. Next, we see a flashback with a bit of Crazy Dog's past, from when he had just started playing volleyball, remembering a great spike he saw as a child. This left an impression on him, motivating him to train, although at first he didn't seem to like it. Now, in the present, his former coach is watching him. Back in the game, Karasuno is still in the lead, and given that Kyotani doesn't calm down, his coach decides to take him out of the game, sending him to the bench to calm down so that he can later get back in. On his way out, one of his companions tells him no, that some in the team do not like that he is there playing with them. Yet he acknowledges that his ability is real, and that's why no one had ever complained to him. But not now. Now they are getting upset, because if they lose on behalf of his anger, they will not forgive him. Now back the present match, Kyotani is back on the court to deliver his spike, and as he does so, we see another short flashback of him reuniting with his old coach. There we see how the latter lets Kyotani know that no matter how much he isolates himself from the rest, if he faces his team and they face him, he will eventually become stronger. He also tells him that he would be lucky to find a team that supports him, since this is no easy feat. Then comes the time for Oba to serve, and Uekawa entrusts the ball to Kyotani. At the same time, Yukai realizes what's happening. With that last play, Kyotani has become more united with his team, and that can only be a problem. Still, Takeda knows that they can overcome it, since Karasuno is also a very united team. The only issue is that, in order to catch up to Oba, they have to start taking advantage of Hinata. It's Uekawa's turn to serve. He sends forth the cannon shot, which Karasuno manages to stop, but still, Kendechi coordinates with Uekawa, and they score. The latter serves again, and once again they stop him, and just when it seems that they are going to score again, Ki stops the shot with his block. Next, the time has come for Hinata to be in front row, making him feel confident because he knows that as long as he is there, Kageyama is invincible. Karasuno's attack begins, and Hinata tries to make his signature spike, running before anyone else to the ball, but to his bad luck, said ball is very close to the net. It seems like the move won't be possible, but just in the last moment, Hinata manages to hit the ball downwards, giving Karasuno the advantage. This takes everyone by surprise, especially Uekawa, since he wasn't expecting someone would actually support Kageyama so much. He now realizes this to be a huge problem, given that Karasuno has managed to outdo them on the scoreboard. However, Aoba Josei is not far behind. Thanks to the efforts of Kyotani and the others, they managed to take the lead again, which worries Yukai as Kyotani has shown great ability to control his body, having spiked with his left hand. Karasuno doesn't give up though, as they manage to avoid a comeback from Aoba, managing to defend themselves and make even on the scoreboard. Still, When Kyotani advances, he launches one of his great spikes, with which he manages to reach 20 points before Karasuno. Still, our boys don't get discouraged, and they manage to even the score once again after stopping a serve from Kyotani and sending the ball away. Tadashi then enters the court and prepares to serve after everyone encourages him. He launches his effect shot, sending it straight towards Kyotani, but the shot curves upwards, and when it is about to score them a point, an Oba player catches it, giving them the chance to score a point. After Tadashi is sent back to the bench, it's Oikawa's turn to serve. The latter knows, as does the rest of his team, that if they go into deuce, they won't have the mental strength to keep playing, so it's now or never. For this reason, he serves his strongest ball, but Daichi catches up to him and remembers his training, managing to stop Oikawa's shot, giving Asahi opportunity to strike back and shorten the score by 1 point. After this play, they ask for a timeout. Yukai tries to keep the boys calm, and in order to make sure they win, he sends in Shuba so they can carry out their strategy, having 2-point guards. Meanwhile, Kageyama notices Hinata's great concentration. Shuka serves and Oba manages to defend said shot, but when the time comes, Kageyama and Hinata manage to stop their rival's comeback, scoring the last point they need to enter a deuce. Oba continues to have an offensive approach against Karasuno, but Shuba keeps saving the team, enabling a combined counterattack. Just as Hinata jumps up, Kageyama makes a feint, awarding Karasuno a point that puts the team ahead. Seeing that Kageyama has surpassed him, Oikawa remembers his coach's words, that even if he found himself against better players than himself, unable to surpass them, there is no excuse to stop training. Oikawa realizes this is a good opportunity for him to improve, something that his teammates notice. Both teams take one last timeout where everyone is encouraged to win, determined to excel. The match continues and Shuga serves again. When Oikawa runs to save the ball, he signals Kindeki from the other side of the field and passes him the ball, enabling him to spike. Luckily, Tanaka manages to receive the ball, sending it back to Oba's side. It is then that an all-out battle breaks out. Neither team is willing to lose, releasing all their best plays against each other. In the last moment, Hinata sees a chance to spike and runs in an attempt to make his best shot. Even if Oba's blockers are waiting for him, he can see an opening, striking the ball so fast and with such power that not even Oikawa is able to stop it, thus securing the victory for Karasuno. As the team celebrates, Kageyama meets up with Oikawa. Oikawa reminds Kageyama that they had beaten them before, so they shouldn't be so full of themselves. After this, Oba meets, and the coach, who knowing there isn't much to say, congratulates them on their fight. While all the guys are sad, Kindeki is frustrated since he couldn't score the last shot he made. On the other hand, Karasuno is celebrating his victory, with the coach and the others happy they won the rematch. We see Kindeki wash up in the bathroom and meeting Kageyama. Takumi promises that next time they will win, although Kageyama isn't going to let that happen. Soon after, they all meet up with Seiko and the others, who congratulate them on winning their match, making them all proud. However, when they try to praise Hinata, he is frustrated since he knows Oikawa caught sight of his shot at the last minute. Oikawa goes to meet Oshijima, who reproaches him for not going to Shiratorizawa because of his pride, yet Oikawa tells him he is not sorry. Not only that, but he also lets him know that although he still has a long way to go to reach his level, Kageyama is no longer alone and he won't be an easy opponent to beat. Meanwhile, Kageyama and Hinata are looking at the poster of the upcoming match, remembering their meeting with Oshijima, willing to show him how much they've grown. As they return, Yukai thanks Takeda for letting them go to train with other teams, but he asks him to save him praise for tomorrow's game. Upon arriving at school, Mikimiya and the others arrive to congratulate them. But not only they have arrived, the entire school has stayed late just to receive them and cheer them up, promising that they will go to support them the next day. Mikimiya remembers the sports new channel will be on soon. There they announce Karasuno's victory despite Seijo was the favorite for the match. Tanaka and Noya get upset as they focus more on Oikawa and Alba than in them, but that is quickly disregarded as Shiratorizawa is mentioned as the winner of their match, making it to the last round, also pointing out how Oshijima made it to the nationals despite being a minor. Seeing this, Karasuno gathers and Yukai states that nobody believes they can win, but so they thought about Seijo and they won, and that's why they're all determined to surpass the current undefeated champion. Shortly after, everybody leaves except for Hinata and Kageyama, who stay with Yachi since they're too anxious to just leave and not train. Seeing them, Yachi remembers the occasion when they both fought, but that's not what surprises her. It's that if it were not for their efforts, she would not have felt her heart as warm and excited during the match, because she was able to witness the results of the effort of the entire team. Hinata and Kageyama also thank her, because it was thanks to her that they were able to practice and improve. Kyoko appears and tells them to go rest, while she thanks Yachi for helping the boys. As they leave, Hinata admits he's nervous, but at the same time very excited, promising the Kageyama that they will win the next day. The day arrives and Karasuno arrives at the court, where Oshijima is waiting. He faces Hinata and Kageyama, challenging them. This, far from making them nervous, only ignites the entire team, that walks towards the last match of the spring tournament. We see Hinata once again going down his usual road and arriving at the gym, where he keeps thinking about how the view would be like on the other side of the net. While at that, Kageyama arrives to pick him up and takes Hinata to the rest of the team. They finally arrive at the place where their last match will be held. Mikimiya goes to Daichi to give him a lucky charm, just before entering. Meanwhile, Tanaka and Noya are impressed by how many people have gathered for the final. In order to relieve Tanaka's stress, Noya says to the team that if they do well, they will surely get some girls' attention, including Kyoko, which gets Tanaka pumped. We then see Hinata bumping into his old volleyball friends who, upon seeing him surrounded by so many people, are happy that he is no longer playing alone, although they are a little scared at the sight of Kageyama. The rest of the team is ready to go out into the playfield, but on their way they meet an old man who has been supporting for a while, although not always. Some other times he would make fun of them, and for this reason, the third years want to win at any cost, so we can't laugh at them anymore. But the Karasuno team members are not the only ones arriving at the court. The cheerleading team is also here, and their conductor and members are making a lot of noise to support them. Seiko suddenly appears to point them to someone he finds suspicious, but it just turns out to be Ki's brother, who's undercover because he doesn't want to disturb him. The whole Karasuno team is really nervous, which discourages them a bit, but that's not all. Shiratorizawa's cheers are much better, stronger, and louder. In that precise moment, the Shiratorizawa team appears and Karasuno immediately feels pressured. We next see a short flashback of a meeting Karasuno had before the match, where they had a brief with all the information they needed provided by the managers in order to help them. Here, Yukai exposes that Shiratorizawa is an incomplete team, unlike the ones they have faced so far. This is because, while every team has been using technique, timing, and teamwork to make their plays, Shiratorizawa focuses mainly on using their brute force, as does Ushijima, who always receives the passes ready to spike. This surprises everyone when they see how Ushijima practices his shots, as does the rest of his team, because even if they are not as good as him, they are all still great players. For this reason, Yukai tells Kageyama and Hinata to win that first clash, launching their quick spike with a downwards feint, which they do, leaving all the spectators in awe, as well as Shiratorizawa. The latter, although quite surprised, manage to remain calm because they are confident in their own strength, and know they can count on Ushijima and his teamwork. It is here where the supposed star of the team, Koshiki, goes to Ushijima and promises him that he will do a good job. While the teams finish their preparations, Seiko and the others notice that there are a lot of television crews, and that this time, they will not have a match of 3, but of 5 sets, making them a little worried about the boys' resistance. Still, the game begins, both teams introduce their roster as Hinata remembers Ushijima's words, feeling more ready than ever to show him what he's made of. Next, Daichi has the first serve of the game. Here, Ushijima and the others throw the ball fiercely towards Karasuno, and although they do their best to stop it, Ushijima throws so hard at Noya that the latter ends up losing the ball along with the point, but far from being upset, he gets excited. Shortly after, Shiratorizawa serves and Daichi quickly loses the opportunity to defend, as do Tanaka and Asashi, as they are all nervous. Seeing this, Shuba shouts at them to calm down, rounding them back into reality. Still, trying to block Ushijima and his team is not an easy task, given their formation is laid out so that it always enables the team to pass the ball to Ushijima and perform an aggressive shot. As if that weren't enough, this issue is made worse by the fact that Ushijima is left-handed. Normally, blockers don't have a problem with right-handed people, since they can stop the shot with their dominant hand due to their position. But in the case of a lefty, they have to do it the other way around, so it's very easy for Ushijima to get past their defense. It also doesn't help that everyone in Shiratorizawa is really strong when it comes to spiking. Even so, Tanaka scores first, although it doesn't help much since Shiratorizawa manages to get ahead of them by quite a few points. This forces Yukai to ask for a timeout so he can encourage the boys and hopefully overcome Ushijima's offense. In order to do so, they've worked out a plan alongside Noya, where he can act freely as the libero, eventually blocking Ushijima's unavoidable spikes, but the latter is just too strong for Noya to handle, plus being left-footed, it's hard for him to find the right rhythm and angle. A single error would mean a big deviation of the ball's trajectory. As if this wasn't enough, the rest of the team is very nervous due to Shiratorizawa's great advantage, except for Ki, who keeps trying to stop Ushijima, although unsuccessfully, as he ends up failing to block. Noya then realizes that Ushijima is not playing at his full capacity, so it is very likely that he will fail receiving passes. At the same time, Ki bandages an injury on a finger caused by Ushijima and wonders if he might have doubted during his last block. The game resumes, and although Ki thinks they should give up, he sees Noya bursting with confidence. Ushijima serves, and Noya watches the ball closely, and for the first time in the game, he receives it without losing the point. Next, Kageyama gains control of the ball, and at first it seems like he's going to spike, but he ends up setting on a point for the boys, given that he's not nervous, as nothing scares him, except for Oikawa. It is then that Hinata and Shuba enter the game, just in time for the latter to serve, in hope of giving the team a bit of an advantage, but this strategy quickly backfires. Although Karasuno follows Shiratorizawa closely on the scoreboard, the rival teams still have a strong advantage, and being aware of this, Hinata and Kageyama decide it's time for their star move, but this is no problem for Oshijima, who receives it without breaking a sweat, winning the set shortly after. During the break, Oshijima talks to his teammates about how he knows Hinata, stating that he hates him, saying that our protagonist has no reason to be so confident. This motivates Satori to take the game more seriously, given that he has never heard Oshijima say something like that. On our team's side, Yukai tells the boys that the only strategy they have is to hope that sooner or later Oshijima will get tired, but they need to hold up until then, so they must attack relentlessly with everything they have. This is their only chance to win. That said, the Karasuno team members give it all with their best attacks, especially Hinata, who is about to make his quick shot. But just as it seems he is about to score, Satori blocks the ball, warning Hinata that if he wants to face Oshijima, he must first go over him. The time has come for Leon to serve. This time, Karasuno does their best to attack, but again, Satori manages to stop them as he knows a great way to block in order to score. As if that was not enough, he also manages to foresee and prevent all of Kageyama's moves, who finds this to be really frustrating. This, of course, makes Satori feel better than ever. In order to prevent upcoming massacre, they call for a timeout. Here, Yukai explains to the team the reason behind Satori's nickname, Guess Monster. It turns out that he does something similar to Key's technique, reading the movements of the other players, but different in a very different way. Instead of analyzing, he guesses, and although it may not seem like it, he understands the gestures and movements of his opponents really well. That's why he can even avoid Kageyama's spikes. This, of course, pisses off Kageyama, given that every single play of his has been blocked. In order to prevent this from happening again, his only option is to feint like Hinata does. That is why, once he has a chance, Kageyama finally shoots past Satori's block, who in turn admits having made a mistake by falling for the feint. He also realizes that Kageyama is a terrible loser. When the latter tries to attack again with a strong serve, Satori feints with his block as well, managing to confuse Karasuno. Takeda can't seem to figure out these blocks, so Yukai explains to him that unlike normal blockings, which only prevent the ball from passing, Satori's blocks are made to score points in the process, using the momentum of the rival's spikes to redirect the ball. This allows Shiratorizawa to take the lead once again, and although it would seem Karasuno is going to lose, Takeda knows that his team's plays adapt and evolve to eventually defend successfully and pass through the enemy blockings. While at that, Satori provokes Key, calling him the normal guy of his team. Far from making him mad, Key makes a better block than Satori's and scores. However, it doesn't take long for Karasuno to outscore Shiratorizawa, even though they do their best to try to read the rival attacks, plus Tabashi is really eager to play and serve. The team continues to use Key's blocks, managing to get Tanaka a chance to spike, which makes Shiratorizawa's coach, Washijo, furious. The boys then make a switch in the layout of the team, and with a perfectly synchronized attack, Kageyama scores, reaching Shiratorizawa. While this is happening, Shiratorizawa's coach remembers back at his moments with the old Yukai, and at the same time we see his grandson, now the priest and coach, understand that Shiratorizawa relies on Oshijima more than in any other game tactics, making the whole winning strategy dependent on height and strength alone. Shiratorizawa keeps attacking Karasuno relentlessly, hoping to come back on top. Tabashi serves but fails and gives Oshijima a chance to score. This discourages everyone except for Key, which irritates Satori. Yukai calls for yet another timeout, where he clarifies that they shouldn't lose their cool, and that it is better to try to connect all their plays instead of focusing more on what people see. For this reason, Kei asks to be allowed to lead the pace of the blockings. Once the game resumes, Karasuno keeps trying to defend from Shiratorizawa's attacks, without much success, but now Key is in charge of directing the blockings, which he does, confusing Satori and scoring in the process, allowing Karasuno to even the score. Next comes Oshijima's turn, whose attack is successfully defended by Noya. This is possible because Key's tactic wasn't to stop Oshijima, but to direct the latter's attack towards Noya in order to stop the shot more easily. While not the best tactic, it proves an effective way of dealing with Oshijima's strength. It is Asahi's turn to serve, making the team get ahead in the scoreboard, although not for long, as Shiratorizawa manages to even the score again, with the 2 points left to win the set. When the time comes for Oshijima to serve, the rest of his team tries pass the ball to Satori so he can spike, or at least that is what it seems. One of them feints and scores, leaving them only 1 point away from winning the set. In the stands, Akiteru notes that his brother is different, more focused. Karasuno still manages to use Tanaka to get the Aguse. Because of this, they quickly switch Key and Hinata, and before stepping in, Key gives him some advice. He tells Hinata to jump as high as he can, so that all the blockers notice him, distracting them, thus giving Kageyama a chance to spike, giving them the advantage. However, they quickly lose said advantage, since they need great resistance and concentration to score 2 points in a row, as both them and Yukai are aware of. Not only that, they have to adapt to the different styles from each rival player. Still, they continue to play, and eventually Karasuno gains strength, forcing Shiratorizawa's coach to call for his first timeout, switching Satori and Ada, who is actually a great pinch server, giving his teammates a chance to face Hinata, passing his defense and taking away Karasuno's advantage once more. Quickly, Karasuno goes on the offensive and Hinata really focuses on the ball, making one of his super fast attacks, surprising everyone. Still, the rest of the boys continue to defend. Both teams face each other fiercely, trying to overcome one another, incapable of advancing more than 1 point away from the other team. Then Keith appears to save the team, and although he knows that they cannot compare themselves to Ushijima, there is no excuse to give up. While Hinata serves, he and his teammates do their best to block Ushijima's shot, thus giving Kageyama and Hinata a chance to hit their quick spike, giving them the advantage once again. As Asadi congratulates Ki on such a good block, Ushijima asks Shirabu to give him the ball next time. Hinata tries his serve again, but it is blocked, giving Ushijima the chance to strike with a powerful shot, stronger than ever, indicating that he is now being serious. The same way, the Karasuno boys score another point, taking the lead, but Shiratorizawa's constant attacks prevent them from advancing further. The moment Ushijima is about to throw the ball, Ki looks at the movements of his opponents, understanding what their next play is going to be, thus blocking and deflecting Ushijima's shot, managing to use it against him and winning the point. Even thinking that he can't beat Ushijima, he scored successfully. It is at that moment that Kei remembers Bakudo's words, feeling captivated and fulfilled for the first time thanks to volleyball. Seeing that they've won the second set thanks to him, everyone congratulates Ki. Even Seiko and the rest are surprised to hear the explanation of what happened. As Akitaru tells them, Ki pays attention to everything, from gestures to plays, thinking very far into the future. This is how he is able to block like that. Meanwhile, Kei tells the rest of the team not to get too excited. It's only one set, the match has just started. On Shiratorizawa's side, Shirabu is scolded by the coach, who tells him to take things more seriously. The next set begins and Shiratorizawa goes hard on the offensive, as if they hadn't lost at all. Shirabu is doing a great job as setter, successfully connecting a ton of plays. Next, get a glimpse at his past. Back when he had just started playing, there had always been setters who stood out like Otakawa, but it wasn't until he met Ushijima that he was captivated by another player's strength, wanting to play on his team really bad, going to where powerful people gathered, as in his mind, that is the best way to play volleyball. Back in the present, Ushijima overcomes Noya's defense, winning the third set, which really annoys Noya, as he knows that he is the only one capable of receiving those attacks. Both teams retire to rest before the fourth set, and Ushijima mocks Hinata for having such a lousy technique, reminding the latter of Kageyama's attitude. After a few words of encouragement and strategies from Yukai, the team returns to the battle, where it is Goshiki's turn to serve, which fails miserably, awarding Karasuno the first point. Next, he plans a strategy to stop Ushijima and forces the latter to aim at Noya, who manages to stop his attack at last, which makes him think that now he can't let the team lose. This allows the boys to pick up the pace and thereby score more points. Shiratorizawa's coach scolds Goshiki, who doesn't seem very affected. He knows that he is a star, which makes him feel better, managing to get past Kageyama and Hinata's defense. After a little discussion between Satori and Ki, Karasuno tries to make a synchronized attack, but just as they perform their moves, Shiratorizawa realizes their strategy, blocking the shot and sending it to Karasuno's side, scoring thanks to a tiny opening. Right then and there, the old Yukai arrives to watch the game, eager to see what Washijo will come up with. At the same time, the latter realizes that, although the teams have very different tactics, they are similar when it comes to scoring by mere strength. In the end, it's a battle of concepts, just like when old Yukai was training the Karasuno at the time. Now it's the perfect moment to judge which students are stronger. The game progresses and Ushijima continues to score, while the boys cannot stop him. Even Ki is unable to read him, but he comes up with a new strategy, where they take the defense to the back, being Asahi the one responsible of saving the ball, giving his friends a chance to spike. When Tanaka is about to do so, Satori blocks him, as he knows just by looking where the ball is being directed towards. Since they can't stop Ushijima, they send Hinata to the front again. Ki thinks to himself that if they don't score with Hennet there, they're done for. Hinata knows that Ushijima wanted to tease him for being short, and this makes him jealous, but that doesn't stop him from playing, making good use of his height and scoring. With fire in his heart, he begins to play and turn the game around. However, everyone realizes that Hinata should be getting tired by the minute, since he has been running all the time, no small feat. The old Yukai knows that his only option is to jump. Anyway, Hinata does not feel tired and manages to even the score. Even his friends begin to support him with the blockings. When Shiratorizawa's turn to attack comes, Tanaka jumps next to Hinata to block Ushijima, touching the ball and scoring a point in the process. Seeing this, Yukei's grandson realizes that if this was only a matter of physical skills and talent, the match would be very simple, but that is not the case here. That's what makes it so interesting. Next, we see a flashback about the current third years, from the time Daichi, Shuba, and Asahi had just arrived at Karasuno, meeting the team. They are received by their captain with great emotion, and the three decide to go as far as possible. The only problem is that no matter how much they train, the rest of the members of the team aren't too excited to be playing, especially Kurosawa, who is well aware that the team isn't good, so he doesn't even try. This eventually affected Daichi, but still he never gave up and continued to practice with his friends, who did their best to quickly learn to receive and play differently. In time, their captain motivated them and took them to the Inter-High tournament, where Karasuno lost bitterly. Now in the present, Daichi knows that they must succeed where they once failed and emerge victorious. With this mindset, they attack, but unfortunately, they can't get close even with Hinata up front, since the enemy has too much attention on the ladder, preventing him from making good plays. Still, Hinata and Kageyama manage to score. On the downside, playing for so long at this intensity is something that is tiring the team quickly, so Yukai decides to take Hinata out of the game. This is where Ki and Tadashi come in. As soon as Shiratorizawa launches its shot, Ki blocks it successfully as always. Not only that, he also has a new movement ready to score. Tadashi then prepares to serve, launching a good shot, but failing to score. That's when Ushijima comes out to spike through Karasuno's block. Even if he is very strong, everyone knows that if Ushijima continues to play like this, he will eventually get tired. Ki and Kageyama try to make a spike together, but they fail to coordinate, and just when it looks like they are going to lose the point, Kei miraculously saves the ball. However, Satori realizes that this wasn't Ki's fault, but Kageyama's, who is beginning to get tired, given that he is the one that moves the ball the most trying to control it. With only 1 point left, the team tries to go all out and attack, but that's when Ushijima takes the ball and moves towards the blockade. In that precise moment, he sends the ball straight to the front instead of spiking, because he knows that the center is being neglected and Karasuno won't see it coming. This causes the teams to go into deuce once more, starting to attack non-stop, giving Shiratorizawa the upper hand. To prevent Shiratorizawa from getting more points, Ki and Kageyama perform a cross-block, managing to stop Shiratorizawa's attacks. This motivates even the old man in the stands, who notices that the school has changed, supporting them with all his might. Hearing the cheers of the ex-coach, the entire group gets pumped, and after Shuga and Hinata enter, they go on the offensive once more. Hinata coordinates with Kageyama as usual to get a spike, but Satori and the others have learned how to block him. But just when it looks like they're going to score, Karasuno stops them, leaving Satori upset. The boys continue to attack, and it is then that Hinata remembers the old coach Yukai's words. In order to play well, he doesn't need to handle the ball that much, only control it. Motivated once more, he manages to get past Shiratorizawa's block, and that way get the team the last point to win the set. This leaves everyone surprised and excited. Having been able to win against Shiratorizawa, even Kageyama is happy, as this means they can continue playing. Before starting the fifth set, Yukai tries to encourage Shuba, because he wants Kageyama to reserve him for the moment he's necessary. Thing is, Shuba is too nervous to concentrate until Kyoko approaches and takes his hands, making him forget everything. The set starts, it only requires 15 points to win, so it was supposed to end quickly, but everyone is worried because Shuba is the setter. Because although they know he's good, the pressure is too much for him, still, he tries to stay calm. It's when the ball is in the air that he calls Noya to change with him and act as setter, because this is the new weapon he had been practicing. The whole team goes for a synchronized attack, where Shuba is the one who finishes off and gets the advantage. However, in spite of this, Satori remembers when he was just starting to play on the team, and no one wanted to practice with him as they never knew what he was thinking. It was for this reason that he went to ask Washijo to let him continue playing his way, and he accepted. Both before and now, Satori aims to break his rivals' hearts. We then see how Ushijima and Satori talk about Ushijima's father and how he wanted to train him in volleyball because he wanted his son to be a star. However, his father had divorced a long time ago, so he keeps her mother's last name. However, as a child, his father taught him that the star is the one who makes the passes, and Ushijima wanted to imitate him. Back in the present, since Karasuno has the advantage, they call timeout, and Kageyama admits that even he couldn't make such a play since he can't coordinate that well with Noya. On Shiratorizawa's side, they prepare to go out and play once more, resting as much as they can. Once the match resumes, Ushijima quickly goes on the offensive, where no matter how hard they try to block him, he ends up bypassing Karasuno's defense, while remembering his father's words, who was proud that he liked volleyball. This motivates him a lot, motivating the team too. They become stronger on his offensive, managing to not only catch up with Karasuno, but gain the advantage in the marker once again with just Ushijima. However, Karasuno has Ki, who manages to read and slightly deflect Ushijima's balls. Yukai knows that no matter how callous you are, Ki's ability ends up affecting them sooner or later, and we see this in Satori and the others, as Ki manages to block all their attacks, giving an impression similar to Aon's. Yet when it comes to stop another of Ushijima's attacks, everyone realizes that the latter wanted to avoid touching Ki because he knew he was going to stop it. At that moment, they notice Ki is injured in the hand due to the hit by the ball, so they quickly take him out, which greatly affects the team at that point. Even worse, he is furious to leave, reluctantly going to the infirmary. In the way, he meets his brother, who calms him down by saying that his teammates will take care of winning the match for him. Back in the game, Daichi and the others know they can't let Ki down after seeing him like that, so they try to make the play in sync with Noya, but they are quickly stopped by Satori, who wins the point. However, this doesn't affect Shube, as he can try again. Hinata is about to join the game, but before Yukai advises him to switch to his soft blocking if he sees he's having problems. Once he gets into play, the first thing he does is get hit by a ball that luckily is stopped by his face, earning Karasuno a point. This is because he didn't want to get hit in the nose, but he couldn't use his arms in time, so he tilted his head to make it count as a block. Seeing this, Ushijima realizes that Hinata, despite not being talented or intelligent, is still a danger and wants to crush him. In turn, Kageyama is done preparing as he wants to go out and play again. The team continues trying to resume the attack, but Shuba knows they can't play it safe, so they risk another synchronized attack. Satori tries to go to block, but he starts thinking too much about what to do. Finally, he realizes he can't reach the ball and doesn't even try, for which his coach scolds him, because he knows that no matter what, even if it's a lost ball, he has to move and try. Kageyama returns to the court and quickly warns Hinata to cover his head. This is due to the fact that he is making a new movement which confuses Satori, but not Hinata, who manages to understand it, and thus they get the point. The game progresses and Shirota Razawa quickly achieves 10 points, putting Aida in to make his serves, and with these, they get a direct point, for which they call a timeout. Both schools begin to cheer their players with all their might, which raises Karasuno's spirit. Just as Ushijima is about to score again, Hinata reaches out to stop him, getting them another point. Goshiki, seeing this, tries to cheer up his friend, but is surprised that one of the first ones blocked him. He isn't the only one, though. Yukai is also impressed, since neither he nor anyone expected this kind of blocking, or rather reception. The moment arrives when Tadashi must serve, and he launches his serve with effect, which gives them another point, and this way they will reach Shira Torazawa. That is because it begins to affect them psychologically, especially Goshiki, who begins to fear that for real, they can beat them, and even more when they lose points and Karasuno surpasses them. That's why Ushijima cheers them up in a cold but effective way, because that is how the star of the present should be and the one of the future. Tadashi serves again, and this time Shira Torazawa receives it, and they manage to take the lead once more, although Karasuno manages to catch up again, evening the score and getting into deuce. Everyone knows that this can't be extended any further, because if they do, the people from Karasuno will end up tired and unfocused. Karasuno does its best to try and stop the ball, dashing everywhere to prevent it from connecting with the ground. Yukai cheers them up, because volleyball is a game where they must always look ahead. This motivates the boys. Kai returns to the match. Upon returning, we see what happened in the infirmary. Kyoko managed to see how Ki was so focused he wasn't even thinking about his He was only thinking about what he would do when he returned to the game. After explaining his to Yukai, he allows him to continue playing and immediately goes to Hinata to wait his turn. Meanwhile, the third years attempt an offensive against Shira Torazawa, somewhat happy that no one is paying attention to them, and once they manage to catch up with them, Ki is called to the court. He approaches Kageyama and the two agree that they shouldn't hold back. At the same time, Ushijima coordinates with Shirabu for his next move, making everyone nervous by how calm he is. It's Asahi's turn to serve, and he does it with a full power, yet his opponents catch it easily. This gives Ushijima a chance to make his spike, which Ki quickly realizes and goes to block even when his fingers still. This surprises everyone, as during his other matches he never showed himself so passionate. The game continues and Ki does his best to block Ushijima, and once they have a good defense against him, he coordinates with Kageyama to make a wide attack, and when it seems that Satori is going to catch it, they score, being only 1 point away from victory. Then Shira Torazawa calls a timeout, where everyone begins to realize that even though Shira Torazawa is strong and reliable, Karasuno is new and reckless, and that makes puts on the same level. Ushijima, on the other hand, knows like Shirabu that he isn't as useful as before, since he has been jumping all the time, even he gets tired. On the other hand, Daichi is encouraging Karasuno because he knows that even if they can't one-on-one, they are 6, and they can win against Shira Torazawa. The game resumes and it's Asahi's turn to serve again, but his shot misses, causing Shira Torazawa to take the lead, but they quickly even things up, missing another shot. However, in the stands, people know Karasuno is a great team, as they are willing to get the risk of making such a strong and dangerous serve. Ushijima launches the attack, and although Hinata tries to block him, he stops midway, confusing him and performs spike, showing that exhaustion is nothing to him. While Ushijima continues to attack, Washijo, upon seeing Hinata, gets reminded of himself and therefore rejects him with all his might. Unfortunately, Hinata can't jump due to exhaustion. Nevertheless, he continues thinking about his next move. At the same time, the boys keep the score level, and when it seems that they are going to score, Dechi tries to move and his legs don't respond. That's why Noya throws himself forward, giving Asahi the opportunity to smash and give hope back to the team. Now the only option left for them is to attack from behind, since they can no longer make changes. Ki manages to stop the ball, remembering Kuro's advice. The blocker is the last one laughing, because now he has achieved a touch for Hinata and the others can prepare to perform an attack from behind the court. However, Shiratorizawa receives it and tries to attack, but Karasuno resists with everything he has, and even Hinata blocks with his face again, while his opponents concede the ball to Oshijima once more, who prepares to throw, but Ki and the others already know where he will throw the ball. Therefore, Kageyama waits for him there and blocks it. Yet due to the intense pressure of the game, Ki and Hinata are quickly overwhelmed. But it's then that the third years start to push, keeping Oshijima at bay, so that everyone else has a chance. This is how Hinata, from behind, manages to see the ball and prepares to score, slowing down to confuse Shiratorizawa, and launches a synchronized attack. Doing so, Hinata gets the hopes and strength of his entire team, with which he finally spikes the ball, showing that volleyball is a team sport, and there is more than one way to be strong. After the ball touches the ground, the referee scores the point, and with it, Karasuno's victory. Everyone, including the boys, is speechless. Even Kyoko cries, moved and happy. Quickly, they line up and greet each other. Upon seeing Hinata, Washijo is surprised that they are the same height, but he also knows that the further he advances, the more difficult his path will be. At the same time in the stands, Oikawa is observing and analyzing the match, realizing that although Hinata and Kageyama made a good team, everything was possible thanks to the fact that Ki was able to block with great precision, and for this reason, he cannot stay still and let them run so freely. Once they finish greeting, Shirabu opens up to Rion about how neither he nor anyone else expected them to lose, so several of them begin to cry in frustration. But they cheer up when the coach, in his own way, tells them that they will have another opportunity to play. While Satori and Oshijima stretch, they talk about how surprised they were to see Hinata in action, and Oshijima childishly wants to make clear that he was stronger than Hinata. Then he goes to see Kageyama and Hinata to promise them that next time they will win. Meanwhile, Ki is in the bathroom washing up, not being able to stop thinking about Oshijima's intensity, feeling pathetic for having been barely able to save a shot, thing that Tadashi Sanfurle argues, making him see that he should focus on the award ceremony and furthermore, in the national tournament. The team then receives their medals for winning, and soon after, they go to the restaurant to celebrate. After the game, they go back to school, where Hinata feels like a star and brags to his classmates that he's going to the nationals even though they don't believe he's going to play. Meanwhile, Yachi continues to work as a manager, too involved in her job to make a new poster. In turn, Takeda receives a call that leaves him speechless, and the boys begin to prepare, with Hinata excited to face Nakoma or Fukurodani at nationals. Arriving at the gym, everyone begins to mark the jump to see who will be on the poster, and to everyone's surprise, Hinata is in second place below Kageyama. And speaking of him, Takeda arrives on time, letting everyone know that Kageyama has been invited to an intensive training camp. We see Nakoma, which is waiting for the women's volleyball team to finish playing because it's their turn. Yet another of the teams arrives to annoy Kuro and the others, but although they succeed, both are convinced of their victory in the game that follows. When they go to the court, everyone notices there's a great anticipation, and it's just normal, since they will be facing Fukurodani and with it Bokuto. His teammates think they should encourage him with something, but it's not necessary, since he seems very focused. The game begins, and immediately, Kema gives them a point, but on the next move, Fukurodani retaliates with Bokuto, scoring and making the people on the stand cheer for them. However, when trying to score again, one of Nakoma's men stops him, knowing where the ball was going to end up. However, this far from annoying Bokuto excites him more than ever, so he tries to shoot a straight shot through Kema, which passes through him. Kema and the others realize that Bokuto is making better straight shots than usual, something very rare for him, since he usually prefers diagonal shots. But this is all part of Kema's strategy, because alongside Kuro, they manage to avoid Bokuto's smash, frustrating him. It's then that the star of the team, Lev, appears to help and improve the score. Although everyone has their hopes placed on him, the truth is that he's still as bad and terrible as ever, costing the boys points. For this, the coach calls time out to ask Kema to take care of Lev and to scare him, tells him that he is not as good as Hinata. After hearing this, Lev goes out to play again, stronger than before, managing to score. But that doesn't matter since he keeps being blocked, which makes Kema's word even more annoying. When Fukurodani starts his offense, Nakoma's defense gets placed far away, preventing them from scoring and even scoring points during the defense. On the other hand, in Fukurodani, Bokuto, when he does something well during a match, reaches a point where he forgets everything else. This way, Bokuto remembers when he talked to Hinata, and as he gets closer to the ball, he also remembers that a requirement to be a star is to hit all the balls, thus scoring and putting them back in the lead and winning the match. This greatly frustrates Lev, as he believes that everyone else failed because of him, but Kuro helps him feel better, telling him that it's more satisfying when teamwork goes well, and that with time he will improve. In turn, Kema receives a message from Hinata saying they will go to the nationals to then be called to his next match. This time, they will face Nohibi, a school with a very annoying captain. He doesn't stop provoking Nekoma and especially Lev, saying that he can't score or even block, distracting him so much that he can't play well. This upsets Kema. Already in the game, Nohibi takes the lead, and when it looks like Nekoma is going to lose a ball, Haikyuu lunges for it, giving Lev a chance to show what he's made of. Yet, unfortunately, Haikyuu appears to be... We see the time when Kuro and Haikyuu met. Long ago, they were rivals in volleyball, and not only there, they also fought over anything they could say or do, coming to resemble Kageyama and Hinata. However, they had the same goal, to win the national tournament. Back in the present, we realize that Haikyuu is in his leg, so they have to call in Shibayama to replace him. This gets Haikyuu very upset, since he didn't get sick. Nothing happened to him all year. Arriving at the court, Shibayama is quickly pointed out by Nohibi's captain Subu, and this scares him to the point that he cannot move. For this, they ask for a timeout, and that's when Kema says they have a chance to win, and since he doesn't care about anything but analyzing it means it's true, and that is better than any motivational speech. Therefore, Kema tells Shibayama to switch with Kuro in the next set. The match resumes, and the boys try to have a good defense without Haikyuu, but it's too difficult to play without him. Yet Kuro manages to realize Nohibi's strategy and gets in the way of the captain, seeing that he is going to throw at Lev. This buys them time and a margin of action wide enough to recover and let Shibayama calm down. In the end, the two teams go into deuce. Kuguri then smashes to put Nohibi in the lead, as his ability is perfect for this moment. Everyone in Nekoma tries their best to get past their opponents, especially Lev, who manages to block well, while trying not to listen to Subu and his taunts. As the game progresses, Nekoma slowly outplays Nohibi, using Lev's clumsiness to their advantage whenever they have the chance. Since Kuro isn't as good on defense as Haikyuu, Kema proposed to use a synchronized attack from behind, using Lev as a lure, giving them a chance to score, thus winning the set. Upon returning to the game, Nohibi brings Numai, Nohibi's star, who has an thumb, so he suffers with every ball he hits, even then gived him and his team the advantage, because he does not want to lose. Sugu knows very well what people think about them, but he couldn't care less. All he cares about is winning, and for that, he'll do whatever it takes. Kuro blocks a shot but gets and has to be replaced by Shibayama, who promises Kuro that he'll support Lev. Immediately, Nekoma loses another point, and judging himself responsible, Shibayama apologizes to the team, which Lev doesn't understand since it's not his fault. It's then when he begins to understand what Kuro wanted to tell him, understanding that teamwork is a mental matter and not something physical. For this reason, he is now willing to play better, throwing himself to block Kuguri, who knows by instinct that if he throws the ball at him, it will end badly. Nekoma then manages to score one more point, winning the match. Everyone is super hyped and excited, especially Lev and Shibayama, because they were able to understand each other and finally know what the other was going to do, feeling just like Kuro said they would feel, especially Lev, as he was able to control Kuguri's shot from the other side of the net. As they celebrate, Nohibi walks out with Kuguri frustrated that he couldn't score. Once out of the court, we see how Subu, although he feels bad about losing, reunites with his friends to keep improving. The match ends with Nekoma advancing to the nationals. We finally return to Hinata, who after being told by Kyoko that they have to be measured, starts a jumping competition with Kageyama again. The bet this time 3 curry buns. Arriving at the medical exams, Hinata is excited as he has grown 1.4 centimeters, unlike Kageyama and Tadashi, who have already reached 180, while Ki is finally at 190 centimeters, making everyone jealous. Then they all go to the court, where they practice their jumps, Kageyama being the one who reaches the top, being Hinata the only one who almost reaches him. It's then that Takeda arrives to warn them about Kageyama's intensive training. After hearing this, everyone is shocked because they know that this training is the same as Ushijima does, and to be playing with someone they invited is already something incredible. That's why everyone starts to support and congratulate Kageyama, but at the same time, they wonder why Noya wasn't invited, although they quickly understand that it's because of his immaturity. However, Kageyama is not the only one who has been invited to something. He was also called by Jozenji's coach, as he wants to improve the strength of the entire prefecture, training with several of the best from each school. In both cases, no one invited Hinata, which makes him very angry and frustrated as he feels that the others are leaving him behind. That's why, once outside the gym, he tries to avoid Ki and Tadashi so as not to hear them talk about it. On his way, he feels how his friends are getting further and further away from him. Time passes, and slowly the day of Kageyama's camp comes, which has some problems trying to read Takeda's instructions on where the gym is located. On the other hand, Hinata is with Ki at the Shiratorizawa school, where the best have come to train. As soon as everyone realizes that he hasn't been invited, Ki gets furious, because he can't understand what was he thinking to do something as reckless as that. Takeda calls him out to scold him, scaring him a lot. However, Hinata doesn't want to leave, because he wants to learn from the other first years, Luckily for him, Coach Washijo says he doesn't mind having another ball boy. Kageyama arrives at the camp and meets Itachi-miya's Kumi Sakusa, one of the top 3 spikers in all of Japan, who recognizes him from the team that defeated Shiratorizawa. But when Kageyama introduces himself, Sakusa appears to be uninterested. Back to Karasuno, Yukai is surprised to see the list of boys who have gone to train that really are the best of the best, worrying a lot about Hinata. Washijo makes sure to let Hinata know that he doesn't see anything special in him, not without Kageyama, so if he doesn't want to be a ball boy, he better leave. On Kageyama's side, he meets with all of his training partners, where Coach Hibarita encourages them to show the world that volleyball is more interesting than it seems. Back in Shiratorizawa, Hinata goes with the team and introduces himself, willing to show Washijo and the others his worth. We return to Karasuno. Yukai puts to train on the spot while asking Takeda for permission to leave because he has things to do, and his grandfather hasn't been feeling well lately. Also, he has to rush to Shiratorizawa to scold a certain shorty. Back with Hinata, Washijo tells them that the important thing is to do something different than usual, that they should take everything that makes them improve no matter what it is. They start practicing in pairs, but Hinata remains. Immediately, they begin to play, practicing shots, which Hinata wants to try too. But since he is a ball boy, he only suffers from the coaches yelling and scolding, something that surprises the others, because Hinata is a good spiker, so they assume he's just upset because he beat them. Hinata then continues to pick up and return the balls he finds, but as he does that, he watches very carefully what the other players are doing, paying attention to each movement. Once everyone is done, we see how Kindaichi stares at him, realizing that he's not the same as he was a while ago. In turn, we see how Ushijima and Satori reunite, ready to go to training with the boys the next day. When Hinata is left alone, he begins to practice solo shots, finding it very difficult. But he can't stop, he feels everyone is leaving him far behind. Ki tells him they must leave, and although Hinata wants to apologize, Ki only pesters him by saying he should go home and cry because he wasn't allowed to play. Sometime later, Yukai meets with Hinata, something bad because he can't do anything other than be a ball boy, but he lets him know that he should not underestimate said position. The next day, he meets once more at school, but this time with Takeda, who scolds him for doing something crazy like this. Then, on the way out, he runs into his teammates, but try to cheer him up so he can bring himself a new move or something. Hinata then returns to training, where he continues to be a ball boy, but this time, we also see how he tries to catch the balls, surprised at how Goshiki does it. At that moment, Ushijima and the others from Shiratorizawa appear, and upon seeing Hinata, Satori wants to beat him immediately, but they are surprised to see him as a ball boy. Meanwhile, Washijo gives advice to all the other players on how to block or how to improve their movement, all while Hinata can only watch from the scoreboard. Satori approaches him to ask him why is he not playing with them, and when he finds out that he snuck in, he takes Ushijima out to tell him, seriously asking why is he there if not to play. In Karasuno, the boys continue to train in their free time, practicing serves and their movements. Yukai knows that in the next game, they can't afford to leave anyone behind, and of course, Hinata knows this better than anyone. So the best option they have is to let him find a way to become stronger, something complicated because he doesn't know how. Back with Hinata, he finishes putting his things away, but he locks himself in the cleaning room, very frustrated, trying to think why he has gone to that place if he isn't going to train. He knows that he must find a way to improve, but doesn't know how, and just when it seems like nothing comes to mind, he walks out, having something in mind. Seeing Hinata's great determination to move forward pisses off both Satori and Ushijima. Hinata realizes that he has no say on the field, so the only thing he can do is observe more carefully. This way, being at the top, he gets to see the game better, beginning to analyze what each player does, for example, those who receive. This gives him an opportunity to learn more because even during other games, he never looks at the players, only the ball. This allows him to realize that to know where the finisher is aiming, he must pay attention to his posture, being surprised to see Ushijima. Then, when he goes down and is closer, he sees how one of the players separates his feet a little from the ground, something that his friend Tama had taught him a long time ago, split step. It's called, and it's the maneuver with which one moves to shorten the distance to the ball and reach it. Realizing this, he manages to catch a ball from Ushijima, albeit getting a little. Continuing to watch the game closely, Hinata realizes that until now he was just chasing the ball, but in volleyball, the court is full of information. This is why, when everyone leaves, he asks for those who stay to play with him, flattering Goshiki to convince him and so trying to polish what he has learned. Seeing him, Ushijima and Satori are still upset, but they know that whatever it is, Hinata will get something good out of this experience. As the game starts, Hinata tries to split step, having some trouble due to pacing. However, it comes a point where he not only manages to move, but also knows where the ball will go when Goshiki throws it. This excites him, as he realizes he can still improve. When leaving, Hinata knows that he should go eat because his muscles need to be repaired to be stronger, so he has to wait until he gets home. Before that, he calls Yukai to ask him what he should eat and do to rest his body. After he gives him instructions, Hinata runs home, ready to start his real training the next day. Back to Karasuno, the guys are training with Tokonami, as Yukai commissioned them to be able to make the same moves, no matter who they play against, but when they try, the boys have many failures, so in the end they lose the match and have to do a round of punishments. In Shiratorizawa, Hinata is moving very differently from the first day, getting to know where the ball will go. This is noticed by Washijo's assistant, who knows that little by little, Hinata will become even better with the ball, and over time, his instincts will become intuition. Later, Watsujiman and Satori arrive to see Hinata, convinced that both he and Kei are monsters, since they are always giving their all to train and play. On the other hand, we see how Kageyama is very excited to play with others that are as good as him, but has trouble adapting to another rhythm because he is too used to Hinata. Returning to Hinata, he meets Kendaiki, to whom he reveals that his goal is to defeat Kageyama. Then they go back to practice spikes, where Hinata quickly starts acting as if it was a real game, starting to catch the ball much more easily, intimidating the others and annoying Kei, who feels he has to do something. That's why, after finishing the practice, he takes Hinata with him to a private place. Turns out to be Kei called Hinata because he wants to block together, making Hinata very excited, who rushes to prepare him and the others. On the other hand, Kageyama is chatting with a classmate who is complaining that he lost his last match. At that moment, Sakusa appears, intrigued because Karasuno has beaten Oshijima, thinking that he was feeling bad during the match, when actually what happened is that Hinata stopped him. This makes Sakusa even more upset and tries to find out who is he, but his friend stops him. It's at that moment that Kageyama says that until now he seems like someone very normal, at least for now. However, both he and his partner are more intrigued to see who is the white-haired boy, since he is very good. Shiratorizawa's coaches are talking about how Washijo started changing since he met Hinata. He seemed deeply upset during the match, but there's something else to it. Going back to Hinata, the boys are impressed by how well he plays and receives the ball. It's then that everyone changes position, leaving Goshiki in charge of spiking and leaving the others to block. Although it doesn't look like much at first, Goshiki gets past his block easily, leaving Hinata the job of stopping the ball. He knew that the movement looked like a cross, yet it wasn't, but a straight. This was his objective with Hinata, to train him so that he could adapt to more complex plays, since in the Nationals they could find opponents like that. We then move on to see Kageyama, who is beginning to communicate with the others, asking for their advice and opinions. In that, the mysterious boy named Hashiyumi rises into the air, smashing just like Hinata. As the others stretch, Hashiyumi goes to Kageyama, frustrated that he wasn't impressed. It's then that Itsumo appears to calm the atmosphere a bit, although he only wanted to provoke Kageyama, calling him sanctimonious. Going back to Hinata, he finishes playing with the others, going to the top of the gym to get a better look, noticing that Kunimi doesn't move at all, even though he could have caught the ball that was going towards him. This bothers Koga and the others a lot, as they know that he could have saved the play for them. But Kunimi gets upset when he hears that. Hinata then goes downstairs to ask about it, to which he remembers that Kunimi is one of those who prefers to save energy for the second time, and he also pays close attention to others. So Hinata begins to observe him and discover his secret. At the same time, we see how the others are worried, not for Hinata, but for Hayakozawa, since he is the newest of them and can hardly play well. When it's his turn with Kunimi, he gets very frustrated that he has so many flaws that his partner has to take care of, but he still keeps trying, even though he knows he can't keep up with them. When Hinata goes to give him water, Hayakozawa says that they should have invited him instead, but Hinata knows that this is not the case, since he knows that he's very limited without Kageyama. Also, he is very aware of how great it is to be 2 meters tall, so he starts cheering for Hayakozawa because he wants to beat him. It's then that he encourages him to play another match, and this time he gives him a tip for the game. Here, instead of going with his usual style, Hayakozawa starts to make a high pass, so that there is a slower and safer rhythm with which he can afford to think what to do and little by little break through to smash, relaxing a lot and being happy to have improved thanks to Hinata. Finally, we see Kageyama prepare for another day of training. Standing alone with a troubled expression, Kageyama recalls the game in middle school when his team ceased to play with him and announced they would not follow him anymore. He remembers when Uekawa questioned him on whether or not he was giving Hinata the sets he wanted, and that he would simply regress back to being the king of the court if he didn't. On the other hand, everyone notices that now, thanks to Hinata's advice, Hayakozawa plays much calmer. Not only that, Hinata is now able to better hit his predictions regarding finishing moves. The only one with problems is Kei, because now that it's a 2-2, he has no one to make up for his failures, so he has to block and smash on his own, thing he doesn't like because he doesn't settle for anything. The assistant coach then announces that they will have a practice match since Sato, the other coach, is unwell. Hence, the other boys will play against all of Shiratorizawa, while Hinata can only watch them from the side. At the end of the game, Hinata goes to Ushijima to ask him what he thinks when he makes a receive, just like Goshiki, who is scolded by Yaku, and upon hearing this, he does not want Hinata to get ahead of him. It's like this that the camp slowly goes by, with Hinata improving and observing the movements of his rivals. On Kageyama's side, he has begun to get used to a different rhythm of play, managing to coordinate well with Hashiyumi and Sakusa, which the coaches have noticed, happy to see that the boys have improved and have started getting along. But more than that, they are glad that they like and enjoy volleyball. Shouyou also appears, demonstrating what he is made of, being one of the best spikers of his school and in the entire group. We then go to see Karasuno, where everyone is training, and Tadashi realizes that Kinoshita has improved with floating serves. He's not going to lose to the others, so he starts training too. Yukai is worried because they only have a month left to prepare, so they must play as much as they can and improve themselves. On Kageyama's side, he talks to Itsumu, who tells him that he thinks it's better for him to play as a spiker, because as a setter he looks too serious and annoying. However, Kageyama is a setter, and he's not going to change it. This is how his training ends. Going back to Hinata, he is upset that not only has his camp finished, but he must also wait another month to play in the tournament. However, at that moment, as Koga is adding everyone to his phone, Kindeki appears to ask about Kageyama. Hinata, upon hearing this, makes him understand that it is normal for friends to fight, but before continuing, Kamimi takes Kindeki with her. As Hinata heads back home, Coach Washijo dines with his assistants, realizing that for those like him and Hinata, the hunger for victory is always there. The next morning, we see Hinata meet up with Kageyama, and they immediately have a competition to see who gets to the volleyball room first. After they caught up, they both begin to practice passes and tell each other what they did and who they met. Then Kageyama tells him about Hashiyumi and that he could fly as much as Hinata. This annoys him, but after Tanaka arrives and opens the door for him, Kageyama assures Hinata that he can fly much higher. Finally, we see that Date receives the news that they will have a practice match against Karasuno. The rest of the Karasuno team arrives, happily receiving their star teammates to start training, while they realize that the gym has been much quieter since they left. Hinata helps Yachi setting up the net. The idea is to help each other know where exactly every single player sends their serves and see how they react. The team begins practicing their serves. Asahi and Tanaka face off against Noya, casts every ball they throw at him, except for float serves. Tadashi is highly motivated, even if his serves aren't as good as they could. Finally, it's Kageyama and Hinata's turn. Kageyama throws one of his spikes, and Hinata is able to stop it with a split step, surprising everyone, given that he didn't do it by accident. After the training is done, Hinata goes with Kageyama to practice on their own and see how he can fly any higher. After Daichi tells them not to stay for too long, they begin to practice. In the meantime, Asahi tells the rest that since his return, Kageyama seems kinda and serious. Back at the gym, Kageyama tells Hinata that a good jump isn't made of momentum only. The stomp has to be really loud. The next day, the boys go to practice once more, and Hinata realizes that Kei used to play better when he was with Koga. Meanwhile, Yukai talks to Kageyama about being self-righteous, letting him know that there's nothing wrong with the way he plays. At the same time, Asahi is eager for Date Tech to arrive and play against them. It is then that the Date roster arrives, and after everyone quickly greets each other, Kageyama feels angry over the thought that Koga is a better setter than him. Karasuno meets with Yukai, who advises them to familiarize themselves with Date's blocking. That way, they will be calmer during the Nationals. The match starts, and right after the starting formation is set up, Karasuno starts their attack. Hinata rushes in, apparently to do a super fast spike, but it ends up being a bluff. Even so, Aon and the others manage to jump in time to block annoying Kageyama, as he wanted to pass that block on his first try. This is possible thanks to Date's strategy to unite all three blockers in the middle, a risky tactic, but effective when combined with an accurate reading of the rival blockade, similar to Key's ability. Also, with this tactic, their team can go for the ball with more ease and focus on its trajectory. Until now, Karasuno and its opponents had used a different method, splitting up across the net to cover more area. It is at this point that Kageyama gets the ball, and by doing so, he manages to feel the intense pressure that Aon and the others put on him, making it that no matter where he throws the ball in the end, not even Hinata can react to it. Yukai then realizes that the true danger of this formation is not only its defense, but the pressure it exerts on its opponent, reducing the game to seeing which team generates more pressure on the other, something that Kageyama also notices as he remembers the games he had with the best players in recent times. This way, after noticing his own mistakes, Kageyama throws himself at the ball, and in doing so, he tells Noya to get out of his way. Kageyama quickly clarifies to Noya that he wasn't trying to be mean, he was trying to block the attack from behind, something that no one, not even Noya or those outside the field, noticed. This leaves everyone amazed by the great attention Kageyama has to his surroundings. The match continues, and Karasuno's boys do their best to score, but they seem to have trouble getting points, giving Date the lead. Kageyama, on his side, passes the balls in a perfect way, and although Key manages to score, he is still not fully satisfied. This surprises Hinata because Kageyama always says unnecessary and annoying things, which makes the fact that he's quiet so strange. Date quickly takes the lead. Right then, students from the latter team's school arrive to watch the game, cheering for Date to win. Asahi tries to score, but just like the others, is having a lot of trouble achieving it. During the game, Asahi calls out Key about a mistake that ends up in the latter not scoring, starting a fight between the two. But this isn't the worst. When Asahi fails to score a point, the team goes out of the field during a timeout, and Kageyama gets enraged, ordering Asahi to score. He then proceeds to explode with annoyance because he knows his passes are good, so the rest must score more. It is so that the selfish king returns, but upon noticing this, Kageyama tries to apologize. It is then that Hinata lets him know that being a king is not a bad thing, and even if it were, if people don't like what he says, they can simply not listen to him, to which the others agree and promise Kageyama to improve their game. This way, the tension in the ranks is relieved, and although Takeda wants to stop them, Yukai knows that it is best for them to continue playing. Kageyama's talent is something extraordinary, so they shouldn't complain about it. When it's time for Ki to spike, Kageyama makes it clear that he's not going to get down to his level, upsetting him even more. The boys know that even though he acts like a selfish king, Kageyama is afraid that they will abandon him like before. It is then that Yukai realizes that what Kageyama is trying to do is to make the spikers shoot from higher up, instead of adjusting his passes to their level, making Kai spike even better than before. Upon seeing this, Hinata remembers his friend's passion for being a setter, and so he crowns him as a new king. The set ends, and Kageyama goes to the team and promises he will do his best to be a good setter. But for the rest of the team, it has always been like that. The game continues, and Hinata shows great skill, being able to better observe the playfield, watching how the others make their movements, surprising Shuga, who can't believe how Hinata won't stop growing. Suddenly, Tanaka makes a mistake, and Kageyama tries to tell in his own words that he will no longer be passing the ball to him in order to make up for that weakness, which causes a small fight between them. After clarifying the matter, they continue playing. Asahi fails again, but his friends support him. Date Tech notices this, realizing that they can actually beat their rivals. So when Hinata starts his quick spike, Aon and the others stop it without breaking a sweat. This makes Yukai and the others realize that the next year, their worst enemy might as well be Date Tech High. The match continues, and although Karasuno is the one leading, Yukai approaches Hinata and Kageyama. They know that their best option is to lose, starting the game again, where this time when smashing, Hinata does not jump, which confuses Date's men, but it is at that moment that he runs with the others, jumping at the last moment and spiking ball. The next play, then, is that Kageyama manages to make a pass from a long range, giving his friends a chance to smash, thus winning the set. This was possible because until then, Hinata had always been using his super quick attack, but this made him predictable, and by the time they learned to block it, he's no longer a threat. So it's better to do a synchronized attack like that or change his spiking pace. Nevertheless, this doesn't mean to stop using their super quick attack, it just means they should have more options. And as if that wasn't enough, Hinata and Kageyama are pretty troublesome, because when using the reading of the blocking, his opponents cannot know what movement Hinata will make due to his great speed, and since Kageyama doesn't show his emotions, they don't know where he will set the ball either, which ends up overwhelming the blockers. Moreover, Ki is not very satisfied because he knows that although this is a good tactic, sooner or later, they will begin to decipher their weaknesses, and that will put Karasuno in danger. The real problem, though, is that he's running out of energy, since he isn't a monster like Hinata, so Kageyama is forced to pay even more attention to him. Meanwhile, Yukai realizes that Tadashi is dying to play, but instead he chooses Kinoshita to do his services. When he sees how scared he is, he takes him out and scolds him. This gives Hinata an opportunity to launch another attack, but this time solely get Kuba's attention, giving Asahi a chance to smash. This leaves Kageyama impressed, as it's an amazing move. Asahi continues to play, running into On's wall once more, but this time he doesn't have the same fear as back then. For that reason, when he runs into the wall once again, he manages to turn his play around and score with ferocious force. After the game is over, Kageyama chats with Koka for a bit about how high he can jump, and even gives him tips on strengthening his fingers. Meanwhile, the third years say goodbye to each other, promising to see each other again in another game. At night, while everyone leaves, Kinoshita stays to practice with Noya, who has problems with his serves, but that's because he wants to practice other ways of receiving the ball, since he finds it very exciting. This also motivates Kinoshita, performing more and better serves, which annoys Tadashi, since he doesn't want to lose his place as the team's server. Meanwhile, Hinata returns home, where he knows that he has no one to practice with, thing in which he already has a lot of experience, so he ends up doing solo passes, teaching his sister how to do it, and when she sees him, she realizes that unlike it was in the beginning, now Hinata and Ball are connected. We stop by to see Daichi, who gets up to practice as usual, but when he gets to the gym, he finds that he is the only member of a volleyball club that doesn't exist. Fortunately, it was all a nightmare, the first of the year. After this, he goes to the temple, where he meets Shuga, Asahi, and Kyoko. The three go up to make their wishes and prayers. As they go down, Kyoko lets them know that even if the gods are not on their side, they don't need them, as she knows they are good enough to win matches on their own. Everyone else spends New Year their way. Some train, others rest, and Daichi goes to see that his nightmare was just a dream, because he finds that Hinata and the others are playing at the doors from the gym. Since none of them was able to stay still for long, so he forces them to rest. Soon after, Daichi finds Aikjiri, who mentions how surprised and excited he is to see him play in the nationals after all. He promised to win for them. Of course, Daichi and his team will do his best to meet his expectations. Karasuno makes it to Tokyo. They stop by the hotel to leave their luggage, and although they see a tall fancy hotel, they won't be staying there but in the small inn next to it. Tanaka overcomes his disappointment by stating the inn is probably haunted and inviting Hinata and Noya to explore it, plan that is fast canceled by Daichi's glare. They finally go to the gym, but everyone begins to get nervous. They know this is not a competition like previous ones, it's the nationals. Yet Yukai is not worried. He prepared a special video for them. It's not a recording of his next opponent, but rather a recording where everyone appears at their best moments so that they are encouraged and remember their best moves. At night, Kageyama and Hinata really want to go jogging, and since it was likely that those two got into trouble, Ki was put in charge of them while the others stay at the inn. Asahi is very happy about his video, Shuga is studying. The night goes by quickly, and after everyone rests, it's time to go to court. There Tanaka and Noya meet Kanoka, an old friend of Tanaka and Miyama's spiker, who has developed quite well since the last time they saw each other. For his part, Kageyama finds Komori, Sakusa's friend with whom he catches up. At the same time that Hinata meets with Bokuto. At that moment, Nakoma arrives and Daichi meets Kuro, having a bit of a rivalry between them. The beginning of the opening ceremony is announced and all the teams start appearing. Finally, it's Karasuno's turn. The battles on the orange court are about to unfold. Karasuno is warming up in the gym before their first game and everyone is extremely anxious as they don't have much to practice before they leave. When it's time to get on the bus, we see how Hinata and the first years leave their things with Tadashi, but he gets confused for a second, and because of that, a boy confuses the bag of Hinata where his shoes were. When he notices, he calls himself as he had left his phone there too. The bag had been confused and given to a boy. Luckily, the bag is still at the gym. Kyoko offers to go get the bag, leaving Yachi in charge because she has to get used to the fact that Kyoko won't always be there to help her. In this way, Kyoko runs off, getting on a bus where she begins to remember where she failed in the athletics club and how she tried to run and jump, falling to the ground. Despite that, she eventually met Daichi, who offered her to join the volleyball club as a manager. Since the team hadn't had a manager in a long time, she had to learn everything by herself. Over time, as she progressed, she felt more at ease, closer, and thus she became one of Karasuno's. The boys are warming up, having trouble adjusting to the place because the floor is very different and the ceiling is much higher, which does not help their nerves. On the other hand, Kyoko knows that now she must pass the torch to someone else, Yachi, but it's not like she's giving up because she knows that this is also her fight and this is her way of supporting the team. That is how she finally arrives with Karasuno, bringing Hinata's shoes. It is at that moment that Suba, his rivals, make their appearance. These upon meeting are convinced that Karasuno is not a dangerous team, since they barely beat Shira Torizawa by sheer luck. In addition, both their captain and some of them do not want to repeat what happened last year, since they have had to beat stronger schools to get to where they are. The match finally starts. Kageyama is first to serve, but quickly concedes the point. Not only that, but the boys can't play well because of their nerves, especially Kageyama, who because of that, and because he still hasn't gotten used to his role as setter so well, he needs time to adjust. Unlike Suba, that manages to lead the score 3-1. Kageyama continues trying to get used to his new environment, but Suba realizes he's not okay. So they try to take advantage by going to the right, which turns out badly, because Karasuno manages to score. Even when Kageyama misses a pass, Hinata scores a point, but Suba's lead, and Kageyama's mistakes start to affect the boys, so they send Tadashi to boost their morale. He had been practicing how to calm down, resetting his emotions by focusing on something else, launching a floating serve, with which the boys sucks at blocking and advancing further. Karasuno gets another point, but Suba is still leading. That's when Kageyama finally gets the hang of it and accurately sets for Hinata, who performs his quick spike, showing that Karasuno is ready to play for real. Seeing this, the entire crowd is amazed, especially by Hinata, since he's the smallest of the two teams. This catches Etsuo's attention, seeing Kageyama so different, and gets intrigued about Hinata. As the game progresses, Kageyama improves his passing, giving everyone a much better chance to score, and even he is encouraged to shoot, but Hinata gets a little frustrated by it. In turn, Yukai and Takeda realize that although it had never happened before, the world finally met Kageyama, and now they can witness his great talent when playing volleyball. Suba asks for time and the coach calms them down. They came to win, not to doubt. This gives them enough encouragement to continue their offense, but in the end, they end up with Ki in front, who can easily block their shots. Although this time it's not the case, and Hinata saves the ball, giving Asahi a chance to even the marker. However, this repeats. Odd Hinata receives the ball with his body, something that Asahi notices, knowing that this time he's not moving by instinct, but reading his rival's movements. At the same time, Ki continues to analyze the moves, taking special care not to make any mistakes, managing to put them in the lead, although Kageyama is not very happy about this. Kageyama then threatens Hinata that he has to hit his next serve, but he ends up missing. So Kinoshita is called in to take care of the matter, but he ends up losing the point, as does Kageyama, who shoots into the net. Then Suva calls Himikoa to serve, who's clearly more tense than the rest of the team, but this does not prevent him from performing an upward serve, although he ends up failing, hitting one of his teammates with a ball and causing them to lose the set. When the set ends, Himikoa thinks that everyone will blame him, but he quickly realizes that no one is angry at him. Moreover, he's called to the court again, telling him that he should take advantage of the few opportunities he has to be useful. Once he calms down, Himikoa again tries to serve up, directing the ball to the ceiling. The trainer knows that the ball is not that strong, nor that fast, but it's still useful. Although Daichi catches his, he can't stop it. Even though he and Asahi team up, the serves still connect with the ground, giving encouragement to the entire Tsuba team. Despite this, Karasuno manages to get the ball and continue scoring points to reach Tsuba again. And this is where Himikoa can see the determination of his enemies, as Noya has already gotten used to this service, being able to give a chance for Hinata and Asahi to spike. Shuben arrives at the field and they immediately resume the offensive. They are 1 point away from winning, and it's then that Hinata and Asahi go for one last shot, while the former Karasuno players are moved by how far Asahi and the team have gone. He scores and wins the match. We Fukurodani, and even though they are doing well, Bokudo is having a little trouble because he wants to stand out, and he can't do that on the secondary court where they are. Meanwhile, Karasuno leaves the match happy they won. At that moment, Daichi finally realizes that his former friends were in the stands, and when they go down, they find them and introduce them to everyone, like Kurosawa and Tashiro, former team captains. They catch up with the third years, surprised that Kageyama is such a good setter, but they are also interested in Hinata, since he is someone incredible for his size. Even the boys present him as someone unpredictable and as an unstoppable force, which has given Karasuno the opportunity to stand out and reach the nationals. After this meeting, and after the boys encourage them to win, they all go to see the Nakoma game. Hinata sees one that reminds him of Bokudo, so he buys it. And speaking of him, he gets very and quickly loses the will to play, leaving the rest of the work to his entire team, leaving everyone confused because they didn't expect Fukurodani to be so good without his star. However, when Akashi notices that he's getting restless, he starts giving him reasons to cheer, like this is center court, where unlike the other one, everyone pays attention to them, so it's better for all to observe them. Not only that, but Hinata has arrived with his shirt, taking all the emotion out of Bokudo, who begins to shoot better than ever, quickly getting the victory for Fukurodani. Seeing him so animated, Akashi admits to his teammates that even if he tries, he can only bring out a part of Bokudo's potential, which is why he always tries to encourage him, to see what he is capable of, and of course, he has never told him. At the end of the game, Hinata returns to the court to watch the other games, but on his way he finds Shouyou, who, although he doesn't know him at all, starts a staring duel against him, winning when Kageyama arrives, who introduces them. There, Shouyou confronts Hinata, asking how far he can jump, glad to know that he can reach higher. After this, he goes to his game, which is witnessed by Karasuno. Everyone is shocked when they see how tall and skillful Shouyou is, since he can jump more than Hinata and smash like no other, beating his rivals by himself. So Hinata goes down to take a closer look, leaving Shuga worried, since Hinata is not intimidated by taller opponents, but it surely affects him that there is someone equal and better than him. Shouyou then meets a reporter to whom he quickly tells that it's not bad to be small, that's something that bothers him a lot. People saying that being small in volleyball makes you a lousy player, because that's not true. When Hinata hears this, he's moved and returns to his team happier than ever, making Kageyama excited to see he's so into it. As they leave the court, they meet Nakoma, to whom they give a warm greeting, promising to see each other the next day, yet they both know how difficult that will be. We see that Tanaka has known Kanoka since he was a child. The kids made fun of her for being too tall, and he defended her to later encourage her to join the volleyball team. In the present, she is very embarrassed by this, and Tanaka is still in shock to have a chance with her. Soon after, the team gathers to see some information about their next opponents, the Inarizaki Academy. They will have to worry about Aaron Ojiro, one of the best spikers in the entire country, tall and strong. Rintaro Suna, a great middle blocker, with a lot of instinct that will surely adapt quickly to them. And Atsumu, the main problem with whom Kageyama spent time at the training camp, and whose moves he knows well. As if that was not enough, Atsumu specializes in serves which are similar to what Asahi and Tadashi can do. This whole issue leaves them in a difficult position of not knowing which one to watch out for. Despite this, Hinata and Kageyama remain as confident as ever. Unlike Daichi, who is somewhat afraid, yet Asahi calms him down, stating that he has a hunch that they'll win. Meanwhile, Tanaka is out and meets Kanoka, with whom he begins to talk, remembering what his friends told him, becoming very nervous. This gets worse when the conversation progresses, and for that reason he warns that he has another girl, but at that moment, a boy appears pretending that everything was a misunderstanding. However, Kanoka really was in love with him, so upon hearing it, she bursts into tears. Soon she remembers she has gone to win with her team and calms down. The next day, while the boys are practicing finishing moves, they see the combination of Atsumu and his brother Osamu. We then move on to watch Shinsu Kida, the captain, give an interview, confident that he and his team will win the match. Kanoka is talking to her friend, who is giving her some advice on what to do with Tanaka, saying that she should insist. This reminds her of when they were kids and she couldn't serve, but Tanaka encouraged her to do so and improve. Back in the present, the two meet again, where the misunderstanding from last night is quickly cleared up. Kanoka asks him to see her play as she has improved a lot since they were children. Kageyama and Hinata are practicing serves while Hinata remembers Hashiwi's jumps, feeling on fire. It's at that moment that Atsumu appears to see how the members of the rival team are. Kageyama assures they are good players, and that he better take care of himself. Karasuno prepares to play, and this time almost no one feels bad about competing. Even Hinata feels better and more excited than usual. The teams finally come out onto the court, where we can see the large cheerleading band that Inarizaki has, putting Karasuno down a bit. What's worse is that when they warm up, Atsumu and Osamu show great smashing skills, and once the match starts, Atsumu silences everyone in the stands. He makes a very fierce serve to later order the girls in the crowd to be quiet, since they bother him. It's Asahi's turn to serve, but he's too nervous, unlike Hinata, who forgets to hit the ball in the middle of his great shot. Seeing this, Atsumu realizes that he is no different from the players on his team. He is just as troublesome. Kageyama has noticed that during the last match, Hinata had a revelation, and he has realized that he can jump even higher, which complicates setting for him, but makes it more interesting. It's Rintaro's turn to serve, directing the ball into a troublesome spot for Karasuno. But as soon as they loose the ball, Atsumu adjusts their trajectory with a single touch, feeding it to Iran to score with a hard spike. This is why both Karasuno and the other teams know that they are one of their best challengers. This doesn't scare Karasuno, so they perform an offensive, where Hinata confuses them with his speed, jumping at the last moment to do his freak quick spike, surprising everyone, including Kageyama, who almost falls for Hinata's feint. Yet the most excited is Atsumu, finally being able to see the star move by Hinata and Kageyama. Hinata and company are not affected by the crowd jeering them. As soon as the game resumes, we see how Atsumu makes a very wide first step, with which he controls a large part of the field and gives the opportunity for a good shot. It's obvious that Kageyama and Atsumu are the best. They both hate to lose. Inarizaki's cheerleaders change the rhythm of their music, and it's Tanaka's turn to serve, watched by Kanoka from the stands. Tanaka misses the shot, but he's not the only one. Everyone else is being affected, and Yukai knows this because Inarizaki's gang is confusing them with the rhythm, since with that, they easily lose focus and can't play properly. This is why Seiko arrives along with a lot of helpers and instruments. This way, following the advice of the former players on the team, they begin playing music, drowning out Inarizaki's noise. At the same time, Nohibi's captain Sugu has arrived to watch the game from above, surprised to see Inarizaki's band since he doesn't even want to play against them. When he serves, Inarizaki returns it quickly, but Hinata manages to stop it, albeit by accident, and as soon as he has a chance to smash. After this, everyone on the field realizes that Kageyama is not somewhat easy to face, since his great range of vision, added to his incredible presence, make him a very skilled setter. It's Atsumu's turn to serve, and although everyone knows that he has two serves, they have discovered that he has a bad habit of counting when he is going to do one of the two. Maya makes a floating serve, but Osamu knows that even if they know what it is, his brother won't miss, as shown when Noya fails to defend him. On the second attempt, they manage to return the ball, but when Atsumu has it in his hands, he arranges and analyzes everything on the court, calculating the trajectory and the perfect moment to pass it to his brother, who makes a great shot. But it is not just any spike, it's one very similar to that of Kageyama and Hinata. Seeing this, Kageyama and the others are shocked. On the other hand, Atsumu is very happy he was able to imitate such an incredible shot. In turn, his brother Osamu knows that he should not trust Atsumu that much, but he knows that he can count on him to throw the ball. Karasuno goes on the offensive, and as soon as Atsumu sees his plays, he reads Kageyama's gestures and movements, knowing where the ball will go, and what play he will make with Hinata, managing to stop him. Although one of Inarizaki's trainers believes it would be enough to break his spirit, Hinata is not discouraged. On the contrary, he feels more motivated than ever to get past Atsumu's block. In the end, after a bit of a fight, he succeeds, and this gives Ki a chance to stop Atsumu's quick shots, since he has gotten used to Hinata's. With Ki taking the lead, everybody follows, like Tanaka, who scores. And to end this good streak, Inarizaki calls a timeout. During the break, Yukai tells Hinata that from then on, he must mark one of the twins like Inuoka to be a good blocker. Once the match resumes, Kinoshita joins in, and after being reassured by Yukai, he starts his serve, calmer but still misses. Even so, when Osamu tries to smash, Hinata quickly runs towards him. Hinata manages to reject the ball, equalizing the score for the first time in the game. Although this makes the boys happy, Kinoshita continues trying to stay calm because although he knows his opponents are human, they are not equal to them. And this is shown when they take the advantage again and overcome Hinata's block. Thus, they ask for timeout again. Yukai knows that Inarizaki is quickly adapting to them, so he plans a new strategy where Hinata will keep an eye on his opponents. Upon returning to the court, Osamu expresses that he is not afraid of Hinata's block, and this leaves him thinking. He wants to give the same pressure that other blockers have given him, starting to review the players he knows. He quickly understands, and by blocking Osamu, he directs his attack to Noya and giving everyone the opportunity to do a synchronized smash. The match stays even, but both Inarizaki's coach and Yukai know that as soon as Karasuno stops using their weapons, they will start putting a lot of pressure on them, and eventually they'll lose the balance of the match. That's why, when they no longer have special movements, the real game will begin. In turn, Inarizaki's team is somewhat worried about what Hinata might do, but their coach reminds them not to worry, for that means no good for them, so it's best to be flexible and continue to focus on the game in general. As soon as the game resumes, Asahi tries to spike, and although hits the ball badly, still manages to score, which makes both Kudo very emotional. Then it's Hinata's turn to serve, being very cheerful, until Tadashi arrives to score. The problem is that this time he has a hard time calming down, until his teacher shows up to help him, allowing him to launch a floating serve towards Inarizaki's star Aran, putting Karasuno on the lead. The night before the game, Kanoka had gone to congratulate Tanaka. After that, the boys had been helping him understand how he feels, because in all his time in Karasuno, he had been in love with Kyoko, and he doesn't like the fact of thinking of another girl. It is there where the boys begin to remember the first time they saw her. Back then, he was as aggressive as ever, but upon seeing her, he asked her to marry him right away, and Kyoko instantly turned him down. From then on, he never stopped insisting. Therefore, now Tanaka is having a hard time due to what happens with Kanoka. Returning to the match, Tadashi launches another floating service, although this one fails to score even with Tanaka helping on the defense. However, Inarizaki manages to come back a bit until Kageyama gets into the other side of the net, returning the ball to Asahi, who smashes and scores another point. Since Karasuno is in the lead, they depend on scoring another point to avoid a deuce, so Tanaka tries to spike, but is blocked by Rintaro, who knows, like everyone else, that Tanaka hasn't done much today, so it will be easier to go for him and break his will slowly. In spite of that, Tanaka isn't scared because he is used to being the main objective, so he prepares to be more aggressive, who has to be saved by Noya so they don't score, allowing Daichi to shoot from behind and gain the advantage. However, Tanaka continues being blocked, which gradually makes him lose confidence. We see when Tanaka had just entered Karasuno, introducing himself to the others. During his time in Karasuno as a new member, he had to suffer from seeing his team treated like a bunch of weakling rookies, especially since they wouldn't let them use the gym. In addition, when he went to train with other teams, he was annoyed that they would later belittle him. Yet when he saw his friend's determination to win, he felt more motivated, so he shaved his head and continued playing, and that's why it affects him so much to do the things wrong. Tanaka, feeling worse than usual, worries the boys, but they know they shouldn't worry too much as Tanaka is the only second year who still plays with them, despite everything he was told. When the ball is in the air, Tanaka remembers a time when he chickened out and he didn't go for the ball, but not this time. He decides to pass it to Asahi. Hinata goes to talk to him to cheer him up, reminding him of his blocking and how similar it was to Date's. Thus, after getting better, he blocks with Hinata, directing Inarizaki's shot. Then we find out that although he shows to be pretty full of himself, deep down that's not the case, and there are times when he gets to... But he knows that's no reason to look at the floor and stop, but something to keep fighting for. That's why he asks Kageyama for the ball and spikes, giving his team the first set. Ki is impressed by his friend's mental resistance because he never gets to... On the other hand, Kanoka remembers how Tanaka helped her during her childhood by seeing that her natural height wasn't something to be ashamed of, but at the same time he seemed jealous of her height. Knowing that Tanaka has always been straightforward and honest, Kanoka voices how she knows her heart has been broken. Subu and Mika has arrived at another court to see Nakoma's match against Sarukawa. Two teams with impeccable defense, waiting to see who will advance to the next round of the Nationals. We see how Kuro and his friends talk a bit about how much Kema hates to stand out, and that makes Kuro remember all the times Kema got sick from going to practice with him, still wondering if he likes volleyball. Kema admits that he doesn't mind playing, but he doesn't like it either. He just doesn't have a valid reason to leave it, and since he likes games so much, he wants to level up. That's something Kuro knows well, since he once found him playing at his house since 2 in the morning. On top of that, now Kema has a rival that wants to surpass Hinata. Back to the game against Sarukawa. We see they have a defense as good as Nakoma's, since Coach Shishio was a disciple of Nekomata. Subu immediately notices something is wrong, since Sarukawa is not attacking on purpose. Their strategy is to confuse Nakoma, or rather to tire Kema, and therefore tear apart their defense. We see Nakoma's past. Kema is running with his teammates, easily being overtaken, although he has fun seeing the things he imagines while running. Still, that doesn't change the fact that everyone is always getting over it easily, especially Yamamoto. The boys arrive at the gym, where they practice passing. Here, Yamamoto isn't upset because he's lazy, but because he's so good without trying, so he tries to outplay him with a strong pass and Kema counters with a feint. After seeing this, Kuro scolds his friend, asking him to please be more cooperative with others. That's why he begins to observe Yamamoto, trying to figure out how to be more friendly. One day, when they had a friendly match against another school, even though Kema did well, Yamamoto knew how terrible he played, so he stayed frustrated all day. Seeing him like this, Kema tried to think of something to cheer him up, telling him to just relax, but it wasn't that easy for him. So instead, Kema advises him to just reflect on what he did wrong. They both end up fighting over who is right, so to calm them down, one of their friends throws water at them. In the end, this helped the boys get along, and it's then Yamamoto realizes what a great setter Kema is, thanking him for being his partner and not his enemy. Although Kema and the others continue with their great defense, but Sarakawa continues with its strategy of wearing Kema down and thus breaking all of Nakoma. Despite this, Nekomata is very confident about his defense, since Kema is outstanding at analyzing his opponents. Yet Kema is getting more and more tired. As Lev approaches the net, Kema sets to Fukunaga further down the court. Fukunaga is able to score, but right away informs Kema the set felt low. Itaru Shiramin performs a setter dump that gets past Lev, but Kema is able to dive to save it. Kema is showing great exhaustion at this point, but continues to run to different points on the court in order to make a set. After Lev is able to narrowly make a receive, Kema hurries to make the set but trips and falls as he does. Kai attempts to get the ball back over, but is unable to as it goes into the net, putting the score at 23-21 with Sarukawa keeping the lead. Coach Shishio recalls lessons from Nekomata about how the team should study their opponents in order to take control of the match and how small things can lead to great results. It's with this idea that he uses his players to wear Kema out and slowly make him end up so tired that he can't even move, having to rely on his teammates to avoid losing a point. But he and the others continue to play, managing to even the score. Sarakawa realizes that they are adjusting to them, but they continue to push Kema to his limit. It's at that moment that Kema takes out his talent, managing to see where the players will go to block, passing the ball to his friends through a place they don't expect, making them tie again. This was possible since Kema and the others realized that their opponent's plan was to wear him down. Kema doesn't want to play with such intensity, but he knows that they can win. If they pretend to make mistakes out of tiredness, it will confuse them and allow them to analyze the game better. This way, they can now overwhelm their opponents, and even when they know where they're going to throw the pass, they can send it to the other side. Seeing this, the Cervical boys begin to fret, not knowing if Kema has been manipulating them from the start. This causes them to call a timeout, seeing that they have entered deuce. Although Nakoma has managed to sow the seed of doubt in them, the truth is that their coach manages to keep Sarukawa playing, more motivated than ever. For this reason, they continue to push Nakoma, which despite being physically worn out, continue playing carefully, scoring as much as the monkeys do. Nevertheless, Sarukawa's constant pressure irritates Kema, who begins to lose his focus. As if that was not enough, he feels discouraged as he doesn't feel he has the guts, unlike the others. Yamamoto realizes this. He knows that Kema thinks so, but he also knows that that's not true. Even though he is the last of his group, he knows that Kema has guts, since he always strives to reach the end of his training. Kema steps into position and sends a jump set to Fukunaga. His actions surprised many who did not believe that he would use this technique with an off-receive. As predicted, Fukunaga is able to land the spike and Mikoma is declared the winner of the match. Kema promptly collapses from exhaustion as the team celebrates their victory. Fukunaga compliments the setter for his toss and helps him stand so they can leave the court. As the two coaches greet each other and thank each other for the game, Nakoma thanks Kema for working hard, and this is where everyone discovers that he has guts, that he wants to work hard for his friends. However, Kuro knows that there's one opponent that Kema gets really aggressive against, one that they are truly looking forward to defeat, Karasuno. We now see Karasuno's second set, where Noya finds himself at the receiving end of all of Itsu's serves and powerful shots. During the second set, opponents typically avoid targeting Noya, so being bested by another player is undoubtedly a fresh blow to his pride. Yet, Atsumu shows no compassion. Sumu perceives that his strategy revolves around mentally unsettling their opponents. Atsumu aims not only to surpass Noya, but also to undermine the confidence of the entire team. It is in this crucial moment that Noya attempts one of his signature float serves but falls short once again. The smallest miscalculation alters the trajectory of the ball entirely. To maintain his composure, Noya begins performing push-ups. Later, he makes another attempt at catching the ball, resulting in a less-than-ideal reception. Asahi and the rest of the team try to execute his spike only for Inarizaki to regain control of the ball. Swiftly, Rintaro seizes the opportunity and scores a point. However, in an unexpected turn, Rintaro acknowledges Ki's valiant efforts to baffle him, a gesture that deeply irritates Ki. Meanwhile, among the crowd, an elderly observer elaborates on Rintaro's technique. He explains that Rintaro's prowess lies not solely in his arm's strength for spiking, but in his use of the entire torso. This unique approach allows him to direct the ball with both force and precision, dictating its path. Furthermore, Rintaro possesses a distinct ability, the manipulation of those attempting to block his spikes. This becomes evident as Ki and Kageyama launch themselves to block one of Rintaro's spikes. Yet, Rintaro deftly navigates through the defensive line, having anticipated Ki's move. Rintaro's skill lies in his capability to manipulate blockers, compelling them to react as he desires. This advantage not only benefits him, but also his team, a fact that even Kuro finds unsettling. On Karasuno's side, when a ball is sent soaring through the air, an opportunity arises for Eren to unleash a spike, skillfully circumventing a triple block and delivering a forceful hit that Asahi barely manages to receive. Nevertheless, Aran scores for sheer brute strength. Even though Takeda contemplates calling a timeout, Hyukai realizes that it's not a luxury they can afford, given their strategy relies on the current momentum. Their calculated approach involves Eren persistently receiving the serves, prompting the decision to sub in Shuba instead of Ki. This tactical choice aims to wear down Eren's stamina and incite frustration within the Inarizaki ranks. As a result, Shuba steps up to the serving line, yet Atsumu and his teammates maintain their calculated plays, maintaining a formidable advantage over Karasuno. Recognizing Eren's growing fatigue, they opt to substitute him with a player who has been relatively inactive for a while, Haisuke. Fully aware that his performance could earn him either praise or disdain from his peers, Haisuke steps into the fray. During a serving attempt, the Karasuno players inadvertently score a point for their opponents, sparking ire among the Inarizaki cheer squad. Meanwhile, Kageyama unleashes a serve of unparalleled power that lands precariously on the court's edge, impressing everyone at court, particularly Hinata. This heightened state of play, typically reserved for formidable adversaries, draws out a mixture of admiration and concern from Hinata. Kageyama steps up to serve once more, prompting Inarizaki to call a timeout in a bid to disrupt his rhythm. However, his Poland proves ineffective, as Kageyama continues to serve with never-before-seen intensity. This allows for the rest of the Karasuno squad to launch a concerted offensive. Meanwhile, Aran and his Inarizaki teammates begin to display signs of vulnerability. In this pivotal moment, Hinata opts to unleash one of his signature spikes, only to be stopped by Atsumu, who is growing increasingly agitated by their deteriorating position. Atsumu's frustration leads him to commit errors as well. At this critical juncture, Kita emerges as a pivotal figure, injecting his presence into the unfolding game. As soon as Kita arrives, he's aware that everyone is watching him, but he also knows they shouldn't fear him. He's not a god or anything, just another player. Just before the game starts, we see young Kita talking to his grandmother, who tells him that the gods are always watching. Upon stepping onto the court, some of his teammates are surprised as he rarely plays on the field despite being the captain. Nevertheless, as the game begins, Kita holds the defense and supports his friends as best as he can. He's known for not standing out in any particular aspect, but his greatest virtue lies in his ability to calm his teammates. He exudes tremendous confidence, wastes no effort, and always remains calm. Then Tadashi steps onto the court, only for Kita to easily stop him. We glimpse a moment from the past when the latter asked Atsumu to leave the game because he was unwell, a gesture born out of genuine concern for his well-being. This is how he lives his life, not out of a personal desire or due to his grandmother's teachings about the gods, but because he prefers to maintain order, repetition, and everything normal. Over time, however, he became an integral part of the Inarizaki team, a development that brought him so much joy that he cried with emotion. Shortly thereafter, Eren helped him realize that it's not as straightforward as he thought. Happiness can be experienced if one allows it, and Kita agreed with that sentiment. Back to the present, despite his reserved demeanor, Rintaro recognizes that Kita exerts significant pressure on their opponents. There's no aspect of him that can be ridiculed, not even by Rintaro himself. While Rintaro, Atsumu, and Eren focus on wearing down their opponents, Kita perpetuates that state of mind in them. He remains calm and keeps his friends focused, a role only he can fulfill. Karasuno finds itself in a challenging position, down by 8 points, yet they persistently strive to advance and score. Despite their determination and momentum, Rintaro and the others manage to score the final spike, winning the second set. However, Rintaro remains somewhat annoyed as Ki isn't paying as much attention to him as he would like. During the break, a sense of unease fills the air as everyone notices Noe's uncharacteristic silence. This departure from his usual lively demeanor raises concern among his teammates. Asahi takes it upon himself to uplift Noe's spirits, but he fights with his own anxieties, making the effort fall somewhat flat. On the Inarizaki side, Kita becomes acutely aware of Atsu's recent foolish antics and attempt to emulate Hinata's unorthodox style. After a reproachful scolding, Kita narrows Atsu's focus to delivering float serves. In a brilliant maneuver, Atsumu curves the ball at the last possible moment, securing a point for his team. Kita's strategic decision hinges on the belief that Atsu's success could tip the scales in their favor, or at the very least, ignite a renewed fire in his competitive spirit. Meanwhile, an undercurrent of fear goes through Noe. Still not discouraged, Asahi steps up to compensate for Noe's uncharacteristic hesitations. Simultaneously, Subu delves into the intricacies of rotation dynamics for both Karasuno and Inarizaki. While the latter adapts seamlessly to any rotation, Karasuno tailors their strategies to each player, resulting in a symphony of localized battles. Yet their paramount concern remains thwarting Eren's resurgence. The most effective approach involves putting an end to his spikes. Kageyama and Ki rise to the occasion, forming a formidable block against Eren's spike, stopping him in his tracks and earning a pivotal point. In a heartbeat, Rintaro grasps the significance of the moment, realizing that Kageyama's blocks carry an aura of intimidation that surpasses Ki's by far. The game continues, and the boys do their best to block Rintaro and Eren's attacks. It's here that we see how Yukai taught them before the match that despite a player's spike, it's not a 2-1 situation, but rather a 6-1 effort. To execute this move effectively, they rely on Ki and his ability to redirect the balls. Ki skillfully directs Rintaro's attack towards his teammates, and when Rintaro attempts to provoke him, Kai responds with grace and elegance, returning the banner. At this moment, Kinoshita steps onto the court, more determined than ever to deliver his serve. Now, with unwavering focus, he launches a float serve. Unfortunately, Inarizaki manages to receive and spike it, forcing Kinoshita out of the game. He recalls how, despite the circumstances, all of his teammates consistently gave their all, hitting their shots or fulfilling their roles. In contrast, he momentarily believed he could become a hero and bask in his moment of glory. Seeing him so disheartened, Shuga encourages him, reassuring him that there may be more opportunities for his shining moment, even though this might be the last match for the third years. Inarizaki calls for another timeout, aiming to break Karasuno's momentum. Here, Noya confesses that as a child he was afraid of many things, but he overcame much of his fear thanks to his grandfather. This is why he feels nostalgic when facing Etsuu's serves. They scare him. However, he recalls his grandfather's advice about seeking help. Thus, all his friends gather around to assist him, successfully halting Etsuu's serve. Kinoshita's encouragement empowers Noya to do so, providing opportunity for the rest of the team to execute a synchronized attack, resulting in another score. As they achieve this, emotions run high, particularly for Noya and Kinoshita, as it was their combined effort that managed to ruin Etsuu's serves. We then transition to Eren's childhood, where he first encountered Etsumu and Osamu. Back then, he recognized their remarkable talents, both as spikers and setters. Etsumu, despite initially not caring, proved to be exceptionally skilled in the setting position. The brothers continually improved and competed against each other, yet a problem arose with Etsuu's demeanor. He became excessively arrogant and abrasive with his teammates, eventually earning their disdain, although he seemed unbothered by this. There were instances when the brothers appeared to clash and fight to the point of each other, which instilled a sense of fear in Eren. Nonetheless, they remained remarkably close, always exerting their utmost effort in every training session, driven by their internal competition. The moment of the junior training camp arrived and only Etsuo received an invitation. Osamu wasn't concerned, knowing that his brother had a slightly greater passion for volleyball than he did. Returning to the present, we witness Tadashi executing one of his serves while Inarizaki attempts a block. Despite Ki's attempt to predict the ball's trajectory, Etsuo crouches down and redirects it for a spike. It becomes evident here that both brothers excel due to their intense competition with each other. Observing this, Kema is left impressed, understanding that he could never execute something as skillful. When Hinata steps onto the court, Kageyama expresses his joy at having arrived at the tournament as well. After that, we see Haikyuu unsure if he'll get back into the game after his last try didn't go well. The coach suggests taking things step by step to cheer him up, and Haikyuu gets another chance on the court. Once he calms down a bit, Haikyuu serves and this time hits the right spot. With his teammates' help, they quickly catch up to Karasuno. Even so, Haikyuu feels more motivated now. Without Haikyuu, Osamu and the others keep playing and give Karasuno a hard time. When they block Tanaka's hit, they turn the score around. Inarizaki, the other team, isn't always consistent, meaning they have some weaknesses. But that doesn't mean they're weak overall. Karasuno has to come up with clever ways to beat them. Inarizaki is the second best team in the country, so if Karasuno wants to win, they need to give it their all. Inarizaki starts their attack, not letting the pass affect them. The Meyer brothers switch positions, and this surprises Karasuno. They try hard to score a point, but Inarizaki's defense stops them. Everyone looks at Hinata, who gets ready for defense when he hears Kageyama is serving. Inarizaki knows this is a problem and tries to stop Karasuno from scoring. Karasuno manages to break through the block, but Inarizaki gets the point. Etsuo tricks them into thinking it was their mistake, thus earning the point. As the game goes on, Karasuno is struggling to keep up, and it looks like they might be lost. It's Osamu's turn to serve. He quickly sets it up for his brother to try for a powerful hit. Ki tries to stop them, but Osamu cleverly passes the ball in mid-air to Eren for the hit. Surprisingly, Hinata manages to block Eren's hit and catches the ball. This shocks everyone because it's an amazing play. It gives Karasuno a boost of confidence in seeing their hard work pay off. Hinata gets emotional for stopping a strong hit. With this great move, Karasuno gets ready for a coordinated attack. Inarizaki knows they can't let Karasuno score to keep their spirits up. They defend with all their might. Both teams refuse to give up, pushing themselves to the edge of the court to save the ball. In the end, Karasuno loses the point, so Yukai calls for a timeout. The players feel frustrated, but Hinata cheers them up by reminding them of their awesome save, and he encourages them to keep going. Seeing this, Osamu jokingly tells his brother he's hungry, comparing it to how Hinata's always hungry for victory. Just like taking a bite makes you want more, Hinata's desire for victory motivates him, and it's rubbing off on the rest of the team. We can see how the whole Karasuno team is now even more ready and eager to play than before. Kida returns to the court as his coach knows this is the best option. While Kida can't make incredible plays like his friends, he can keep running and chasing after the ball, changing things for his team, something Daichi also believes. Inarizaki starts their offensive, but they give Karasuno a chance for a coordinated attack. Ki tries to spike, but without sensing with Kageyama, he misses the shot. To everyone's surprise, he remains calm. Then comes the moment for Asahi to serve, and here he gives it his all, showcasing why he's the star with a fierce serve. This fires up the Miya brothers even more. When it's their turn, they attempt their reverse spike again, but fail. Kida has to save them at the last moment. With the ball in the air, the team remembers Hinata's excitement when receiving, and they all launch into another synchronized attack. Daichi spikes from the back and Kida receives, but they still lose the point and he reacts with the same intensity as them. Although Karasuno quickly catches up to Inarizaki and even surpasses them momentarily, Inarizaki quickly regains their points by attempting the same Miya brothers spike. Not only that, but they also execute serves and various plays until they reach 24 points, just 1 point away from victory. At this point, we see how all the other teams are supporting Karasuno, while Tanaka and the others begin to feel the strain of exhaustion. Tanaka feels strange, he sees the blockers better, but his instinct tells him to stop. This is where we see the moment he asked Kageyama to stop giving him sets because he felt he was playing poorly. However, Kageyama didn't listen since they needed his attacks. So after Kageyama sets up a play and gives Tanaka more options, he spikes the ball along the line, disrupting Inarizaki's momentum and really annoying Atsumu. By the end, Karasuno is just 1 point behind their opponents. It's Kageyama's turn to serve, and with his serves, he ties up the score. On the third attempt, Atsumu and the others rush to block him. Kida starts explaining to some of his friends what a genius means to him. It's someone really good at something better than others, and while they might be envied, it also means they have to fulfill their role. That's what they're meant to do. In the game, Inarizaki catches up to Karasuno, but Karasuno stands strong. Then Hinata and Kageyama attempt to spike, but fatigue gets to Kageyama, causing him to mess up the set. Hinata quickly saves the play, putting Karasuno back in the lead. Although Hinata is happy about this, Tanaka notices that Kageyama is starting to get frustrated because he can't perform well as a setter. He realizes that not only the opponents can corner Kageyama, at the same time, Atsumu is touched by Hinata's play. Meanwhile, Kida realizes that there are true monsters in this game and feels fortunate to play among them. Rintaro also notices that although Atsumu is usually unpredictable and sometimes clumsy, he now seems much more precise with every move he makes. He's on fire. With this newfound intensity, Inarizaki scores a point against Karasuno, taking the lead and putting Karasuno on a defensive position. To calm them down, Yukai reminds them that they don't need a miracle, just to stick to what they've always done. But despite knowing that Daichi and the others can't get used to the pressure, as a single mistake could mean defeat. However, they receive Osamu's serve and Kageyama tries to set the ball for Hinata, but misses again. Nevertheless, Hinata manages to score with his quick spike, tying the score once more. Still, Kageyama is extremely frustrated by his mistake, while Atsumu, seeing this, becomes even more excited, knowing he has an impressive teammate to support him. Kei then does his best to block Rintaro's spike, directing it towards Hinata for defense, but fatigue starts to wear him down and make blocking more difficult. Despite this, Kageyama manages to set the ball for Asahi, who, as he prepares to spike, envies and empathizes with the younger players who can hit these balls. He spikes the ball and once again gives the advantage to his team. Meanwhile, Funakuchi, who is watching the match with his friends, gets irritated. He knows Asahi waited for the blockers to start falling before spiking, and he's frustrated that Asahi is becoming so good. At the same time, Kida and his friends understand that the players are feeling incredible fatigue and nerves. The one who scores and wins will become a hero for their team. This way, Karasuno tries to score once again, but as soon as Inarizaki gets the ball, the brothers immediately attempt their combined move, or so it seems, as Atsumu coordinates with Rintaro to confuse Karasuno. However, Kageyama regains that point advantage by performing a feint, challenging Atsumu. At this point, the entire Karasuno team moves as Ki makes a spike, aiming for a synchronized attack to quickly score and win the match. But nervousness hinders their play, and Yukai notices this, trying to calm them down. This happens because in their eagerness to finish the game swiftly, their plays accelerate, exerting too much pressure on their bodies. So when Hinata sends a long, soft pass, the whole team can breathe again, recalling all the times Hinata expressed his desire to play, his longing to be on the court, and his deep passion for volleyball, causing Shouyou to burst into tears. That pass allows the team to coordinate another synchronized attack, but their opponents also prepare to receive it, blocking it. and forcing everyone to give their best to stop it and save the ball. Despite their efforts, each attack fails, giving the Milia brothers the chance to execute their combined spike. At a seemingly moment, Kageyama and Hinata manage to arrive in time to block their move, sending the ball flying and scoring the final point, delighting everyone with their victory. After the game, the whole stadium cheers with excitement, just like the happy Karasuno team hugging and congratulating their top players. On the other side, Inarizaki is feeling down after losing. In the midst of the celebrations, we spot Coach Washijo watching the game, looking as surprised as everyone else that Inarizaki, a team people thought would win, lost on only the second day. Amid the handshakes and good wishes, Atsumu makes a promise to Hinata that he'll be his setter one day, but for now, he needs to prepare for their next showdown in the Inter-High. After this, Karasuno takes a moment to thank their cheer squad for keeping their spirits up during the game, while Inarizaki's fans applaud them for their good effort instead of booing them as expected. On another note, the team's coach mentions they've learned a lot from this match. We see Kita scolding the twins for trying a move they're not used to, but he's not mad at them for their final moves since he thought they'd score. He even smiled a few times during the game, and he's bummed they couldn't win as he wanted to keep bragging about how great his friends are. Hearing this, everyone on the team tries not to cry, and the Maya brothers encourage Kita to keep bragging, even to their grandkids. Back with Karasuno, the team is getting ready to leave. They're all pretty tired and some even fall asleep where they are. Everyone, that is, except for Hinata, and Ki notices that on that day, after that amazing receive, Hinata has fallen even more in love with volleyball. Meanwhile, Fukurodani is playing their own match, with Bakudo more focused than ever, to the point that he doesn't even realize what happened with Inarizaki. At the same time, Sugu and his girlfriend chat about the upcoming match between Karasuno and Ikoma, knowing they can't underestimate Karasuno's energy. Later at night, the team watches the news, seeing themselves in the spotlight, happy and playful, enjoying the attention they're finally getting. On the other hand, Okuno is outside his room with Akashi, expressing that even though he'll keep playing after graduating, he wants to stay with his team longer and win all the upcoming matches. This surprises Akashi a bit, seeing his friend's determination. Back with Karasuno, the third years gather, remembering about all the great plays by the younger players, especially impressed by Hinata's pass that made Shuga cry. At that moment, all they could think was that they didn't want to lose. While the other guys shower and spend the night, we switch to Nekoma, watching Karasuno's match and getting a bit upset because many think they'll lose. However, Kema somewhat agrees with this, as even his teammates aren't sure if they could beat Ushijima or the Milia brothers. But despite that, Kema doesn't really mind, as they're there to find out if they can defeat Karasuno. And so the next day, both teams gather, causing Kema and Hinata to cross paths once again.